Chapter 1. Japan. In a room. Yuta. He actually controlled Gojo Satoru's body? How can you whip a corpse repeatedly like this? Can't a man rest in peace? Kazuma angrily pounded the table. Just now, he had fainted due to anger from watching the Jujutsu Kaisen manga. The content of the manga was outrageous to the extreme. Megami, controlled by Sukuna, vs Gojo Satoru, controlled by Yuta. How did Gege come up with such a crazy plot? It seems that mecha should be added to the genres of Jujutsu Kaisen. Where is this place? After calming down, Kazuma found that something was wrong. Why was his room looking different? After looking around, Kazuma became even more confused. Where the hell am I? Hadn't he just fainted from reading manga? How come his house had changed after waking up? Kazuma was still in a daze when a noise sounded from the next room. Ah! Heart-wrenching screams were mixed with the sound of blood splattering. Is this sound coming from the next room? Although Kazuma had watched a lot of special videos, he was not a fool. Who makes such a loud noise during their activities? At this moment, a cold mechanical voice sounded in his mind. Ding! Loading completed. Congratulations to the host for activating the mission selection system. Ding! The first mission selection has begun. Mission Option 1, as a transmigrator, you should be fearless. Fight hand-to-hand with the third-grade artificial cursed spirit that is about to break through the wall. Reward, 8 inner gates. Mission Option 2, use love to influence the upcoming cursed spirit. Reward, multiple shadow clone technique. Mission Option 3, look into the eyes of Gojo Satoru, who is about to arrive. Reward, Mangekyo Sharingan, Kamui. This information made Kazuma freeze in place for a moment. It seems that he has transmigrated to the world of Jujutsu Kaisen. Moreover, the noise next door was coming from an unfortunate person due to a cursed spirit. It would be his turn soon. Looking at the screen in front of him, Kazuma felt as if 1,000 horses were galloping in his heart. System, are you kidding me? You want me to kill a cursed spirit with my bare hands? The second one is even more outrageous. Use love to persuade. Can cursed spirits be persuaded by love? The first two were quickly rejected by Kazuma. Fortunately, there was a third option. It was a bit off-putting, but it was undoubtedly the best choice. And the reward, the Mangekyo Sharingan, was undoubtedly very good. Boom. 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 It seemed like someone behind the wall was hitting it with a huge hammer. The whole room was shaking. Kazuma's heartbeat quickened, and he retreated to the door handle. He stared at the wall. He was taking a gamble. 3 seconds. He just needs to survive for 3 seconds. If Gojo Satoru doesn't show up in 3 seconds, he will close the door and run. Life is precious, who knows whether Gojo Satoru will arrive in time. Kazuma didn't think he could defeat the cursed spirit with his bare hands. Even if Mike Tyson was here, he would have no chance, right? Boom. Under a tremendous force, the wall shattered and a hideous and distorted monster broke through the wall. This monster had the face of a human and the body of a worm. It had blood-red eyes. It pushed aside the rebel and came over. Its huge mouth secreted disgusting pus that dripped onto the floor. The wooden floor was corroded and pits of various sizes were formed. The stench was overwhelming and disgusting. Don't go, come and play with me, don't leave. The strange voices of several children superimposed together sounded, making Kazuma's scalp numb. The room opposite was in a mess, and a dead body was lying in a pool of blood. That person had been eaten to the point that she was now unrecognizable. But her eyes were still open. They showed the fear that she was feeling in her last few moments. Everything in front of him impacted Kazuma's heart. I'm sorry. You're so ugly that even dogs would shake their heads when seeing you. Just when Kazuma wanted to lock the door and run away. Crash. The window exploded and a tall figure broke in through the window. The visitor had long white hair, a confident smile on his lips, and a tall figure. He was wearing a simple black uniform. He was also holding a box of mochi in his hands. Sorry, I'm late. As he said that, Gojo Satoru instantly moved in front of the cursed spirit. He raised his hand and fired a shot, turning it into ashes in an instant. Kazuma was speechless. It seems like Gojo Satoru really loves sweets. After the danger was over, Kazuma returned to the room and glanced at Gojo Satoru. He was thinking about how to get Gojo Satoru to take off his blindfold. After all, how can he look at the 6 eyes or Gojo Satoru's eyes with the blindfold still on? Gojo Satoru raised his eyebrows, bent down, and looked at Kazuma. He said, You're special. In addition to being born with cursed energy, you also have an aura that I can't see through. Even his 6 eyes couldn't see through Kazuma. It was as if Kazuma was surrounded by a thick fog. Kazuma knew that Gojo Satoru was probably referring to his system when he mentioned that unfathomable aura. Although Gojo Satoru was very strong, it is impossible for him to see through the system. Gojo Satoru asked, Are you interested in becoming a sorcerer? The kind that beats up cursed spirits. You saw me do it just now. Faced with this sudden question, Kazuma's mouth curled up. It looks like has found an excuse to look at the 6 eyes. Kazuma asked, Sorcerer? What is that? And what was that monster just now? Kazuma tried hard to pretend that he knew nothing. Gojo Satoru held up a finger and said, Let's start with cursed spirits. Negative emotions such as bitterness, regret, shame, fear, etc. give rise to their appearance. Although Kazuma knew this a long time ago, he still listened calmly. After explaining, Gojo Satoru turned around with a smile and said, how about it? Are you interested? Although it's a little dangerous, food and accommodation are provided free of charge. Kazuma's mouth twitched. It's a little dangerous. If he remembers correctly, almost everyone had died in the later period. My grandma told me that a person can tell whether another person is telling the truth by looking into their eyes. Kazuma made something out of nothing, and said seriously. Gojo Satoru said, well, you can see my eyes but you have to follow me after that. Gojo Satoru himself knew that it was hard for others to not be suspicious of him with the blindfold. After some thought, Gojo Satoru took off the blindfold skillfully, revealing his pale blue pupils. Is this the six eyes? It's deep and mysterious. It seems like those eyes can see through everything. Kazuma seized the opportunity and looked Gojo Satoru in the eye. Suddenly, Gojo Satoru's cell phone rang. Ring. Ring. At this moment. Ding. Congratulations to the host for completing the mission, the Mangekyo Sharingan is being distributed. Comment. For comment. Vote. Chapter 2. As the system's voice faded, Kazuma felt a stinging pain in his eyes. Kazuma covered his eyes, and sat down on a chair. Sweat ran down his forehead. It hurts. It hurts so much. It felt like someone was sticking a scorching hot needle into his eyeball. But when Kazuma thought about how the Uchiha clansmen awaken the Sharingan, this felt like a breeze. Hey! What's wrong with you? Gojo Satoru quickly put the blindfold back on. He thought that staring at his six eyes for too long had hurt Kazuma. Kazuma closed his eyes tightly. While feeling both pain and joy, he waved at Gojo Satoru to indicate that he was fine. 5 minutes later. Kazuma came to the mirror and smiled with satisfaction. His originally black eyes had turned scarlet, and 3 tomos were slowly turning and spreading out, forming a beautiful Mangekyo pattern in an instant. It looked mysterious and unpredictable. Wait a minute. Isn't this the same pattern as Obito's Mangekyo? Kazuma looked around. The remaining cursed energy in the air and the dust scattered on the ground were all presented in extreme detail before his eyes. He looked at the cup of water on the table not far away and glared slightly. The center of the cup suddenly began to twist, and the entire cup disappeared. Is this Kamui? It's so powerful. With a thought, Kazuma opened the ability panel. Kamui, the left eye is mainly used for attack. It can distort space at the point of sight. The right eye is mainly used for defense. Actively using it allows one to suck themselves or external objects into the Kamui dimension. When attacked, the user's body will automatically transfer to the Kamui dimension and become immune to all damage. Note, there will be no side effects after upgrading to Eternal Mangekyo. If he uses his left eye well, he can easily kill someone by just distorting the space where their head is located. The power of the right eye greatly improves his survival ability and he can also perform many cool operations. For example, locking the enemy in the Kamui dimension and letting them starve to death. But he still has to work hard to advance to Eternal Mangekyo. He didn't want to go blind due to overusing his Mangekyo. Maybe it's because of transmigrating or something else, but he seems to be able to substitute chakra with cursed energy. This way, he can use both cursed techniques and ninjutsu. Wow! Is this your cursed technique? It's amazing. Gojo Satoru flashed to Kazuma's side and looked at him curiously. It looks like this time, he had found a treasure. Kazuma deactivated his Mangekyo Sharingan and his pupils returned to normal. He said, well, thanks to you, I just awakened. Gojo Satoru deeply stared at him and waved his hand. He nonchalantly said, it has nothing to do with me. His six eyes is indeed powerful, but helping others awaken their cursed technique is impossible. The only explanation is that Kazuma has a very high talent and is a natural-born sorcerer. Kazuma said, let's go, Gojo-sensei. Please take care of me in the future. Gojo Satoru said, oh, please take care of me as well, Kazuma. Seeing Kazuma agree, Gojo Satoru showed some joy. Nowadays, the number of cursed spirits has been rapidly increasing. In comparison, the number of sorcerers is extremely low. So, he was very happy to recruit a talented student. Looking at the hand on his shoulder, Kazuma thought, are we going to Tokyo Jujutsu High or? In the introduction just now, Gojo Satoru had mentioned the general information of the world of Jujutsu. But he still didn't know what time period he was in right now. Has Yuji already eaten Sukuna's finger? Gojo Satoru said, your senpai called just now and said he was in trouble. Let's go over there. Gojo Satoru grabbed Kazuma's clothes. Then, he jumped up, and quickly shuttled through the city. Kazuma felt the scene in front of him change rapidly. The wind howled, blowing his hair back, but he did not panic. After awakening the Mangekyo Sharingan, his physique and ocular power had made a qualitative leap. Although Gojo Satoru was moving very fast, he could still clearly see every building he passed by. Seeing that Kazuma was not at all panicked, Gojo Satoru raised the corners of his mouth slightly. This boy is not only gifted, but also has a stable mind. He may be able to reach Yuda's level. Is Tokyo Jujutsu High about to welcome a new special grade sorcerer? Feeling a little hungry, Kazuma held out his hand and said, Gojo-sensei, can you give me a piece of mochi? Gojo Satoru felt a pain in his heart and said, I'll only give you one piece. West High School. Crash. The sound of glass shattering was heard. Senpai. Are you all right? Yuji relied on his excellent physique to shatter the glass with a flying kick. He also repelled the huge cursed spirit. The student, who was on the verge of death, was still shaken. Megami shouted, Didn't I tell you not to come? Seeing that Yuji had actually faced a cursed spirit, Megami was dumbfounded. This reckless man. Megami gritted his teeth and ran at full speed down the corridor while making a sign with his hands. Divine dogs. Go save them. Following his command, 2 Shikigamis condensed by cursed energy emerged from the black shadows. The 2 dogs, one black and one white, rushed towards the ugly cursed spirit. After putting down the student in his arms, Yuji looked forward in surprise and said, "Is this the cursed spirit that Megami mentioned? It's a little different from what I had imagined." Boom. Megami attacked, smashing the cursed spirit into pieces. The 2 divine dogs' eyes shined, and they immediately rushed forward to share the food. Megami put his hands in his pockets and said calmly, "I wanted to ask you why you came. You did a good job, but aren't you afraid? This should be the first time Yuji has seen a cursed spirit, so he should be scared." Yuji said, "I was quite scared at first, but my grandfather's death taught me one thing. At least, I want to let the people I know have a proper death." Yuji felt sad as he looked at the dark red dried finger sliding off the student's body. The cloth strip that had sealed it had been removed. If I hadn't brought this finger back, this wouldn't have happened. Senpai wouldn't have been hurt. This happened because of me. Megami said, "Okay, don't blame yourself too much, their lives are not in danger. This is a special grade cursed object, Raiman Sukuna's finger. Hurry and give it to me. If it falls into the hands of a cursed spirit, the consequences will be disastrous." Megami reached out for it. Although he didn't know what was so delicious about this finger, Yuji still handed it over. At this moment, a black vortex suddenly appeared on the ceiling, and a huge hand stretched out. Its target was the finger in Yuji's palm. Megami's pupils contracted, and the 2 divine dogs also noticed it and roared. "Run!" Boom. A huge cursed spirit fell. Its body was made up of countless cursed spirit corpses, resembling a giant lizard. The aura it exuded was much stronger than the previous cursed spirits. Yuji was blown away by the impact, and Megami was slapped away and fell on the second-floor platform. The blow was so powerful that the building almost collapsed and the power was cut off. Megami spat out a mouthful of blood and was unable to stand up for a while, let alone use his cursed technique. The cursed spirit rushed forward at a high speed, trying to devour him. At the critical moment, Yuji jumped up. He rode on the cursed spirit, raised his fist and smashed it hard. Megami raised his head with difficulty and said, "Cursed spirits can only be eliminated with cursed energy, you can't defeat it. Go." But Yuji didn't care about Megami's words. If he really leaves, Megami will surely die. Itadori didn't want that to happen. But the gap in strength between Yuji and the cursed spirit was obvious. After a while, Yuji was tightly held by the giant hand. The cursed spirit opened its bloody mouth and the stench made Yuji dizzy. His internal organs were squeezed. Blood was oozing from the corners of Yuji's mouth, and he felt severe pain. He held Sukuna's finger to his lips, and Megami's words resounded in his mind. "Will eating it give him cursed energy? Isn't this the way to save everyone?" Yuji shouted, "I just need to have cursed energy, right?" Megami shouted, "No." Yuji ruthlessly swallowed the finger in one gulp. "It's over." Megami fell to his knees in despair and put his hands on his head. Outside the school, Kazuma thought, "Is this the place where Yuji eats Sukuna's finger?" It was pitch black, and nothing inside could be seen. At this time, the voice of the system sounded in his mind. A new mission choice has begun. Mission Option 1, with the power of Kamui in hand, the world is mine. Use the power of Kamui to make Sukuna's mentality shake. Reward, 8 inner gates. Mission Option 2, transform into a cheerleader and cheer for Gojo Satoru. Reward, Naruto's talk no jutsu. Mission Option 3, while Gojo Satoru fights Sukuna, eat up all of his machas. Reward, Tsunade's black stockings. Long-term mission, the higher-ups of the Jujutsu Society are corrupt. Refuse to work for them. Create the Akatsuki and invite sorcerers to join it. Progress, 0/3 people. Reward, Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. Comment. For comment. Vote. Chapter 3. This system is a bit. First, let's rule out the third option. He just ate one piece of mochi. It was too sweet. And Tsunade's black stockings are, certainly good. But who can resist the 8 inner gates? Kazuma had already made a choice in mind. There's actually a long-term mission? Akatsuki? He was familiar with this. The most popular villain organization in Naruto. Moreover, the reward is the Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. It seems that he will have to slowly poach people after joining Jujutsu High. Would Gojo Satoru be angry if he knew that he was poaching sorcerers? Wait a minute. Why not just find a way to poach Gojo Satoru? Kazuma shook his head. He had to complete the mission and obtain the 8 inner gates first. Let's go in, Gojo-sensei. Yuji had fainted, but Sukuna, the king of curses from 1,000 years ago, had woken up. Sukuna only used a little force to tear the cursed spirit's arm into pieces. Black lines appeared on Yuji's face and arms. That finger is mine, give it back to me. The huge body of the cursed spirit crawled over frantically, determined to devour the person in front of it. Tisk, you noisy bastard. Sukuna turned one of his hands into a claw and swiped at the air, tearing the huge body of the cursed spirit into pieces. The cursed spirit's flesh and blood were cut into countless pieces, and purple blood fell like rain. With just one strike, Sukuna instantly killed a grade 1 cursed spirit that had put Megami in a desperate situation. Ha 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 ha. The moonlight is best experienced in person. Sukuna tore his clothes, and looked up to the sky. He laughed, letting the moonlight shine on his crazy face. He stretched out his arms and said, "Is this the world 1,000 years later? I smell countless fascinating scents." Thousands of years ago, during the golden era of Jujutsu, countless sorcerers had attacked him, but all of them had failed and become piles of bones under his feet. It's over now. Megami looked at Sukuna with a complicated expression. Sukuna glanced at Megami with the small eyes on his face and said, "Now, it's your turn." Just when Sukuna was about to take action. Bang! Yuji slapped himself in the face and said, "What the hell? This is my body. Hey? You can actually. Damn it. I have only been outside for a while." Sukuna's voice echoed inside his body. 2 seconds later. The evil aura disappeared, and the eyes on Yuji's face retracted. Yuji asked, "Hey. Megami, what are you doing?" Megami half crouched on the ground, forming some sign with his hands. He said, "Sorry, according to the rules, I must eliminate you." At this moment, Gojo Satoru said, "What's going on?" Kazuma and Gojo Satoru suddenly appeared beside him. Megami was delighted and said, "Gojo-sensei, you are finally here." Who is this person next to you?" Gojo Satoru replied, "Kazuma, a new genius sorcerer. How is he? Is he as handsome as me?" Looking at the blood-covered Megami in front of him, Kazuma smiled and greeted him. Megami is just as he remembers, a serious and proud man with black spiky hair and a kind heart. Kazuma planned to leave a good impression on Megami. After all, he is a prospective member of the Akatsuki. Gojo Satoru looked at Yuji, who was shirtless and looked confused. He asked, "Where's Sukuna's finger? Is it still here?" Yuji said, Sorry, I ate it." After Megami's explanation, Gojo Satoru not only did not panic but instead showed excitement. "So Megami, do you want him to die?" Gojo Satoru smiled and looked at Megami. Megami hesitated and shook his head. He said, "No, I don't want him to die." Gojo Satoru asked again, "What about you, Kazuma?" "No." Kazuma pretended to think and continued, "But, can you let me and Sukuna fight for a while? You can just treat it as a freshman exam, how about it?" Hearing Kazuma's words, everyone was stunned. Megami immediately stopped him and said, "How could that be possible? Even if Sukuna has only eaten one finger, he is still a special grade curse. How can a newbie face such a risk? That's crazy." Gojo Satoru looked at Kazuma and said, "If you're not careful, you'll die." "Are you sure?" At this time, Kazuma had already started doing warm-up exercises. He said, "Aren't you here, Gojo-sensei?" "Ah ha ha ha. Interesting." Gojo Satoru smiled and held up 10 fingers. He said, "10 moves. If you can survive 10 moves from Sukuna, you'll pass." Megami exclaimed, "What? Gojo-sensei, how can a rookie last 10 moves against a special grade?" This new guy being crazy wasn't unexpected, but why was Gojo-sensei also having such crazy thoughts alongside him? Gojo Satoru waved his hands casually and said, Yeah. Don't worry. I'm here to watch over him, nothing will happen." For him, saving Kazuma from one finger Sukuna, was as easy as eating a pie. He also wanted to see what kind of cursed technique Kazuma had awakened that made him so confident. But no matter what, it is unlikely that Kazuma will survive 10 moves. So, he will have to watch carefully. He can't let a genius die just like that. Kazuma stepped forward and said, "Then Yuji, let Sukuna come out." Kazuma activated the Mangekyo Sharingan, and his black pupils turned scarlet. Kazuma has the passive ability of Kamui, so he was sure that he would not be in any danger. As long as he doesn't take the initiative to attack, Sukuna won't even be able to touch him. At this moment, Kazuma was a little excited. After all, this was his first battle and it was even against Sukuna. Yuji lowered his head and said nothing. After a moment, a violent aura emanated. Black lines condensed on his face, and small eyes reappeared. Sukuna said, "Haha, are all sorcerers from this age so arrogant?" Gojo Satoru said, "Oh how scary, the king of curses is angry." Megami looked at Kazuma with great worry. Sukuna twisted his neck and said, "I'll kill all of you." Then he moved in front of Kazuma, and his sharp black claws reached out to dig out Kazuma's heart. Kazuma didn't move, allowing Sukuna to approach him. Damn it! An untrained sorcerer can't possibly dodge Sukuna's attack. Megami clenched his fists and said, "Gojo-sensei, why don't you rescue him? It will be too late if you delay any longer." Gojo Satoru frowned and thought, is it because of lack of training that he can't react in time? Just when he was about to help, Kazuma took the initiative to step forward, and Sukuna's attack actually went straight through his body. What? Sukuna looked in disbelief at the sharp claws that had pierced through Kazuma's body. His attack actually penetrated his body. It was as if this guy was an illusory projection. Megami's eyes widened. Straight through? What kind of cursed technique is this? No. There is no fluctuation of cursed energy at all. Does that mean Kazuma didn't use any cursed technique at all? But how is that possible? Gojo Satoru pulled down half of his blindfold, and stared at Kazuma's scarlet pupils with one eye. If he is not mistaken, the distorted fluctuations in the air just now were caused by those eyes, right? What kind of cursed technique do these eyes have? Gojo Satoru felt as if he was trapped in a deep quagmire. It was as if countless bloody hands were trying to pull him into an endless abyss. Gojo Satoru's 6 eyes felt threatened for the first time. He pulled up his blindfold, and the corners of his mouth curved up. He said, "Amazing. As expected of my student." Swish. Strong winds blew up. Gravel flew everywhere, and the solid ground was almost split in half. Sukuna launched an overwhelming attack towards Kazuma. "What? Is that all you can do?" Kazuma stood where he was, allowing Sukuna to attack him however he wanted. At the same time, he did not forget to mock him. After all, the system's mission was to shake Sukuna's mentality. Sukuna, who was a little tired of fighting, stepped back and tried to suppress the anger in his heart. As the king of curses, he was actually being mocked. "Is this cursed technique related to space? I can't attack you, but why aren't you attacking me? You don't dare? Or, you have no means of attack at all? Ha ha ha." Sukuna roughly guessed Kazuma's ability. From the beginning to the end, the guy in front him had not launched an attack. Even when he had just deliberately exposed a flaw, Kazuma remained indifferent. Kazuma raised his eyebrows slightly. Hearing what Sukuna had said, he remembered the space distortion of his left eye. The corners of his mouth slightly curved. No means of attack? The Mangekyo pattern in Kazuma's left eye rotated, and focused on Sukuna's head. Comment. 1 comment. Vote. Chapter 4. Kazuma ran his hands through his hair. The Mangekyo pattern in his left eye rotated, and focused on Sukuna's head. Kamui. A strange vortex appeared at the place where Sukuna's head was located. Sukuna felt strong sense of danger. His pupils shrank sharply, and he dodged at a high speed. Snap. Sukuna's arm was cut off. He covered his arm that was bleeding, and looked at Kazuma with a little fear. He felt a chill run down his spine. This guy twisted space to cut off his body? If he hadn't dodged in time, the head of this vessel would have been twisted off. What a terrifying curse technique. It seems to be more powerful than his own cleave and dismantle. Sukuna used the reverse curse technique to make his arm grow back. Megami swallowed his saliva, with a look of horror in his eyes. Isn't this too outrageous? He actually destroyed his arm. Gojo-sensei, who exactly is Kazuma? Megami looked at Gojo Satoru seriously. He didn't believe that Kazuma was just a novice sorcerer. Putting aside Kazuma's abilities, his calmness when facing Sukuna for the first time was intriguing. Gojo Satoru's heart was also very shaken, but it was not because of Kazuma's ability. It was because Yuji's head was almost. If Sukuna hadn't dodged in time, Yuji would have died. As for Kazuma's identity, he didn't care about Kazuma's background as he was sure that Kazuma had no malicious intent. Kazuma covered his left eye while pretending to be in pain. The cost of using the ability of his right eye was very small, but the side effect of using the left eye was quite serious. After only one use, his left eye had become a little dry. As for why he was acting like he was in so much pain? Of course, he was pretending for Sukuna. He knew from reading the manga that Sukuna was extremely good at planning. Wasn't the duel with Gojo Satoru the best proof of this? Seeing this, Sukuna smiled and said, "I see. Performing such a weird attack causes a great backlash, right? If you launch another attack, will you become blind? It seems that if they continue to fight, he will win." Just now, his state of mind was actually shaken a little. If this guy could continue to use that move, it would be a great threat to him. Fortunately, he can't. Kazuma didn't speak, because... Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission, 8 inner gates is being distributed. Kazuma's lips curled. 8 inner gates is the unique skill of Might Guy in Naruto. After opening the 8th gate, the gate of death, Guy could cause space distortion just by physical attacks. As the system prompt sounded, all the information about 8 inner gates flooded into Kazuma's mind. A warm current flowed through his body. Feeling the power surging in his body, Kazuma felt that he could blow up the previous cursed spirit's head with just one punch. Opening gate, open. Gate of rest, open. Kazuma's body trembled, and he opened the 2nd gate. The air around him surged, making his clothes rustle. The air around his body was boiling as the gate of rest was opened. In this state, Kazuma's strength and speed had been greatly improved. With one step, Kazuma crushed the ground, and flashed behind Sukuna. He sent Sukuna flying into the air with an uppercut. So fast. While Sukuna was still confused in the air, a black shoe appeared before his eyes. Bang! Sukuna's body fell to the ground like a cannonball. Kazuma can only open up to the 2nd gate at present. Going any higher will hurt his body. However, it is enough to deal with Sukuna at his current stage. Sukuna, who had climbed out of the deep pit, laughed. He said, "Interesting. Really interesting. I didn't expect that the world 1,000 years later would be much more exciting than before." He pointed at Kazuma and said, "I'll remember you and look forward to our next fight." After saying this, his body fell down helplessly. Yuji took control of his body again. However, Yuji fainted at this time. Megami, who was watching the battle from a distance, didn't know what to say. Sukuna, who could easily kill a grade 1 cursed spirit in 1 second, was beaten up by a rookie sorcerer who wasn't even grade 4. Although that was only one finger Sukuna, he was still very strong. If it were him, would he be able to last 10 moves? Where did Gojo-sensei find such a ruthless person? Gojo Satoru put his hand on Kazuma's shoulder and said, "Wow. Kazuma, you are so mean. You actually have such a hidden trick up your sleeve. If the spatial ability just now was Kazuma's innate curse technique, then what about this physical skill? It would be impossible to achieve this level without constant training. Maybe Kazuma didn't need him to save him before. From this perspective, Kazuma's identity is indeed worth exploring. Kazuma looked at the two helplessly. He knew that he couldn't clearly explain anything, so he just didn't bother to explain. Let them figure it out themselves. Megami carried the unconscious Yuji, and prepared to take a bus back to Tokyo Jujutsu High. Before leaving, Kazuma used his Kamui to mark the coordinates of this place. Using Kamui, he can travel freely regardless of distance, but the prerequisite is to have coordinates. Kazuma did not forget that he still had a mission to create the Akatsuki. This place might be used as the base of the Akatsuki in the future. With the coordinates, he can teleport back and forth. On the bus, Kazuma leaned against the window, admiring the moonlight. The moon in this world is also round, and it seems even brighter. At this moment, he felt like he was dreaming. He had actually transmigrated. But there is nothing worth missing from his previous world. Being an orphan without a father or mother, coupled with the 12-hour double shift work on the assembly line every day, his dream of being a hero had long been crushed. Now that he has been given this opportunity, he must make the most of this life. The tragedy in the manga will never happen in his presence. He will make sure of it. But the premise of all this is strength. He must become so strong that no one can threaten him. After all, this world is extremely dangerous. Even someone as strong as Gojo Satoru died. Therefore, he should not let down his guard just because he has Kamui. Perhaps even if the system had not issued the mission of creating the Akatsuki, he would have taken the initiative to form a force later. After all, those old and corrupt people in the upper echelons of Jujutsu society are not worthy of trust. Now, he has obtained the power of double Kamui and 8 inner gates. Judging from the battle just now, the left eye's ability is best used to catch the enemy by surprise. His left eye's ability has some shortcomings. If the distance is too far, it is impossible to focus accurately. This can be seen from the fact that Kakashi destroyed Deidara's arm in Naruto. Kakashi's original intention was to kill Deidara instantly by twisting his head with Kamui, but he made a misjudgment due to the long distance. Moreover, the attack is not instantaneous, which means there is a chance for the enemy to react. As for the 8 inner gates, due to his physical limitations, he can only open the second gate for now. In the anime, opening the gate of death basically means certain death. Thinking of this, Kazuma suddenly stood up and thought of something. If he can learn reverse curse technique, will he be able to open the 8 inner gates without any damage? Can the healing brought about by positive energy repair or even neutralize the damage caused by the gate of death? Right now, the most important thing was to go to Jujutsu High and poach some talents. He has to recruit at least 3 people to get the reward. If he remembered correctly, the eternal Mangekyo Sharingan has many powerful abilities, such as the perfect Susanoo. And through the emergence of the previous mission choices, he had come to a conclusion. Participating in events or interacting with sorcerers increases the probability of triggering mission choices. Comment. 3. Comment. Vote. Chapter 5. Suburbs of Tokyo. Toko Jujutsu High is located in a sparsely populated mountain area. Yuji had already handled his grandfather's funeral, and Gojo Satoru had personally saved Yuji. Yuji's punishment of death penalty was changed from immediate execution to a suspended sentence. Yuji looked around curiously and said, "Is this really a Jujutsu High school? Why does it look like a deep forest?" Gojo Satoru replied, "Just get used to it. After all, how can a place for Jujutsu be built in the center of a city?" Yuji then turned his attention to Kazuma and said, "Kazuma is really amazing. He was able to suppress Sukuna the entire time." Kazuma patted Yuji on the shoulder. Back then, Kazuma had almost forgotten that Sukuna was occupying Yuji's body. If Sukuna hadn't dodged, Yuji would have. Kazuma glanced at Yuji's previously missing arm. Luckily, Sukuna had used the reverse curse technique to help him recover. Yuji asked in confusion, "By the way, where is Megami?" Gojo Satoru held his head in his hands and smiled. "He has internal injuries and is receiving treatment. He should be sleeping soundly now." Then, he looked at Kazuma and Yuji, giving them the rundown on the school. After a general talk, the group had arrived in front of a retro courtyard gate. There were large characters engraved on it, "Tokyo Metropolitan Curse Technical College." Gojo Satoru said, "Anyway, you two must behave well later. If the principal is not satisfied, he may refuse your admission to the school." Hearing this, Yuji held his head and screamed, "I might be rejected. If so, I'll be executed immediately." Gojo Satoru said, "Don't be afraid. The principal is a very kind person." Soon, the 3 of them entered a large courtyard room. The light inside the house was dim, as oni candles were used on both sides for illumination. The entire house was filled with dolls with strange expressions. "Too slow, Satoru. You're 8 minutes late." A voice rang out. Yuji was taken aback. He saw a tough old man sitting cross-legged in front of him, his hands busy knitting a doll. A serious-looking uncle was actually making a cute doll? Aren't his actions and appearance too inconsistent? Kazuma looked around calmly. He knew that these dolls piled everywhere were not ordinary dolls. Instead, they were cursed corpses made by Yagamasamichi himself. These dolls should not be underestimated. The next step is probably torturing Yuji. Yaga looked at Kazuma with some surprise, and then continued to speak to Gojo Satoru, "I won't reprimand you, but you have to change your habit of being late. Gojo Satoru placed his hand on Kazuma's shoulder, looking like he was enjoying a good show. He said, let me introduce him to you. This is our great principal Yagamasamichi. His hobby is knitting some sexy dolls. If you have any needs in that area, you can contact him privately for customization. Gojo Satoru joked in a mean way. Yagamasamichi gritted his teeth and said, stop it, I am the principal. Don't you have any dignity? He then slowly stood up, and walked forward. He looked deeply at Kazuma, and then set his sights on Yuji. He said, you are Sukuna's vessel? You're a hidden bomb. Yuji bowed quickly and said nervously, it's me. Sorry to bother you. Yagamasamichi asked, what are you doing here? Yuji said, interview. Yagamasamichi asked again, I asked you, what is your purpose in coming to Tokyo Jujutsu High? Yuji looked confused, then answered truthfully from his heart. Gojo Satoru shook his head helplessly. HR spread his hands toward Kazuma, and complained, hey. It starts again. Kazuma was currently looking around for a doll. He finally locked his gaze onto a pink doll with twin ponytails. Kamui. The space twisted, and the doll was silently sucked into the Kamui dimension. Since he was bored now, he might as well find a doll to hug when he sleeps at night. Ahem. Gojo Satoru pointed somewhere and whispered in his ear, I want the one with a tuft of hair on the forehead. Looking at the direction of Gojo Satoru's finger, Kazuma was stunned. Why did this hairstyle look so similar to Geto Suguru's? Kazuma sucked the doll into the Kamui dimension, fulfilling Gojo Satoru's request. Bang. Yuji was knocked away by the doll. Yaga tortured Yuji while preaching some great truths. These words might be long-winded to others, but they were absolutely meaningful to Yuji. It was at this moment that Yuji realized his inner self. His expression changed for a moment, then he said loudly with a firm look in his eyes, only I can swallow Sukuna's finger. Even if I can avoid the death penalty and escape this mission, when I go back to eat, take a shower, or something else, someone may die tragically because of Sukuna and cursed spirits at any time. How can I be at peace? I don't want that. Yagamasamichi stopped and said, very good, you passed. Kazuma couldn't help but sigh. What a responsible and kind person. But he is not as noble as Yuji. He just wants to become stronger and protect the people he cares about. What does the life and death of others have to do with him? It's your turn, freshman. Gojo Satoru must have seen something special to bring you here, right? Let me see it for myself. Yagamasamichi turned his gaze toward Kazuma. Wait. Gojo Satoru quickly ran up and said, I advise you not to fight him. You will regret it. Yagamasamichi raised his eyebrows and said, do you think I can't even beat a freshman? Although he, Yagamasamichi, is not a monster like Gojo Satoru, he is still the principal of Tokyo Jujutsu High. Panda is his proudest achievement. With Panda, he could even barely squeeze into the ranks of top grade 1 sorcerers. Even without Panda, he could control hundreds of cursed corpses at the same time. He is a certified grade 1 sorcerer. Gojo Satoru was telling him that he couldn't handle a new sorcerer. Hey, I've already warned you. After trying in vain, Gojo Satoru flashed in front of Kazuma and pointed at his eyes. He whispered, don't be too harsh. Kazuma nodded. He certainly wouldn't use Kamui to attack Yagamasamichi. Although this principal is a bit old-fashioned and strict, there is absolutely nothing wrong with him as a person, and he even deserves admiration. The only thing Kazuma wanted to complain about was that he was too righteous, and his death was a bit depressing. Yagamasamichi seriously said, so, why did you come to Tokyo Jujutsu High? For what? Of course, it's to poach people. Not only the ones in Tokyo, but also those in Kyoto cannot be spared. But Kazuma can't really say that. So, he looked at Yagamasamichi and asked, didn't Gojo-sensei say that food and lodging would be provided? As soon as these words came out, the nearby people were stunned at the same time. Gojo Satoru gave Kazuma a crazy look. Hey. Can you not be so blunt? I'm in a difficult situation. Yuji's mouth was so wide open that it seemed like an entire apple could fit in it. As expected of Kazuma. He actually dared to say that. If it were me, I would probably be severely beaten. But if it's Kazuma, any answer would be fine, right? After all, he is very strong and cannot be viewed from the perspective of a freshman. He wondered who was stronger, Kazuma or the principal. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 6. Free food and accommodation. Did you come here just for free food and accommodation? Yagamasamichi was completely furious. His face turned bright red with anger. The hundreds of dolls in the house instantly surrounded Kazuma. As a sorcerer, this kid's so unaware. He must teach him a lesson. If, after the lesson, he still can't get a satisfactory answer, then he won't accept this guy's admission. Even if Kazuma has some talent, it doesn't matter. Jujutsu High is not a place to fool around. Meanwhile, outside the courtyard, several figures quietly approached the door. They were the second-year students of Tokyo Jujutsu High. Panda, Inumaki, and Zenonmaki. The genius freshman that Mei Mei mentioned must be in there receiving a lecture from the principal. Panda muttered, pressing his round body close to the door. Keep it down, or you'll get punished if he hears you. Maki warned. She crossed her arms. A slight frown appeared on her cold, beautiful face as she looked serious. Just earlier, when they had visited Mei Mei, they had learned that Gojo Satoru had brought in 2 new students. One was Yuji, who had swallowed Sukuna's finger, and the other was Kazuma, who was incredibly strong. Maki had come here specifically to see this new guy, Kazuma, because Megami had said that Kazuma's physical skills were better than her own. Naturally, she wanted to see it for herself and maybe even compete with him. Inumaki waved from a distance and said, "Salmon." Panda casually responded, "It's fine, Inumaki. We won't get discovered by the principal." As soon as he said that, bang! The door suddenly exploded. The powerful impact caught the 3 off guard, sending them flying. The entire house shook violently, as if it were about to collapse at any moment. Gojo Satoru and Yuji also stumbled back, looking at the 3 lying on the ground in surprise. Panda said, "What happened? Isn't the principal just interviewing the new students?" Maki and Inumaki also glanced at Gojo Satoru curiously. Gojo Satoru smiled helplessly and said, "Don't worry, the principal is just sparring with him. Competing with a freshman. Is this massive commotion really just because of a competition? It's obvious that the principal is angry." Yuji, who was still a bit dazed, forced a smile and said, "My name's Itadori Yuji, nice to meet you, please take care of me, hehe." The 3 of them were stunned. Since Itadori was there, the one inside must be Kazuma, right? Panda asked in shock, "Wait. Gojo-sensei, are you really not going to do something?" Although he didn't know how Kazuma had angered the principal, it was clear that Principal Yaga was serious. What if Kazuma gets seriously hurt? After all, Yaga Masamichi was the one who had created him. Calling them father and son wouldn't be an exaggeration. And Panda knew Yaga's temper all too well. If there isn't a satisfactory answer, he might. Gojo Satoru looked into the room, deep in thought. He said, "It's not certain who will beat whom." As soon as these words were out, everyone's eyes widened in shock. What? Did they hear that right? Although they had heard that Kazuma was very powerful, was he strong enough to compete with Principal Yaga? Isn't that an exaggeration? Even the genius Yuta had been beaten by the principal a lot, right? Obviously, Gojo Satoru's words didn't convince them. Boom. 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 The sound of fists and feet colliding reverberated in the air. The windows shattered, the beams cracked, and the roof almost tore off. Dust filled the air. Maki and the others quietly thought to themselves. Judging by the sound, it was clearly a physical battle. Although Principal Yaga specialized in cursed corpse production, and his physical abilities weren't particularly remarkable, he still wasn't someone a freshman could easily challenge. They guessed that it wouldn't be long before Kazuma could no longer hold on. Boom. The house collapsed. A figure flew backward and smashed heavily against the wall. Gojo Satoru raised an eyebrow and sighed, "Why so stubborn? If you can't win, just admit defeat. It's not shameful. Now look, you've destroyed the house." Panda said, "Yeah, this new guy's pretty stubborn, but I like him." Maki and Inumaki assumed that Gojo Satoru was referring to Kazuma. They thought it was amazing that Kazuma had lasted this long. Suddenly. Whoosh. 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 Amid the smoke and dust, cursed dolls kept flying backward, covering the ground in debris. 10, 20, hundreds. Soon, the courtyard was filled with them. As they watched the cursed dolls with missing limbs crash to the ground, the group gasped. These were Yaga's dolls? They had all been beaten by these in the past. But now, they were being sent flying. Had Kazuma done all this? Could it be that the figure who had flown backward was Yaga Masamichi? 2 minutes later. 2 figures appeared. They were Kazuma and Yaga Masamichi. They walked out arm in arm, while Yaga Masamichi was laughing and praising Kazuma non-stop. Anyone who didn't know better would think they were brothers who had reunited after many years. But a closer look revealed that Yaga Masamichi had a black eye, his clothes were a mess, and his steps were unsteady. Meanwhile, Kazuma was smiling and breathing steadily, showing no signs of injury. It was clear who was stronger. The group was speechless, and unsure how to react. Just a while ago, they were worried that Kazuma would be severely injured. In the end, the one who got beaten was the principal. Ahem. Yaga Masamichi looked at everyone and said, "Let me introduce him to you. This is our new student at Tokyo Jujutsu High, Kazuma. We just had a friendly exchange. It's true that young people are formidable. Let's get along well from now on." Kazuma looked at the 3 people who half appeared in front of him and immediately recognized them. "Aren't these Maki, Inumaki, and Panda?" He smiled and said, "Please take care of me in the future, senpais." The 3 waved in unison and said, "Hello." "Hello, Kazuma." They had originally planned to show off in front of the freshmen, but now they had given up. If they really fought, they'd probably be the ones to suffer. While the group was talking, Yaga Masamichi pulled Gojo Satoru aside. He asked, "Why didn't you explain clearly earlier? Did you want to see me get beaten?" Looking at the broken dolls on the ground, he felt both pain and regret. After all these years, this was the first time he had been so humiliated. He had actually been beaten by a freshman. This is truly embarrassing. Pfft. Gojo Satoru couldn't help but laugh. He spread his hands and said, "Don't blame me. I had already warned you." But Gojo Satoru himself hadn't expected Kazuma to actually pull this off. It seemed that Kazuma's talent might even surpass Yuta's. He is such a great teacher with an extraordinary vision. Gojo Satoru said, "All right, I'm taking Yuji and Kazuma to get settled. Let's talk later." Before leaving, Maki clenched her fists and looked at Kazuma intently. Next time, she will have a proper exchange with him. At least in terms of physical skills, she couldn't lose. This scene was clearly noticed by Kazuma. Kazuma's lips curled up slightly. He already had an idea for the first candidate for the Akatsuki. Maki is cold on the outside but warm on the inside. She has a strong personality and was born with zero cursed energy, was looked down upon by the Zenin clan. Her greatest obsession was to become a grade 1 sorcerer and slap the Zenin clan right across the face. He could start with her. What are you daydreaming about? Go and check out the dorms. Gojo Satoru urged. On the way, Yuji quickly turned into a little fanboy. Kazuma, can I live next to you? Kazuma. Can you teach me some martial arts? Kazuma. How did you beat up that uncle earlier? Yagamasa-michi, who was about to return to the house, staggered and nearly fell when he heard Yuji. Hiss. This young man really has no sense of propriety. He didn't hold back. But to be honest, Kazuma had given him a chance and held back. Looking at Kazuma's retreating figure, he fell deep in thought. Where did this kid come from? Besides that weird curse technique that makes him immune to attacks, even his martial arts is superb. Could he be a genius from one of the 3 great sorcerer clans? He shook his head. For now, he had to deal with the issue of Sukuna's vessel, Yuji. The pressure from the higher UPS was too much. Even if Gojo Satoru was here, those old men might still try something. As for Kazuma's identity, he'd have to have Shiko and Yuta him investigate. Comment. For comment. Vote. Chapter 7. A few days later. Shibuya, Harajuku Station. This is the symbol of Tokyo's fashion, where commerce, entertainment, and transportation are the most developed. It is also a paradise for young people. The streets are full of glamorous young men and women. Outside the subway station, 3 people were leaning against the iron railings with some boredom. Yuji held a popsicle in his hand and looked at Kazuma. He asked, including this person, there are only 4 sorcerers in the 1st grade. Isn't that too few? After saying that, he took a sip of the mint popsicle. Megami remained aloof and said, there are only a few sorcerers, just get used to it. It would be strange if the streets were full of sorcerers. Kazuma, who was standing next to them, had dark circles under his eyes and looked listless, almost falling asleep while standing. That's right. He has been suffering from insomnia for the past several days. Alas, this is the problem of being too used to his bed. He naturally knew who they were going to pick up this time. Girl of Steel, Kujisaki Nobara. Yuji sighed and said, as expected of Kazuma. He can even fall asleep while standing. Is this part of the reason for his strength? Megami patted Yuji's head and said, you are hopeless. Kazuma must have suffered a lot in private to be so powerful. He thought that Kazuma was so sleepy because he must have secretly stayed up late to practice. He is so diligent, I must learn from him. The people passing by all looked at the 3 people with strange eyes, but fortunately, they didn't care about them at all. Sorry for the wait. Gojo Satoru walked out of the subway exit, holding a few boxes of desserts in his hands. Oh, looks like you've got your custom-made school uniforms. Not bad, it looks pretty cool. Yuji asked, the size is right, but why are everyone's uniforms different? Yuji was a little confused. Especially himself, the color of his uniform was different, and there was even a red hat on the back. Kazuma's clothes were even more different. His sleeves were loose, and there were strange clouds embroidered on them. This was Kazuma's special request. His clothes were very similar to the Akatsuki's in Naruto, and the loose sleeves could hide a lot of things. For example, hidden weapons such as kunao. Gojo Satoru smiled and said, actually, you can make requests. Hey? Yuji touched his head and said, but I don't think I made any request. Gojo Satoru squeezed in between the others and said with a grin, I was the one who suggested this. What do you think? Isn't it very cool? It even suits your hair color. Yuji nodded thoughtfully. It does match well, but, he thought Kazuma's clothes were better looking. In the past few days, although he didn't learn any methods to become stronger from Kazuma, he heard many stories about martial arts. He learned from Kazuma that it was a story about an ancient eastern country, and it seemed that Kazuma had also come from there. Gojo Satoru squeezed Kazuma's shoulder and said, Hi, Kazuma, this is your student ID. Kazuma took the card, which contained relevant information about him. He said, a freshman, a grade 4 sorcerer. Gojo Satoru explained, with your strength, you can even be a grade 1 sorcerer, but you have just entered school. If you want to be promoted, you need to take an assessment. By the way, the higher the level, the higher the reward for each mission completed. Kazuma nodded. For him, there was no difference between being a grade 4 sorcerer and a grade 1 sorcerer. If he could become a teacher, it would be more advantageous for him to poach people. In the past few days, he had left marks everywhere in the school to facilitate teleportation at any time. At this time, a bald scout was looking for passers-by on the street who had the potential to become a star. A beautiful and well-shaped young lady passing by, and the bald scout immediately approached her to chat. This scene was seen by Nobara, who had just gotten off the subway. Her eyes lit up and she quickened her pace and walked up. The talent scout greeted the girl politely, rubbed his hands and smiled. HR asked, Miss, you have great qualifications. Are you interested in becoming a star? The young lady waved her hands impatiently to refuse, saying that she was not interested in being a star. The entertainment industry is always in chaos no matter which country it is from. Hey! Don't leave in such a hurry. How about being a model? You have great potential. Sorry, I'm in a hurry. After being ruthlessly rejected, the talent scout sighed. At this moment, a powerful female voice came over. Hey, uncle, what do you think of me? The one who had spoken was Nobara. The talent scout just took a look at her and shook his head politely. Although Nobara was very good looking, her temperament was obviously not befitting of a star. Moreover, there seemed to be a sense of dominance in her words, giving others an invisible sense of oppression. It's better to get rid of her quickly. Well, I'm in a hurry too. After saying that, the scout turned around and ran away. Hello. Nobara was speechless. She wondered, what the hell? Am I really that scary? Seeing this scene, Kazuma found it a little funny. She is indeed girl of steel. She turned out to be more domineering than he had imagined. But she also seems to be prettier. She is a short-haired, heroic beauty. Yuji said, Is she the person we are picking up? I'm a bit socially anxious, so you should say hello to her later, Megami. Megami glanced at Yuji with disdain. Yuji? Socially awkward? In fact, Yuji is actually awkwardly social. At this time, Gojo Satoru waved and shouted, Hey over here. Nobara turned her head and saw 4 men leaning against the iron railing in front of her. All of them had their hands in their pockets, and were in various postures. A tall white-haired man wearing a blindfold was waving at her. The corner of her mouth twitched. Why did it feel like these people were posing? Did they think they were a boy band? Yuji said enthusiastically, My name is Itadori Yuji, I'm from Sendai, please take care of me. My name is Fushiguro Megami. After saying that, Fushiguro Megami turned his head away, looking very cool. Hello, Kazuma. At this moment, Kazuma was thinking about how to recruit her into the Akatsuki. Nobara put one hand on her waist. She tucked her short orange hair behind her ear, and narrowed her beautiful eyes. This guy in the red hat is actually holding an empty popsicle in his hand. He must have eaten his own boogers when he was a kid, right? Fushiguro Megami? Does he think he's cool? The last guy is pretty handsome and pleasing to the eye, but what's with those eye-catching dark circles? With just a glance, she had already given scores to several people. She held her forehead with one hand and sighed, I'm in such a mess. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little subtle, Gojo Satoru coughed lightly and said, Welcome, Nobara. Our loving family of Jujutsu has one more member. Let's have a good time in Tokyo. The school will pay for all the expenses. When they heard that they could go sightseeing in Tokyo, Nobara and Yuji suddenly became like little kids, spinning in circles happily. Megami looked like he had lost all hope in life. The day passed quickly and the sun was setting. Evening. Roppongi. Kazuma and the others were outside a building that was shrouded in black air and filled with cursed energy. Gojo Satoru said, The area around here has been sealed off. No one else will come in. You can go ahead and do whatever you want. Ah. Is there a curse here? Yuji, who was still immersed in playing, looked confused. Nobara was somewhat speechless and said, No way. There's actually a rookie in this group. Yuji looked up and immediately understood. Gojo Satoru smiled and explained, Yuji's situation is a bit special. Officially speaking, this is his first time taking the test, just like you. Nobara asked, What about Kazuma? He should be a rookie as well, right? Nobara looked at Kazuma. To be precise, Kazuma is also a rookie, but he cannot be viewed with ordinary eyes. Just as Gojo Satoru finished speaking, his phone rang. After answering the call, his face looked slightly gloomy. He said, I'm sorry, I can't accompany you. A special grade cursed spirit is suspected to have appeared in Tokyo. No one in the entire hospital survived. He turned his gaze towards Kazuma and said in a serious tone, Listen carefully, after entering this building, all of you must obey Kazuma's command. Then he leaned closer and whispered, This is mainly a test for Nobara and Yuji. Please don't take action unless it is necessary. Please, Kazuma-kun. I'll treat you to mochi later. After leaving these words, he disappeared on the spot. In Gojo Satoru's heart, Kazuma was no longer just a student, but a powerful sorcerer who could stand on his own. Ding. Trigger mission choice. Mission option 1, refuse Gojo Satoru's instructions. Kill all the cursed spirits quickly, then go back to the dormitory to sleep. Reward, a random B-rank ninjutsu. Mission option 2, before going upstairs to kill cursed spirits, forcefully kiss Nobara. Reward, A-rank cursed tool, demon slaying sword. Mission option 3, accept Gojo Satoru's instructions and kill the hidden powerful cursed spirit alone. Reward, unlock the system store. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 8. After a little thought, Kazuma chose the third mission. As for missing the chance to learn a B-rank ninjutsu, maybe he can buy better ninjutsus after from the system store. As for the demon slaying sword, forcefully kissing Nobara was no different from trying to die. In fact, it's just that the reward for this mission choice wasn't enough. If it was enough to impress him, he. What? He actually asked us to listen to Kazuma, when he is also a rookie. Nobara said somewhat unconvinced. Yuji and Megami had no objection at all. After all, they had seen how powerful Kazuma was. After choosing the mission, Kazuma frowned. According to the original plot, there should be no special cursed spirit appearing at this time. However, he immediately remembered one thing. In this world, balance is maintained to a certain extent. For example, the birth of Gojo Satoru broke the balance, causing the cursed spirits to become increasingly powerful in recent years. It's like a balance scale. Could it be that his appearance had once again broken the balance of this scale? Kazuma swept his eyes across the building filled. In this case, there might be more than just one grade 2 cursed spirit inside. Nobara said, "What's wrong, dear Kazuma-sensei? If you are scared, just hide behind me. I will protect you." Nobara put her hands on Kazuma's shoulders, acting like a big sister. Kazuma was not to be outdone and said, "Dear student Nobara, remember to follow my steps closely. Don't be scared and cry." Nobara blushed and said, Who is your student?" Kazuma said, "Megami, your injuries have not healed yet. Stay here." Megami said, "But..." Kazuma interrupted, "It's okay. We can handle it." Inside the building, it was pitch black. The three walked together in the corridor filled with garbage and stench. All the doors and windows were locked, causing the footsteps of the three people to echo continuously. Nobara walked in front with a somewhat depressed look on her face. It's so annoying. On her first day in Tokyo, she has to deal with disgusting cursed spirits, and she even got made fun of. It's so embarrassing. Kazuma said suddenly, "Yuji, move left and squat." Ah. Although he was a bit confused, Yuji still did as he was told and squatted down. Nobara was a little confused and said, "What's going on? Why are you suddenly?" Before she could finish her words. Bang. The wall exploded instantly, and a tentacle shot out. The tentacle was exactly where Yuji was just now. This cursed spirit was very cunning. After its attack failed, it immediately retracted its tentacles and disappeared without a trace. Yuji was sweating profusely. If this attack had hit him, he would have been pierced. Yuji said, "Kazuma, thank you for the reminder." Nobara stared at Kazuma curiously and asked, How did you predict that?" Now, she seemed to understand why Gojo Satoru wanted them to obey Kazuma's command. She had not been able to detect the crisis just now. Damn it. This feeling of not being in control is so annoying, she must become stronger. Kazuma, who was well prepared, had activated his Mangekyo Sharingan the moment he had come in. As expected, the entire building was filled with traces of cursed energy. Such a large scale was definitely not something that a mere grade 2 cursed spirit could leave behind. Suddenly, a strong wave of cursed energy came from the other side of the wall. This is obviously a sign of an attack. This was the meticulous observation power of the Sharingan. Nothing could escape these eyes. Keep going and find this cunning cursed spirit. Then, Kazuma said with a wicked smile, "For safety reasons, student Nobara, please stay close to teacher." This time, Nobara didn't say anything. She just pouted her lips in dissatisfaction and came towards Kazuma in a depressed mood. Although she was very angry, she knew the importance of the matter. Seeing the usually tough Nobara acting like this, Kazuma's lips curled up slightly. Kazuma and the others came to the second floor. A cursed spirit that looked like a praying mantis with bulging eyes was guarding the stairs. When it saw them breaking in, it instantly went berserk and its eyes almost popped out. Intruders. Kill. Kill them all. Kazuma took a step back. There was no need for him to take action against this weak cursed spirit. Swish. At the critical moment, Yuji swung his knife and cut off the tail of the cursed spirit. The weapon in his hand was the cursed tool that Gojo Satoru had lent him before. Hey! Ugly thing, look over here. Nobara came around to the side, holding 3 nails with cursed energy in her hands, and she hammered them. Bang! The cursed spirit struggled for a few times before exploding into a bloody mist. Yuji said, "Amazing. 3 nails easily killed the cursed spirit." Nobara put one hand on her waist and raised her chin, feeling proud. She said, "How about it, would you consider becoming my little brother?" After saying that, she did not forget to raise her eyebrows at Kazuma, as if to say, "I am not a weak woman, don't look down on me." Sure enough, she is still a wild woman who never gives in. At this moment, a sudden sound of a child crying was heard. Judging from the sound, it was from the 3rd floor. At the same time, disgusting green slime kept dripping from the ceiling. Roar, roar, roar. 4 or 5 huge cursed spirits were hanging upside down from the ceiling like geckos. "You two, take care of these cursed spirits first. I'll go save the child up there." After saying that, Nobara ran towards the 3rd floor. Kazuma encouraged, "Yuji, it's time to hone your skills. You can crush them." Yuji said, "I'll not let you down, Kazuma." Yuji's body slightly hunched, and he looked ahead with determined eyes. Ha! Yuji roared and charged into the group of cursed spirits. These were all just small cursed spirits. After dealing with them, Kazuma planned to immediately teleport to the 3rd floor. This building was likely hiding a first-grade curse, or even a special-grade curse. Nobara might be in danger. 3rd floor. In an empty room, there were several corpses of cursed spirits with holes pierced in their chests lying on the ground. Nobara successfully rescued the child, but was surrounded by several cursed spirits. She was panting heavily and had been cornered by them. Damn it! These curses are obviously much stronger than the one on the 2nd floor. Can she really handle them? However, if she doesn't defeat these curses, she and the child who had fainted beside her will surely die. There are at least 4 or 5 curses on the 2nd floor. It is impossible for Kazuma and Yuji to finish them off so quickly. The iron gate was clearly in front of her, but she felt it was far away. The curse had already blocked her way out of the room. Does she have to fight alone? Soon, a curse squirmed and pounced on her. She swung her hammer with all her might, piercing the body of the curse. Then she gritted her teeth, squeezed out her remaining strength, and shot out 3 nails. But she was exhausted. The speed and accuracy of the nails had dropped significantly. So, the curses that were besieging her easily dodged them. It's over. Is she going to die at the hands of a curse? I still have a lot of things to do, and I don't even know what love feels like. Most importantly, I haven't met Sayori yet. Nobara had a dazed look on her face, and many scenes appeared before her eyes. She saw the thing that had left the deepest impression on her mind. Sayori's beautiful figure left her, and tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. Just then. Whoosh. The air rippled, and Kazuma descended along with a vortex. Comment. 1 comment. Vote. Chapter 9. Kazuma's figure slowly emerged from the whirlpool. Kazuma said, "It looks like you've run into some serious trouble." Kazuma patted Nobara's cheek and calmly said, "Don't think about Sayori. Deal with the cursed spirit in front of you first." It was obvious that Nobara was in an illusory world just now. In the world of Jujutsu Kaisen, every character has some sort of hallucination in their final moments. Luckily, Kazuma had arrived in time. Nobara wiped away the tears from her eyes and looked at Kazuma in disbelief. She asked, How did you get in?" The door in front was still locked and there was no sign of the window being opened. Could it be that he had appeared out of thin air? Looking at the figure standing in front of her, Nobara felt safe. Wait a moment. How did this annoying guy know that she was thinking about Sayori? Could it be that he knows Sayori? At this time, several cursed spirits pounced on Kazuma at the same time. The Mangekyo Sharingan pattern in Kazuma's left eye rotated, and emitted a dazzling red light. The space around a cursed spirit's head was twisted. Along with the space, the cursed spirit's entire head was torn apart by an irresistible force. Blood splattered all over the ground. Thump. A headless body fell down. Nobara's eyes widened in shock. What kind of cursed technique is this? Insta-kill? What happened just now? The cursed spirit's head was separated in the blink of an eye. Opening gate, open. To deal with these cursed spirits, there was no need for Kazuma to open the second gate. Kazuma snatched the hammer in Nobara's hand and charged into the cursed spirits with a sly grin. Nobara said, "Hey! My hammer! Be careful! There are 5 cursed spirits on the opposite side. Will Kazuma be okay if he just rushes in like this? He is even more impulsive than her." Nobara, who was a little worried at first, stopped her train of thoughts in the next second. She saw a layer of blood-red cursed energy cover the surface of the hammer. Kazuma's body moved swiftly. The wind whistled, and he easily killed the cursed spirits that had forced her into a desperate situation. Wow, so awesome! Nobara hadn't expected that her hammer could be used like this. Killing 1 cursed spirit with 1 hammer strike? No. Just now Kazuma seemed to have killed 2 with 1 hammer strike. Soon, as the last cursed spirit's head exploded, the room fell into deathly silence. Kazuma took out 2 tissues and considerately wiped the blood off the surface of the hammer. Kazuma said, "Here. This hammer is quite convenient." Nobara took her hammer in a daze. She said, "You are really just a freshman. Is this really the work of just a rookie?" With the ability Kazuma had just shown, even being a teacher would be acceptable, right? Could it be that Kazuma likes to hide his strength and act low-key? Inside the room, Nobara held her chin and circled around Kazuma, looking at him carefully. Kazuma was speechless and took out his student ID card from his pocket. Kazuma said, "Look carefully, I am a first-year student at the Tokyo Jujutsu High. I am a genuine 4th-grade sorcerer." Nobara leaned over and looked at Kazuma for a long time before becoming sure that Kazuma had not lied to her. But after confirming his identity, she became even more shocked. What a monster! He is only a 4th-grade sorcerer, but he easily killed so many 2nd-grade cursed spirits. Humph! She suddenly put her hands on her hips and frowned. She pushed Kazuma into a corner and looked at him closely. She asked, "Tell me. How do you know about Sayori?" She has never mentioned Sayori to anyone, and Sayori doesn't have any male friends in her knowledge. Nobara and Kazuma's faces were only 20 centimeters apart. The breath of both parties hit each other's faces. Kazuma's brain was running at a high speed. Damn it! He had just come to this world a few days ago. He was already being pushed against the wall by Nobara. Fortunately, Kazuma could make up excuses without thinking. Kazuma slightly smiled and pointed to his eyes. He said, "I can see your past and future." Is this true? Nobara fixed her gaze on Kazuma's scarlet pupils. For a moment, she felt her heart pound, and feelings of fear, foreboding, and grief surged into her heart. She covered her chest and took several steps back. Nobara was sweating profusely and had difficulty breathing. Just looking at Kazuma's eyes for a second made her feel as if she was falling into an endless abyss. Such scary eyes. It seemed like a was devil hiding inside those eyes. Nobara asked, "Are you telling the truth? Then, what about my future?" Nobara bit her red lips. From the moment she had decided to become a sorcerer, she had never thought of having a good ending. She just wondered if she could meet Sayori. Kazuma knew that the opportunity to poach Nobara into the Akatsuki had come. Just now, he had actually used a little bit of genjutsu. During the past few days, he had gradually mastered the unique genjutsu of the Sharingan. Although it was not as good as attackist Tsukuyomi, it was already good enough. Moreover, Kazuma believed that his pair of Mangekyo Sharingan still had many functions waiting to be developed. He walked forward slowly and said, "Your future is not very good. You couldn't meet Sayori. That's enough." Nobara covered her ears tightly, not wanting to listen anymore. Kazuma knew about Sayori. It seems that his eyes really have the ability to predict the future. But she didn't dare to listen anymore. In fact, Kazuma had not lied. The endings of the sorcerers in Jujutsu Kaisen were not very good, and Nobara was no exception. She was unable to meet Sayori in the end. T/N, the MC died during the Yuta, Gojo, vs Sukuna, Megami, part, so in his mind, Nobara had died. Looking at Nobara's changing expression, Kazuma said, "I can predict the future, so I can also change fate, but..." This time, it was Kazuma's turn to force her into a corner. Seeing Kazuma staring at her with ill intentions, Nobara blushed and asked, "You, what do you want to do?" "I will not give in for an illusory future." Kazuma's mouth twitched. "Is he that kind of person?" Kazuma lifted her chin and said, "Join the Akatsuki and I will change your fate." Akatsuki. Nobara was puzzled. She had never heard of Akatsuki. Akatsuki also means dawn. It is a great and righteous organization that fights against cursed spirits, protects the people. It maintains world peace with selfless dedication. Kazuma put his hands behind his back, looked up at the sky, and said passionately. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 10. After a round of questioning, Nobara stared at Kazuma in surprise. Is he as righteous and selfless as he says? Kazuma said, "So, what's your decision? You know, the price of changing one's fate is very high. I might even go blind. And you don't have to do anything. The mission only stated having people join the Akatsuki, and there were no other requirements. But at the very least, the members must join willingly, otherwise it will definitely not count." This is also the reason why he did not use genjutsu to control Nobara's mind. Nobara fell into deep thought. Does this count as betraying Jujutsu High? Probably not, right? After all, Kazuma had said that she didn't need to leave the school. She just had to hold the orders of the Akatsuki in higher priority. This annoying guy, isn't he afraid that she will spill the beans to the school? But, when she thought about her unsatisfactory future, and not being able to meet Sayori. Damn it. He actually got me. Kazuma smiled and held out his hand. He said, "Welcome to the Akatsuki. Your future will be bright." A few seconds later. Snap. Nobara held Kazuma's palm. Now, the Akatsuki has one more person. The mission to establish the Akatsuki has finally taken a big step forward. The eternal Mangekyo Sharingan seemed to be waving to him. Nobara asked, "How many people are there in the Akatsuki?" Kazuma awkwardly held up 2 fingers and said, "For now, it's just you and me." Nobara said, "Tisk. So you were a lone commander before this? I thought the Akatsuki was some grand organization when I had heard the name." Kazuma said, "There will be more members in the future, and you will be a veteran." Bang. At this time, Yuji kicked open the iron door. The atmosphere became silent awkward. Yuji looked at Nobara and Kazuma, who were pretty close, and became flustered. He awkwardly said, Sorry to bother you." He gasped and immediately slammed the door shut. At this moment, Nobara and Kazuma realized that their postures were somewhat ambiguous. Before Nobara could kick him, Kazuma gracefully moved away to avoid the attack. After a long while, Yuji came in with an awkward smile. He said, he. As expected of Kazuma, he even impressed someone as tough as Nobara. Before Yuji could finish his words, he was kicked away by Nobara. Yuji touched his numb butt and stood up with difficulty. He said, "Let's go, the cursed spirits here should be cleared up." Nobara picked up the fainted child in her hands and prepared to leave. Kazuma said, "Leave? I'm afraid it won't be that easy." As soon as Kazuma finished speaking, the whole building began to shake violently. The turbulence was no less than a major earthquake. Through the Sharingan, Kazuma could see that the cursed energy in the air was getting thicker and thicker, and it was beginning to riot. Haha, special grade. He looked at Yuji and Nobara and said, "A special grade is not something you can handle. Take the child and jump out of the window immediately." Yuji looked shocked and said, "But what will you do if we leave?" "Let's go, we'll just hold him back." Nobara glanced deeply at Kazuma, who had a calm expression. She said, "My future is in your hands, don't die here." Yuji became even more confused. Wait. Isn't this progress too fast? It's only been a short while since they have met each other, and Nobara is already entrusting her future to Kazuma? Crash. Following Nobara, Yuji climbed out the window. Yuji threw the cursed tool in his hand and said, "Take this. Be careful." Yuji looked at Kazuma deeply and jumped down. The whole building began to shake violently. Spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the walls, huge concrete boulders kept falling from overhead, and the entire room was falling apart. Kazuma looked down at his feet with a smile on his face, letting the gravel submerge him. At this moment, he was no longer in this dimension and was naturally not affected. At the same time, downstairs. What's going on? Megami hurriedly stood up and looked at the 2 people that had fallen out of the window. He asked, "Where is Kazuma?" Yuji looked up worriedly and said, "He said there's a special grade cursed spirit hiding inside, and told us to run first." Megami exclaimed, what? Special grade cursed spirit. Megami looked horrified. What on earth was going on? Didn't Gojo Satoru say before that the situation here was just right for them to handle? How could they deal with this special grade cursed spirit? Boom. The entire building collapsed in an instant and turned into ruins. The three retreated quickly. A gigantic worm opened its mouth and swallowed the entire building. The terrifying pressure made it difficult for the trio to breathe. The worm was nearly 100 meters long, with pale human faces growing on both sides of its head. Its back was covered with countless tentacles. Kazuma. The three shouted at the same time. Nobara tightly grasped the hammer in her hand. Kazuma, don't die. I won't help you clean up the mess of the Akatsuki. Megami said, Yuji. Contact the school and ask for help. Divine dogs. Megami summoned 2 divine dogs to his side. Kazuma was indeed very strong, but now that he and the entire building had been swallowed up, it would probably be difficult for him to escape. Kazuma's safety might be in jeopardy. This is bad. By the time the support arrives, Kazuma might not be alive anymore. Just when everyone felt powerless, a vortex appeared out of nowhere on a tilted billboard, and Kazuma stepped firmly on it. Looking at the 3 people standing there in a daze, he said, you should stay away. After all, this is a special grade cursed spirit. As his voice fell, the 3 turned their heads suddenly and looked. Kazuma? When did he appear on the billboard? Stay away. Kazuma looked at the huge cursed spirit in front of him and sneered. Was this the one that had launched the sneak attack on the first floor before? Why would a guy this big launch a sneak attack? Right now, it must be angry after seeing all its subordinates being killed, right? If he kills it, the system's mission will be accomplished. Don't be impulsive, Kazuma. To be safe, let's wait for the support. They should be here soon. Judging from the previous confrontation with Sukuna, Kazuma's strength should be comparable to that of a first-grade sorcerer. Logically speaking, a first-grade sorcerer can contend with a special-grade cursed spirit. But Kazuma is a freshman, and lacks experience. Without Gojo Satoru present, the risk is still too great. Waiting for the support to arrive and then attacking together would be the best course of action. Kazuma's eyes darkened slightly when he heard these words. As expected of the usually calm Megami, he actually chose to call for help immediately. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 11. But waiting for support was not a good thing for him. To complete the mission, he has to deal with this cursed spirit alone. If it's a group fight, then he probably won't get the reward, right? So, he has to kill this special head cursed spirit before help arrives. A first-grade sorcerer can compete against a special-grade cursed spirit. So, this is a good opportunity to see what stage he is at. Nobara anxiously said, idiot. Stop trying to be a hero. The huge body of the cursed spirit blew away the fences and cars on the ground. Its target was Kazuma. As a special-grade cursed spirit, it could see that this human was the only threat to it. After killing him, it wouldn't have to worry. At the same time, its tail began to wriggle, and white silk instantly blocked the entire area. Larvae continued to emerge from the ground and rushed towards Yuji and the other 2. The whole area was blocked. Megami made hand seals and shouted, Max Elephant. A pink elephant fell from the sky. Bang. The ground shook violently, and this powerful blow killed many of the surrounding curse larvae. To deal with such a large number of cursed spirits, Max Elephant was undoubtedly the best choice. Nobara's eyes were sharp, and she hammered a steel needle, piercing the row of larvae in front of her. Resonance. Following her loud shout, the hammer engraved with a pink heart hit the straw doll in her left hand. The larvae that were hit by the nails instantly exploded into a bloody mist. Yuji, who had not yet learned Black Flash, could only fight the cursed larvae with hand-to-hand combat. Damn it! There's no way to kill all these larvae, let alone help Kazuma. Kazuma, don't get into any trouble. The 3 of them looked up at Kazuma who was standing still, feeling extremely worried. They could only hope that help would come soon. Roar. The special-grade cursed spirit opened its mouth wide enough to swallow an entire building and rushed towards Kazuma, while countless tentacles from its back shot straight at Kazuma. Boom. The billboard was instantly crushed into powder by the overwhelming tentacles. The ground collapsed because it could not bear the huge body. Every attack of the special-grade cursed spirit had tremendous power. However, all the attacks went straight through Kazuma's body without causing any damage. Kazuma jumped up and came above the cursed spirit. He used the cursed tool in his hand to draw a shocking scar on its body. Sizzle. Green blood spurted dozens of meters. Opening gate, open. Red energy and blood surged throughout Kazuma's body. His long hair moved even in the absence of billowing wind, and the blood vessels on his forehead bulged. With his greatly increased strength and speed, he stepped on the back of the cursed spirit, swinging the knife-like cursed tool in his hand at a high speed. His terrifying hand speed that was honed through years of training was fully reflected at this moment. Kazuma cut off all the tentacles on the back of the cursed spirit like he was just cutting a normal fruit. Among special-grade cursed spirits, the larger ones are often easier to deal with compared to smaller ones. This cursed spirit must have devoured a lot of humans and has probably just entered special grade. Meanwhile, Nobara and the others became stunned when they saw Kazuma's actions. This is a lie, isn't it? Kazuma is so brave? He actually stepped on the back of a special grade cursed spirit and slashed it. Also, isn't Kazuma's sword swinging speed too fast? It's almost like an afterimage. Even with just his physical skills, Kazuma can probably squeeze into the ranks of first-grade sorcerers. Is this his true strength? The three were dumbfounded at this moment. They were all first-year students, so why was there such a big gap between them? No, it's not that they are weak. It's just that Kazuma is abnormally strong. Unforgivable. The special grade cursed spirit was completely enraged. Its tail stopped releasing larvae and after a while, it condensed into a head. The heads at both ends attacked Kazuma at the same time at an extremely fast speed. Attack from both sides. Kazuma, be careful. Behind you. Mei Mei shouted a warning. Bang. The two ends collided fiercely, and a huge shockwave blew the three people to the ground. Kazuma. Nobara's pupils were bloodshot as she screamed. From their viewpoint, Kazuma had not avoided the pincer attack. That was almost a full-strength attack from a special grade cursed spirit. Even thick steel would be crushed, let alone Kazuma's physical body. The special grade cursed spirit seemed to be unsatisfied and struck violently several times again. Squash. Squash into meat patties and feed it to the dogs, he. I'm sorry to disappoint you. A cold voice sounded in the cursed spirit, sent ears. Not dead yet. The human faces responsible for speaking on both sides of the cursed spirit's head asked in confusion. In the sky, a pitch-black crow was hovering, and no one had noticed its presence. At the same time, near Kazuma's battle site, Ijishi was driving a black car at a fast speed. The car was going very fast, but the people in the car weren't terrified. What a pity, I'm afraid it's more dangerous than safe. A mature voice broke the stiff atmosphere. Mei Mei was wrapped in a black windbreaker, which could not hide her graceful curves. She crossed her legs lazily, and her pale blue hair covered half of her pretty face. Just now, she had seen the battle situation of Kazuma and the others clearly through the crow's shared vision. Nanami said, you mean, all the students in the first grade have met with an accident? Nanami wiped his glasses, his anger barely concealed in his calm tone. Mei Mei slowly closed her eyes and said, the genius that Yaga mentioned has met with an accident, but we may be able to arrive in time to save the others. Whether it was through Yagamasamika's oral narration or the vision shared by Crow just now, it was an eye-opener for her. The new guy named Kazuma is indeed incredibly talented. Ah. It's a pity. He's such a handsome little brother. Ijishi, who was driving in front, broke out in a cold sweat after hearing this. This time, Yaga had specifically instructed that Kazuma and others must be rescued. It could be seen that Yaga cared about this freshman named Kazuma the most. If Mei Mei says that Kazuma has met with an accident, how furious will Yaga be? Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 12. How could two special grade cursed spirits appear at the same time out of nowhere? If Gojo Satoru hadn't been sent away, how could Kazuma and the others have been in danger? What's the difference between letting freshmen fight against special grade cursed spirits and sending them to their deaths? Ijishi-san, hurry up, so I can quickly get the principal's money after saving them. Yes. Mei Mei-san. Ijishi stepped on the accelerator, and the car turned into black lightning, running on the road. Just as Yuji and his companions were grieving, a figure appeared in front of them. Kazuma. With his appearance, Yuji, Nobara and the special grade cursed spirits all became stunned. Yuji rubbed his eyes and said, am I seeing things right? Kazuma is actually fine. After such a violent collision, Kazuma was completely unharmed. Moreover, he had a smile on his face, a playful expression. Even his clothes were not damaged at all. It was as if the attack just now had no effect on him at all. Nobara lowered her head and said nothing. Her hair was disheveled, and her expression was unrecognizable, but her trembling red lips revealed her uneasy mood at the moment. This damn bastard. Why does he always like to make people worry? Impossible. How come you're fine? The cursed spirit roared in disbelief. With Kazuma's Kamui, he certainly wouldn't receive any harm at all. Long before, with the observation ability of the Sharingan, he had anticipated the attack from behind. So, at that moment, he had stopped attacking. As long as he doesn't attack, everything will pass through his body. On the contrary, if he attacks, his body will become solid. Once he is in the Kamui dimension, even an attack from all sides can't do anything to him. However, there is a counter to his Kamui. It is an attack that lasts for 5 minutes. Although Kamui is powerful, it also has its limits. Under a continuous attack that exceeds 5 minutes, his Kamui will reach its limit. The cursed spirit, who didn't believe what it was seeing once again attacked Kazuma. Let's stop playing house here. While he was in the Kamui dimension just now, Kazuma had already discovered the weakness of this special grade cursed spirit. Facing the bloody mouth, Kazuma looked at the middle of its body with his left eye and focused. The space twisted and vortex ripples appeared within the cursed spirit's body. Bang! With a muffled sound, a bloody hole appeared. The huge body of the cursed spirit suddenly froze, and then it twitched wildly. Kazuma's figure flashed, and he instantly came to the bloody hole. He pulled out his hand and dug something out. A caterpillar with a human face that was the size of a fist was tightly held in his hand. Kazuma's large hands were like an iron clamp, making it impossible for the caterpillar to break free no matter how hard it struggled. Let me go, sly sorcerer. The human-faced caterpillar was terrified. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. How did he find out that I was hiding here? Even if he had made a guess, shouldn't he have gone for the head? Kazuma laughed while looking at the fist-sized cursed spirit in front of him. He hadn't expected such a small thing to be hiding under the huge appearance. It was like it was just driving a mecha. The driver was forcibly pulled out and the huge body of the cursed spirit stopped moving. Kazuma kept increasing the strength in his hands. The cursed spirit's pale face turned red. Its eyeballs bulged as if they were about to explode. The moment it was caught by Kazuma, it was doomed to die. No, let me go. I was once a human being, with old parents and children. I was forcibly transformed into this. I will never eat humans again. Please spare my life. The cursed spirit burst into tears and actually started begging for mercy. Kazuma was puzzled. Can all top-level cursed spirits speak so fluently? They can even play the emotional card? Kazuma said, haha, I was a little moved by what you just said, but, how can I get the reward if I don't kill you? Kazuma suddenly tightened his right hand. Crack. First, the sound of bones breaking was heard, and then the entire head was instantly crushed. Kazuma threw the headless corpse away, and the huge cursed spirit shell under his feet expanded rapidly like a balloon. He warned the two below, damn it. This thing is going to explode, stay away. Oh. Yuji and the others were dazed, and retreated sluggishly. They hadn't come to their senses yet, and Kazuma had already killed the special grade cursed spirit? How did he know that the real body of the cursed spirit was hidden in the body? Suddenly, someone tapped Mei Mei on the shoulder. Mei Mei said, Nanami-sensei, Mei Mei-sensei, you are here. Yuji and Nobara looked curiously at the man and woman behind them. Nanami said calmly, well, although I hate working overtime, if my students are in trouble, as a teacher, I have some sense of responsibility. Mei Mei held a giant axe in her hand and took enchanting steps, twisting her hips exaggeratedly while walking. With every step, the light blue braid in front of her face swung. Da-da-da. The high heels made an elegant and crisp sound when hitting the ground. Nanami, why are you still standing there? Go get the principal's money after the fight. Nanami slapped his forehead with his hand. Was Mei Mei doing this to save the students or for the money? You guys, stay here. If Kazuma's body is still intact, I will bring it back. After hearing this, Yuji and the other two all looked puzzled. Hey? Kazuma's body? Did the teachers misunderstand something? Yuji quickly explained, that Kazuma seems to be fine, and you guys better not go over there for now, the cursed spirit is about to explode. Nobara and Megami also nodded in unison and pointed at the cursed spirit that was growing larger and larger. Mei Mei and Nanami stopped at the same time and looked at the huge cursed spirit in front of them. You mean? Mei Mei quickly guessed a possibility, and she prepared to share the view of the crows in the sky again. However, the body of the cursed spirit had already expanded to an extreme size. Bang! A deafening explosion sounded, and a torrential downpour of blood drowned everyone. Several people quickly formed a barrier. Comment. One comment. Vote. Chapter 13. Mei Mei and Nanami gasped and stood there like statues. The special grade cursed spirit was killed? Combined with what Yuji had just said, they looked at each other in shock. This means that Kazuma not only did not die, but also killed this special grade cursed spirit? Although they had heard from Yaga that Kazuma was very strong, they had never expected him to be this amazing. Even as first grade sorcerers, they were not completely sure they could kill a special grade cursed spirit. Mei Mei's eyes flickered and said, what an amazing baptism of blood and rain. Just now, her crow was unfortunately killed in the explosion, but at the last moment, she saw a pair of scarlet eyes. What kind of eyes were those? They could actually detect her crows. After the explosion, a vortex appeared behind Yuji, and Kazuma came behind him silently without a single stain of blood on his body. I'll give this back to you. Kazuma's calm voice sounded behind him. Everyone turned around in surprise, and Yuji was even more frightened. Wow! Kazuma, why do you appear and disappear so often? Yuji took the cursed tool, touched his frightened little heart, and complained. In addition, the others looked at Kazuma, as if they wanted to thoroughly see him from the inside out. Kazuma felt uncomfortable with everyone's stares and waved. He said, hello, teachers. Mei Mei took back the huge axe on her shoulder, moved it in front of her, and looked at Kazuma. The corners of her mouth curved slightly as she looked at him with interest. This kid's pupils have turned black again? He actually gave her a warning just now, interesting. How many secrets does he hide? Kazuma leaned back. He had just noticed the crows in the sky and subconsciously glared at them. He didn't expect it was Mei Mei's. Looking at her blue braid that covered half of her face, Kazuma had the urge to lift it up. He wondered what Mei Mei would look like with twin ponytails. Nanami calmed down and said, okay, Mei Mei, be careful, he is still a student. After saying that, he looked at Kazuma deeply again. Kazuma's breath was steady, and his total amount of cursed energy was not comparable to Gojo Satoru or Yuta, but this was exactly what shocked him. In other words, Kazuma did not spend much effort in the battle with this special grade cursed spirit. Moreover, he could clearly see that Kazuma had no wounds on his body, not even a drop of blood. If it were him, could he do the same as him? Nanami shook his head and immediately denied it. He didn't need to dwell on it. Everyone's curse techniques and fighting styles were different. There was no need to worry about whether his clothes were stained with blood or not. But when he thought that the other party was just a new student, he couldn't calm down. It is true that the new generation pushes the old generation forward. Before, Gojo Satoru had suddenly appeared, and now there is another freak like Kazuma who killed a special grade cursed spirit just a few days after entering school. What a monster. Nanami patted Kazuma on the shoulder and said, you did a good job. Not only did you protect your teammates, but you also eliminated the special grade cursed spirit. If possible, ask Mei Mei to assess you next time. You are more than capable enough. Mei Mei tilted her head and blinked. She said, if you pay the right amount, you can pass. Nanami was speechless. He said, hey. Pay attention to the situation. There are so many people watching. Kazuma nodded and said he would consider it. Sure enough, Mei Mei always talks about money. In that case, can he just use money to recruit her into Akatsuki? Kazuma immediately denied it, thinking it was not realistic and he didn't have Yuki money on him. Ijishi hurriedly came from a distance and waved to everyone. Excitement could be seen on his face. Great. Kazuma is not dead. This way, the principal won't be angry. He has to call the principal right away to tell him the good news. At the same time, in Tokyo Jujutsu High, the atmosphere in the principal's office was serious. Gojo Satoru, who had just returned and learned about the situation, leaned against the wall without saying a word. He had an unusually serious expression. Two special grade cursed spirits had appeared almost at the same time. It seemed like this was someone's plan. He had a rough estimate of Kazuma's strength. Even if Kazuma lacked combat experience, he could still protect himself. What he was most worried about were Yuji and the other two. If the special grade cursed spirit attacks them, it would be difficult for Kazuma to save the three while protecting himself. He was negligent. Kazuma is just a student. Even a first-grade sorcerer would not be able to take care of this situation. The worst-case scenario is that Sukuna emerges again, which would be a huge problem. In addition to Gojo Satoru, there were several instructors sitting around the table, namely Shiko and Yuta. Yaga was out answering a phone call. Shiko had short brown hair, light smoky makeup, and a pure white medical gown that highlighted her slender and perfect figure. Huff. She blew out a puff of smoke and said softly, don't blame yourself. No one could have predicted that two special grade cursed spirits would appear at the same time. Yuta, who was wearing a red and white shrine maiden costume, consoled him, the principal just went out to answer a phone call. Maybe it's good news? And Mei Mei and Nanami are also on their way to rescue. Bang. The door was suddenly pushed open. Yaga pushed the door open with a laugh. The gloom on his face had disappeared, replaced by joy. Good news, Nanami and the others have met Kazuma and his friends, they are all safe. When Yaga said this, everyone immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Gojo Satoru shrugged slightly, with a smile on his face. Besides, Nanami and the others didn't even get involved. Kazuma killed the special grade cursed spirit all by himself. Yaga raised his chin proudly, as if he had done it himself. What? Shiko and Yuta straightened their bodies, showing shock. That freshman Kazuma killed a special grade cursed spirit all by himself? The corners of Gojo Satoru's mouth curled up even more and he said, hee, as expected of my favorite student. Principal, didn't you say Kazuma was the new student that Gojo Satoru just brought back? A fourth grade sorcerer exorcised a special grade cursed spirit. The two women looked at Yaga in disbelief. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 14. Yaga said, you may not know this yet, but you can't treat Kazuma as a normal freshman. He pointed to the black marks on his body that had not yet completely disappeared and said, see, this wound on my face was caused by Kazuma. Yaga raised his face proudly, his tone full of pride. This time, Shiko and Yuta were even more shocked. Especially Shiko, the cigarette in the corner of her mouth almost fell off. Did they really hear it right? Kazuma beat up the principal? No wonder Yaga had black and swollen eyes these days. It turned out that he was beaten up by someone. But out of consideration for his feelings, others didn't dare to ask. After all, they were not the fearless Gojo Satoru. But this freshman named Kazuma is really surprising. Yaga's strength was obvious to all. The cursed corpses he had created were very powerful. However, even under such circumstances, Kazuma still beat him up. It's only been a few days, and he has killed a special grade cursed spirit. Isn't he too fierce? They became more and more interested in this new student. Gojo Satoru suddenly spoke up, Yaga, why don't you promote Kazuma to a teacher? He is more than capable enough to handle a special grade cursed spirits on his own. Shiko said, I agree. Yuta echoed, me too. In recent years, cursed spirits have appeared more and more frequently and are getting more difficult to deal with. The danger level in a mission has been getting higher and higher. Sometimes a second-grade sorcerer has to face special-grade cursed spirits. The mortality rate is too high. But there is no other way. The gap between the number of sorcerers and cursed spirits is too big. As teachers, they not only have to exorcise cursed spirits, but also have to take time to teach students. If they weren't sorcerers, they would have collapsed from exhaustion long ago. Yaga glared at Gojo Satoru and thought in his heart. Kazuma was really beyond his expectations, and he was definitely strong enough to become a teacher. As for whether the students can be convinced, at worst, they can be convinced by being beaten up. A sorcerer doesn't need so many twists and turns. The biggest obstacle is the higher-ups. Kazuma's identity alone is a big problem. Yaga said in a deep voice, last time, I asked you to investigate Kazuma's identity but you still got no results. Shiko helplessly said, don't mention it, there is no information at all. It's as if this person appeared out of thin air. In the past few days, she and Yuta had worked overtime and used all the means they could, but there was still no clue about Kazuma's identity. As a result, all she could think about when she went to sleep these days was Kazuma. Yaga pondered for a moment and said, "How about this? I will promote him to a teacher in my personal name, and his salary will be the same as yours." Then, he paused and glanced at Gojo Satoru. He said, "But for absolute safety, how about letting Mei Mei use crows to spy on him?" This was something he had to do. As the principal, he had to make every possible consideration. First, Kazuma's identity is unknown, even his parents couldn't be found. Second, Kazuma's strength. A student who is no less powerful than Mei Mei and Nanami suddenly appeared out of nowhere, and his specific strength is still unknown. If there is a slight possibility that Kazuma has ulterior motives, the consequences will be disastrous. So, let him be the villain. At worst, he can personally make amends to Kazuma. The two women pretended to be busy, as if they didn't hear what he had said, while Gojo Satoru's face gloomed. He was not a fool. When he had first met Kazuma, he had sensed the mystery of this person. But Six Eyes would never be wrong. Kazuma had no hostility towards them, and he could even sense some kindness from him. That's why he didn't worry about Kazuma's identity. However, he was the only one who knew about Kazuma's situation, so it was normal for Yaga to have some guesses, but this was too unfair to Kazuma. He wants Kazuma to become a teacher and help, but also wants to secretly monitor him from behind? No matter who it is, they would feel unhappy. Is status really that important? Why do they have to care about those old higher-ups? The atmosphere in the room became solemn again. I remain opposed to this matter, but it's up to you to do whatever you want. There is only one Kazuma, so you should be careful. After saying this, Gojo Satoru left. Shiko couldn't stand this atmosphere, so she dragged Utahim away and said, Principal, Utahim and I will continue our investigation. Bang. The door closed and the room fell into silence. Only Yaga was left in the darkness, standing still like a statue. He turned his phone to the dial page but did nothing. Ever since the Gojo Satoru incident, the college and even the upper echelons have become extremely cautious. That incident was not only painful for Gojo Satoru, but also for Yaga. He didn't plan to take any chances. Finally, he dialed a number. A mature female voice came from the other end of the phone. "Hey, even though I didn't contribute much, you still have to pay me back." Yaga said, "Use your crow to quietly follow Kazuma. I will give you double the money afterwards. Pay attention." Meanwhile, in Roppongi, night has fallen. Congratulations to the host for completing the mission. The system store has been unlocked. Please check it out. Since the host just killed a special grade cursed spirit and 5 second grade cursed spirits, 11,000 have been rewarded. Points. Kazuma's eyes lit up. Could it be that he could get points by killing cursed spirits? How are the rewarded points measured? Kill cursed spirits and curse users to get points. The higher the level of the cursed spirits or curse users, the more points you get. Note, if the members of the Akatsuki kill a cursed spirit, the host can obtain half of the points reward. I see. There is an endless supply of cursed spirits in this world, so it is quite convenient to earn points. Moreover, members of the Akatsuki can also provide him with half of the points. It seems that he needs to search for cursed spirits. It would be best if he could set up an intelligence organization. Mei Mei, with her reconnaissance skill, is the best choice. The assistant supervisor in Jujutsu High can also provide the locations of many cursed spirits are. However, there is currently no good way to invite them to join, so he should just improve his strength as soon as possible. Comment. 1 comment. Vote. Chapter 15. If he was as strong as Sukuna and Gojo Satoru, he wouldn't have to worry so much. Kazuma followed behind the group, and Yuji kept bragging about his heroic deeds to the teachers. Kazuma opened the system store and saw that there were 6 items inside. Akatsuki robe. Price, 300 points. Made of special materials, can provide a certain degree of protection, and comes with an automatic cleaning function. Madara's treasured ninjutsu scroll. Price, 100,000 points. Gunbei. Price, 10,000 points. Superior to special grade cursed tools. Obito's mask. Price, 1,000 points. After wearing it, ocular power can be slowly restored. High precision sniper. Price, 50,000 points. Times have changed. Premium cursed tool. Ichiraku ramen. Price, 10 points. Naruto's recommendation. Note, after each item is purchased, new items will be randomly added to the shelves. 1,000 points can be spent to refresh actively. Of these 6 items, the one that most attracted Kazuma was Madara's treasured ninjutsu scroll. Madara is a top powerhouse in the world of Naruto. The ninjutsus that he treasures must be very powerful. Maybe, S rank or even forbidden ninjutsu are recorded in that scroll. Although Kazuma possesses the Mangekyo and 8 inner gates, and already has considerable combat power, he doesn't even know a single ninjutsu yet. Looks like he has to work hard to get points. After thinking for a while, Kazuma bought the gunbei that was indestructible. He also purchased 3 sets of Akatsuki robes in preparation for future members. Hey, what are you daydreaming about? Nanami-sensei is planning to take everyone out for dinner, are you coming? Nobara pushed his shoulder and asked. A big meal? Speaking of which, is Ichiraku ramen delicious? Anyway, how can he miss a free meal? Kazuma was about to agree. Suddenly, a faint light flashed from the surveillance camera beside the road, and Kazuma glanced over. He saw that there was a little bit of cursed energy on the surface of the surveillance camera, which showed that it had been carefully tampered with. His eyes darkened slightly. They are hiding the surveillance method by covering the surface with cursed energy? Kazuma looked around and saw several figures standing on the balcony of a tall building 200 meters ahead, looking in the direction of Kazuma and others. Through the Sharingan, he could see that they were faintly emitting weak fluctuations of cursed energy. It was dark, and even a sorcerer would have difficulty detecting it from such a distance. But all this did not escape Kazuma's eyes. He recalled the words of the cursed spirit before its death. "Don't kill me, I was forcibly transformed by others." Kazuma sneered. This matter is indeed not as simple as it seems. Is it a curse user? Kazuma looked at everyone and said, "You guys go ahead. I'm a little tired. I'll take the unconscious child home." Nobara complained, "What? You are rejecting such a good atmosphere. You really don't understand the mood." Nanami, who was considerate, said calmly, "Kazuma has just fought against a special grade cursed spirit alone. It's normal for him to be tired. Let the great hero have a good rest." Kazuma gave Nanami a look of gratitude. Yuji said carelessly, "Don't worry, I will pack delicious food for Kazuma. The price is that you have to teach me real kung fu." At this time, Mei Mei, who was answering the phone at the side, came over. She first glanced at Kazuma with a smile, and then said, "Sorry, I need to go home and have a good sleep. I'm sorry, I can't keep you company." After saying that, she left alone. After bidding farewell to everyone, Kazuma pretended to take a taxi back. 10 minutes later. The place was empty. Whoosh. A vortex appeared on the spot, and the space vibrated slightly. On the rooftop, a man wearing a white mask, a fire cloud robe, and a round fan on his back appeared. From the holes of the mask, 2 eyes that reflected the soul glowed in the darkness. This person was Kazuma, who had just left in a taxi. He glanced at the old surveillance camera across the street. Its location was very hidden. Coupled with the fact that cursed energy was used to cover it, ordinary people and even sorcerers couldn't detect it unless they paid attention. A cool breeze blew by, and his robe fluttered in the wind. The Akatsuki robe purchased from the system store was of very good quality. It was not only comfortable to wear, but also weightless and had no impact on combat. The most important thing was that it had a self-cleaning function. There was no need to clean it. This was very convenient for a lazy guy like him. Looking at the crows flying across the sky, Kazuma seemed to be lost in thought. In an empty room at Kazuma's feet, Mei Mei was sitting with her legs crossed and eating melon seeds. Under the dim light, her beautiful pair of legs in black stockings appeared shiny and glossy. Her half-hanging black high-heeled shoes were swaying mischievously, and her feet that were wrapped in black stockings seemed like it could be completely exposed at any time. With the crow's shared vision, she saw everything about the mysterious masked man who had appeared out of nowhere on the roof. She opened her red lips slightly. "Haha, do you think you can hide it from me by changing your clothes, Kazuma? It seems that you have a lot of secrets. I hope you don't do anything that will disappoint everyone." In the phone call just now, Yaga stated his request. She was too lazy to care about such boring things. But, Yaga gave too much, and it just so happened that she had recently set her eyes on an expensive bag. So, she took on this task. On the rooftop, Kazuma ignored the crows and headed towards the tall building. In the night, Kazuma blended into the darkness, shuttling between the buildings. Inside a high-rise building, several curse users gathered together. The big screen in front of them showed a recording of Kazuma and the others. "Sir, it was that kid who had killed the human-faced worm we had worked so hard to cultivate. We were only one step away from success." A dark-skinned man with an afro gritted his teeth. "Damn it. I clearly transferred Gojo Satoru away, but I didn't expect there to be another expert. That special grade cursed spirit had been cultivated at great cost, and it had already devoured nearly 1,000 humans. As long as it devoured these sorcerers, it could have completed the transformation. At that time, he could absorb that cursed spirit and reach first grade. But who would have thought that the carefully planned strategy would be ruined by a young boy?" The speaker was a middle-aged man with huge muscles and a hair that looked like it was on fire. Comment. 3. Comment. Vote. Chapter 16. When the people standing nearby saw their boss getting angry, they all lowered their heads, fearing that his anger would be taken out on them. They turned their eyes to the surveillance screen. They saw Kazuma slowly tilt his head and look towards the camera with a sneer. Suddenly, the middle-aged boss body shook violently. His pupils contracted violently, and the cigarette in his hand fell to the ground involuntarily. In the surveillance footage, it was already night, but the pair of terrifying scarlet eyes were accurately locked onto the direction of the surveillance camera. A gorgeous blood-colored pattern slowly rotated, and one could even see a sarcastic smile in those eyes, with no intention of disguising it. It was as if those eyes were saying, "I have found you." All the curse users present breathed heavily, and cold sweat poured down their backs. In the secret room, there was pin-drop silence, except for the heavy breathing of the crowd. The middle-aged man only managed to recover thanks to his many years of experience and strong psychological quality. What kind of eyes are those? This scene reminded them of the man who was known as the strongest sorcerer, Gojo Satoru. When Gojo Satoru was a child, they had thought about assassinating him, but they became scared and gave up after seeing the surveillance. But this time, those eyes were far more terrifying than the pair of 6 eyes. He had a feeling that if he continued to look into those eyes, he might lose his mind. Where did the boy in the surveillance video come from? Why have they never heard of such a powerful person? Investigate this man's background carefully. Since this guy dared to ruin his plans, he must die. As long as he has knowledge about the enemy's abilities and targets him, he might be able to kill him. After all, not everyone is as strong as Gojo Satoru. It is impossible for anyone to be as strong as Gojo Satoru. Yes. Boss. Several men in black responded and walked out the door. Suddenly. Bang. The reinforced iron door was kicked open. The men in black were knocked back and their bodies knocked over the tables and chairs in the room. Kazuma crossed his arms and said, "Oh. There are quite a few people here. It seems that this trip is worthwhile." At a glance, there were roughly dozens of people here, and they all had cursed energy. "Who are you? And how did you get in?" Faced with this sudden intruder, everyone looked at the mysterious man wearing a white mask with vigilance. On the surface, this building was an insurance company, but in reality, it was their base for breeding artificial cursed spirits. Each floor is strictly guarded by guards, and has 360-degree surveillance without blind spots. Even Gojo Satoru wouldn't be able to break in quietly. "Is there a spy inside the organization?" Kazuma said, "You forgot me so quickly." After he finished speaking, red light flashed from under the mask. Boss, it's him." Even with a mask on, the iconic scarlet pupils were recognizable at a glance. It was as if they were being stared at by an evil spirit from hell. A chill ran down their spines. The middle-aged man shouted angrily, "Shut up! Don't I know that?" He looked at Kazuma and said, "Your Excellency, why are you visiting so late at night?" After saying this, he glanced at his men, signaling them to quickly call for help. Kazuma couldn't help but find all this funny, but he didn't stop their actions. After all, it would be easier to kill them all at once. "I don't want to beat around the bush with you guys. Is that special grade cursed spirit related to you guys?" As soon as Kazuma finished speaking, an alarm sounded in the entire building. From the large screen in front, it could be seen that many men in black were rushing towards this place quickly. Obviously, these people are all curse users, but in Kazuma's eyes, they are all points. "Haha, you are confident, aren't you? Are you sure that you can walk out of this building?" As the middle-aged man with fiery red hair finished speaking. Boom. Cursed energy surged, instantly lighting up the dim room. More than a dozen men in black released their cursed energies. The colors of their cursed energies were different. Two big men tore off their shirts, revealing their monstrous muscles. They were holding dagger-like cursed tools in their hands. The middle-aged man sneered. Even if the guy in front of him is a first-grade sorcerer, so what? This is his territory. Not only is the space limited, but... He glanced slightly toward the rooftop of the building opposite. A sniper holding a silenced sniper rifle is already in position, and the gun is loaded with armor-piercing bullets. Later, in the chaos of the battle, he can find the right time to shoot the target in the head. Even a first-grade sorcerer will die if they are not prepared. How could he climb up step by step over the years and become the boss of these curse users without some special means? Surely, a first-grade sorcerer's body can cultivate a powerful cursed spirit, right? Go. Cut him into pieces. Following his order, more than 10 curse users launched an attack at the same time. For a moment, the condensed cursed energy attack overwhelmed Kazuma. Under the white mask, Kazuma's lips slightly curved. He did not dodge and allowed them to attack. Boom. A dazzling flame burst out from the top floor of the building. The smoke and dust cleared, the walls collapsed, and the ground was full of potholes, but Kazuma was unharmed. What? Seeing this scene, everyone was stunned. So many attacks were launched at him at the same time, yet they didn't cause any damage at all. Even a special grade sorcerer wouldn't be unscathed, right? Only the boss realized what had happened. There is a cursed technique in this world that can allow all attacks to pass through? How is that possible? But it doesn't matter, the sniper is already in place. Surely, he can't stay like this forever, right? Whoosh. Two burly men holding cursed tools flashed and surrounded Kazuma. Two cold rays flashed almost at the same time. However, they were too slow. Kazuma pulled out the gunbei behind him and swept it across like a sharp sword. Clang. The two cursed tools fell to the ground, and the two big men were cut in half. Blood splattered on the walls on both sides, staining them bright red. Kazuma put the two cursed tools into the Kamui dimension. Although they didn't look high level, they were cursed tools after all. Maybe he would have a use for them one day. It just so happens that the dormitory is short of a fruit knife. Seeing his capable subordinate who had followed him for many years being cut in half, the boss of the curse users was completely furious. Many curse users had already appeared behind Kazuma. Kill. A roar echoed throughout the entire building. At once, hundreds of curse users rushed towards Kazuma from both sides. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 17. Look, I'm in a hurry. Kazuma retreated to the window and reached out to stroke the crow perched on the windowsill. Under the mask, his deep eyes swept over the crowd. Haha, they want to use human wave tactics to besiege him? Then, he will let them experience what despair is. His Sharingan turned and stared at the crowd. Those who had surrounded him were all low-level curse users. Anyone who made eye contact with Kazuma was instantly caught under a genjutsu. There was no possibility of struggle. Among the crowd of curse users, half of them had blank eyes and dull expressions, like puppets being manipulated. Before they even touched Kazuma, screams of pain were heard. Ah! You! A curse user felt a sharp pain behind him. His heart, kidneys, and even his anus were ruthlessly stabbed by his former trusted teammate. Damn it! The curse user was furious and shouted, "Don't look into his eyes." However, it was too late. A whistling sound came from his ears. He dodged quickly. Boom! A huge axe was embedded in the wall. If he hadn't dodged in time, his head would have been chopped off. The person who had thrown that axe was the assistant in charge of researching artificial cursed spirits. At this moment he was obviously being controlled. "I'm sorry, brother." The boss gathered his cursed energy into a sharp blade in his hand and killed the opponent with tears. However, his subordinates did not have such good luck and strength. They all had followed him on his journey, escaping the sorcerer's crackdown and the police's siege. But they could not escape the blades of their companions. Although he was very angry at the moment, he was more afraid than angry. Who is this mysterious masked man? Just with a glare, he was able to control so many of his men to kill each other. It's simply too outrageous. Even 6 eyes can't do this, right? Now, he can only place his hope on the sniper. Soon, under Kazuma's genjutsu, all the curse users died. The corridor was flooded with blood. Some were on the ground, in the walls, and some had their heads stuck straight into the ceiling. The ways of their death were all different. Most of these people were killed by their own comrades. As for the corpses with their heads stuck in the ceiling, that was because Kazuma had hit them with Madara's round fan. Kazuma said, "You are the only one left, a commander without troops." He flashed and instantly pinned the boss of the curse users against the wall. "I heard that you are cultivating artificial cursed spirits? Where is the laboratory? Don't force me to use genjutsu on you." Kazuma had used his Sharingan quite frequently today and his eyes were already hurting a little. Even if the white mask could slowly restore his ocular power, it was very slow. The boss's face was ferocious, but he forced out a grim smile. He said, "Ahem, haha, you won't have the chance to know. This is the perfect opportunity for the sniper to attack." He believed that the gun this masked guy's head would explode soon. All he has to do is attract his attention. Kazuma stifled, "Really? Your sniper must be tired of lying down, right?" As soon as these words came out, the middle-aged man's pupils became as thin as needles. How did he find out? He actually knows about the sniper. Under the other party's extremely horrified gaze, Kazuma slowly turned his head and looked at the tall building in the distance. At the same time, in the tall building opposite, the sniper, who had blended into the night, slowly pulled the trigger. Hee. Mei Mei gathered the cursed energy at her fingertips, and a crow silently appeared in her palm. Through crows, she had witnessed a crushing battle. That terrifying anti-detection ability in forcibly controlling people's minds. Haha, what a scary guy. Even she was almost deceived by his harmless appearance. Just now, the moment Kazuma had stepped back to the window and stroked the crow, she understood. It turned out that her reconnaissance ability that she was so proud of had been discovered long ago. However, he is still too young. He didn't even realize that the sniper would have smashed his head. I'll help him this time, and then ask him for protection money later. A crow rushed towards the sniper, who was about to pull the trigger. Its speed was no less than that of a bullet. But the next moment, Mei Mei's eyes widened, and her red lips widened. She saw a vortex flowing around the sniper's head and the space around that area distorted. Bang! The sniper's entire head was twisted off and fell into the Kamui dimension. The headless corpse shook a few times and then fell down. The crows she had released followed closely behind, but they flew into nothing, seeming a bit redundant. Exploded. This familiar spatial fluctuation. Was it caused by Kazuma? Mei Mei hoped that Kazuma was not their enemy. Otherwise, the Jujutsu Society would be in a big trouble. After a brief moment of daze, Mei Mei turned her gaze to Kazuma, who was wearing a white mask in the opposite room. She saw that Kazuma was staring at her and even blinking meaningfully. She quickly looked away. Was I teased by a student? Mei Mei leaped up, landed gracefully, and shook her head with a smile. It seems that she was worrying too much. Kazuma had actually discovered the sniper a long time ago. Was he deliberately waiting until the end to give his opponent the most despair? He's really unfathomable. Mei Mei became even more interested in Kazuma. For now, she should go and see the artificial cursed spirits cultivated in the basement. Through the crow's observation, she had discovered the basement. She had no intention of setting foot in such a dirty place. But apart from money, her responsibilities as a sorcerer barely came in second. After reporting the situation there to the school, she should be able to extort some money from Yaga. Kazuma pressed the head of the boss of the curse users against the window and said, in the face of absolute strength, any conspiracy is futile. The boss had given up struggling. Just now, he had witnessed everything with his own eyes. The mysterious masked man in front of him just glared at the sniper, and his head just vanished. Is this masked man a god? He was like a prophet, discovering the sniper's position early. It seemed as if everything was within his expectations. The most terrifying thing was that with just a glance, he broke his subordinate's head from a distance of 100 meters. Isn't this something that only gods can do? It's over. This time, he has hit a dead end. All the hard work and effort he had spent to carefully train his subordinates has been wasted. All of this was because of this one masked guy. Comment. 1 comment. Vote. Chapter 18. Thinking of this, the fear and confusion in his heart were replaced by anger. His eyes became bloodshot. Even if he dies, he won't make things easy for this masked guy. Ha ha ha. You want to know about the underground laboratory? You'd better come to hell to ask me. After saying this, his cheek muscles bulged and he was about to bite his tongue to commit suicide. Genjutsu. As Kazuma's genjutsu was activated, the boss's expression became dull. His pupils became unfocused, and even biting his tongue to commit suicide became a luxury. Don't be so anxious. Where is the exact location of the underground breeding room? Kazuma asked, enduring the stinging pain in his eyes. On the third floor below ground. Okay, you can die now. Good night, uncle. Snap. Kazuma broke his neck. This time, he had killed so many curse users and gained a lot of points. If there are still many half-finished cursed spirits being cultivated in the basement as this person had said, wouldn't it be possible to gain a lot more points? Semi-finished products should also give points, right? Meanwhile, in the basement, a dim green light barely illuminated the surroundings. Huge transparent containers could be seen on both sides. Many semi-finished cursed spirits were sleeping in the container. Their lower bodies were soaked in green liquid, and many tubes were connected to their backs. Some were half human, half insect, some had frog heads and human bodies, and some were a combination of many different creatures. Their composition was extremely complex. Tau. Tap. Tap. The stomping sound of high heels echoed in the enclosed space. Mei Mei carried a huge axe in one hand and walked leisurely. Behind her, a horrifying scene could be seen. Dozens of experimenters in white coats were lying on the ground in a pool of blood. Could this be the purpose of Kazuma's trip? Through the battle just now, she had ruled out the possibility of Kazuma being a curse user. This was why she had helped him just now, even though she didn't really help in the end. But she still did not let down her guard against Kazuma. After all, his behavior was too strange. Why did he pretend to leave, and then come back? Besides, how did he know about what was happening here? She didn't believe that he was just seeking revenge. What a troublesome guy. It would be nice if he was just a good student. Why does he have to be so secretive? It's really a headache. She took out her cell phone and prepared to record the situation here. She planned to leave the dirty work of dealing with these artificial cursed spirits to the counselors and supervisors. At this moment, the space ahead fluctuated. Mei Mei seemed to be thinking about something and immediately hid behind a stone pillar. Whoosh. Kazuma appeared. Mei Mei felt a little envious when she saw the scene. Putting aside other things, this ability was really convenient for traveling. Has anyone been here? Looking at the dozen bodies lying on the ground, Kazuma murmured. But he couldn't find any clues. After all, his Sharingan couldn't see through things like the Byakugan. However, smelling the faint fragrance in the air, he realized something. The corners of his mouth slightly raised. This scent was very familiar, and he already had the answer in his heart. He was prepared for the fact that others might be suspicious of him. First of all, he had just appeared out of nowhere, and his identity and background were unknown. The school should have tried to check his background, and the result was predictable. Secondly, he possessed strength far exceeding that of freshmen. It was inevitable that he would be suspected, and Kazuma could understand this. However, he had no intention of hiding his strength. At most, he would hide some things from Sukuna and Kenjaku, who had not yet appeared. After all, intelligence can play a key role in battles, and he doesn't want to be targeted. Therefore, before becoming invincible, Gojo Satoru has to be the center of attention. The only thing he felt guilty about was that he had to poach some people. Mei Mei heard the sound of Kazuma deeply inhaling. Her face turned slightly red. Oh no. If she had known, she wouldn't have sprayed perfume before going out. This kid has a very sensitive nose. There is a high probability that she has been discovered. The laboratory was silent. The two of them kept a tacit understanding. Kazuma did not point out the hidden Mei Mei, and Mei Mei did not show up on her own initiative. Kazuma walked to the center and took a quick glance at all the man-made cursed spirits. Those curse users are truly beasts. How many people have they harmed in secret? He looked at the sleeping experiment subject in the container. It must be very painful to be neither human nor cursed spirit, right? Everyone gets what they need. He helps them get rid of their suffering, and they give him points. That shouldn't be too much, right? Thinking about this, Kazuma took off Gunbei behind him and was about to take action. Whoosh. A crow rushed towards him from behind at a very fast speed. Kazuma glanced sideways. Kamui. Bang. A crow fell 1 meter in front of him, and its headless body twitched twice on the ground before dying. Shi accuracy with the Kamui attack had improved a lot. Now, he had a 100% headshot rate within 10 meters. Kazuma said in a deep voice, "Come out." A graceful figure walked out slowly, and the huge axe in her hand fell to the ground, creating a dent. Kazuma raised his brows slightly. He knew something about this first-grade sorcerer Mei Mei. The reason why she was ranked first grade was not because of her Kroshikigami, but because of her physical skills that are enough to fight against special-grade cursed spirits. Such a heavy axe was as light as cotton in her hand. Sorry, you can't mess around with the experimental subjects here. Mei Mei looked at Kazuma with a smile. This kid's pretending pretty well. He even used cursed energy to change his voice. What? Are you going to use genjutsu on your teacher? Kazuma did not respond. He squinted his eyes through the mask, sizing up Mei Mei, without saying a word. Although Mei Mei's tone was frivolous and casual, her eyes were always on the ground. She didn't dare to meet those strange eyes. Even she was not sure if she could resist his genjutsu. If she falls under a genjutsu, wouldn't she be at his mercy? Therefore, it is better to be careful. Kazuma said in a rough voice, I'm afraid you have recognized the wrong person. Please don't interfere with my work. You should also be able to see that these man-made cursed spirits have no chance of survival. Mei Mei subconsciously looked at Kazuma and said, no, the things here are beneficial for me. Before she could finish her words. Genjutsu. Kazuma decisively seized the opportunity and used genjutsu. After killing these cursed spirits, he was too lazy to talk nonsense with Mei Mei. Oh no. I was careless. My consciousness is about to break down. Mei Mei was frozen in place for an instant. Sweat dripped down her fair forehead, her eyes rolled back, and she looked dazed. Her appearance could make a lot of people's imagination run wild. For some reason, Kazuma felt a sense of conquest when he saw Mei Mei like this. However, the speed of the gunbei in his hand did not slow down at all. Comment. 1 comment. Vote. Chapter 19. Kazuma's goal was to knock Mei Mei out, put her in the Kamui dimension, and then release her after finishing what he has to do. Just as the gunbei in his hand approached the back of Mei Mei's neck, a sharp gust of wind appeared near the side of his head. Kazuma decisively gave up on the attack, and the giant axe passed through Kazuma's body without any hindrance. After making this attack, Mei Mei suddenly retreated and kept some distance. She covered her aching forehead with one hand. Her whole body was covered in sweat, and her chest was heaving up and down. Ho ha. Mei Mei was breathing heavily, as if she had just barely survived from drowning. Fortunately, she had managed to break free. She almost fell into his hands. How embarrassing would it be if word of this got out? Kazuma was also a little surprised. How did Mei Mei break free from his genjutsu so quickly? But on second thought, it's normal. He had only used a little energy for this genjutsu, and as he had overused his eyes today and had been fighting non-stop, his cursed energy was almost exhausted. Drib. Liquid dripped from the corner of his mouth, and he subconsciously stuck out his tongue to lick it. Salty and fishy? Oh shit. Kazuma quickly closed his eyes, and a few more drops of blood fell. It seems that he has overused his eyes today. It seems like using genjutsu consumes the most energy among the Sharingan abilities that he can currently use. He must end this fight quickly. He looked at Mei Mei and remained calm. He said, do you still want to stop me? Can you really bear a hellish nightmare, even if it's just an illusion? Mei Mei had already put away her casual attitude and looked at the ground with serious eyes. Kazuma was right. He had indeed shown mercy to her just now. Otherwise, he would not have just tried to knock her out. If Kazuma really wanted to kill her, he could just take advantage of the moment she was trapped in the genjutsu and use that weird method to twist her head off. This is so embarrassing. She is being threatened by a freshman. But it seems that Kazuma really has no ill will towards sorcerers. Seeing Mei Mei hesitate, Kazuma took out a black briefcase from the Kamui dimension and threw it over. He had just picked this up from the curse users, and it was full of money. Mei Mei took the bulging briefcase, and opened it. She looked what was inside. Her beautiful eyes widened and she stood there in a daze. This, so much? Is she being bribed? You seem to know me very well. She put away her weapon, and gradually approached Kazuma. She whispered, anything else? Kazuma's mouth twitched and he said, what do you mean? Oh. Forget it. Mei Mei gave him a deep look and said, what do you want? Give me an answer. I don't care about your identity. I can even help you avoid unnecessary troubles with Yaga. As for why Kazuma came back, and what use he had for these man-made cursed spirits, she no longer wanted to care. Besides, it seemed that she couldn't beat him, so she naturally had no right to ask these questions. Kazuma pondered and said, I have my own aspirations. But I can guarantee that I will not cause any harm to the teachers and students. Your concerns are completely unnecessary. At the same time, he thought silently, poaching shouldn't be considered as causing harm, right? Mei Mei looked at Kazuma for a long time through the mask, and suddenly smiled. She said, in that case, I can take this money with peace of mind. Then she stretched out her slender hand, stroked Kazuma's mask, and dialed Yaga's number. A middle-aged man's voice came from the other end of the line. Hello, how is it going? Mei Mei said, I didn't find any abnormal behavior. Kazuma helped 3 old ladies cross the road. Moreover, at my invitation, he destroyed a curse user's base. Remember to pay more. After saying that, she uploaded the photos she had taken previously. Of course, she did not send out the photos of her in the underground laboratory. After doing all this, she raised her phone and shook it towards Kazuma, as if asking if he was satisfied with this. Kazuma was a little speechless. Can't she be more normal? He helped old ladies cross the road, and there were even 3 of them. Thank you very much. Kazuma turned and looked at the transparent containers containing artificial cursed spirits on both sides. Snap. 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 The muffled sound of flesh passed through the container and spread throughout the laboratory. As Kazuma's eyes swept over them one by one, all the cursed spirits in the container had their necks twisted and were completely freed. Thanks. A head that barely looked like a human face rolled down, and tears of relief flowed out. Kazuma smiled and nodded, the people who reformed you have been killed. Rest with peace of mind. At this moment, reminders of him earning points kept coming to his mind. Mei Mei stared blankly at Kazuma as he killed the artificial cursed spirits one by one. The artificial cursed spirits' last words thank you made her heart tighten. If she brought these artificial cursed spirits back, they would definitely be used for extensive research. This may be the best outcome for them. Is this all Kazuma wants? He's really an inscrutable guy. After all this, Kazuma prepared to teleport to the dormitory. Hey! Wait, can you also travel with others with your ability? Mei Mei came over, trotting with her long legs. She was exhausted from following Kazuma, so she wanted to take a free ride. Bring people. It seems that it is indeed possible to bring people. Kazuma said nothing and hugged her by grabbing her waist. His sudden movement made Mei Mei's delicate body tremble, but she did not resist. Hold on tight. This is my first time teleporting with someone, so don't blame me if you lose any limbs. Mei Mei smiled and whispered in his ear, Tisk, I'm your teacher, don't let your imagination run wild. After saying that, her mature and plump body gently pressed against Kazuma. Comment. 3 Comment. Vote. Chapter 20. Tokyo Jujutsu High. Girls' Dormitory. Whoosh. Space twisted, a vortex appeared, and 2 figures fell to the ground. Using this ability, you can freely come and go, it's very convenient. Mei Mei sighed with some envy. Then she narrowed her eyes and looked at Kazuma with a scrutinizing look. She asked, you wouldn't teleport to the girls' dormitory for some purposes, would you? Kazuma raised his eyebrows slightly. If Mei Mei hadn't said it, he wouldn't have thought of it. But then again, why would he use the mighty Kamui for such things? Bye-bye. After leaving a word, Kazuma disappeared. Back in his dormitory. Kazuma took off his mask. He could see his bloodshot eyes through the mirror. Fortunately, apart from dryness and dull pain, there were no other effects and his vision was not affected. Judging from today's situation, it seems like Mei Mei is a mature woman and cannot be easily deceived. So, he did not invite her to join the Akatsuki. After all, he could not see through her true thoughts. Then, the next target is Maki. She wants to prove herself, so it should be easy to deal with her. The eternal Mangekyo can solve his current problem once and for all. Kazuma lied in bed and checked his points. Killing hundreds of curse users and those semi-finished artificial cursed spirits added up to a total of 51,000 points. He wanted to buy Madara's treasured ninjutsu scroll, but he was just halfway there for now. This time, with a bit of luck, he was able to destroy the lair of a group of curse users. That's why he earned so many points. But earning this many points is going to be difficult for a while now. After all, the plot is still in the early stages. Not many special grade cursed spirits have emerged and the 4 great disaster curses in Kenjaku have not appeared yet. After purchasing the mask and Gunbei, 2 new items had appeared in the system store. Automatic physical training card, 24-hour. Price, 500 points. Can automatically train even when sleeping. Tsunade's bra. Price, 500 points. Those who understand will understand. The system is getting more and more. Tsunade's bra? That's it. If you have the guts, just put Tsunade up there and sell her. In the end, Kazuma bought both. He put the bra into the Kamui dimension. Kazuma didn't have any intentions. He was just simply curious. That 24-hour double physical training card was very important to him. The reason Guy had become so strong after opening the 8th gate was because his physique was already extremely strong. If a person with an average physique were to open the 8 gates, their power might not even be half of Guy's. Moreover, without a strong physique, the subsequent 6 gates cannot be opened. After activating the automatic training card, Kazuma fell into a sweet dream. The next day, Yaga convened a meeting of teachers and students based on Kazuma's performance the day before. Inside the hall, Yaga stood in front of the podium. The first and second year students all sat quietly below and listened. Kazuma was somewhat speechless. Wasn't it just killing a special grade cursed spirit? Was there any need to make such a big fuss? This old principal has the time to send people to investigate him and the energy to hold a meeting. With that much time and effort, it would be better to do something practical. For example, giving out some bonuses or providing information about the whereabouts of cursed spirits. As Yaga recounted what had happened yesterday, the audience looked at Kazuma in the front row as if he was a monster. Yuji and the others were fine. After all, they had seen it with their own eyes yesterday. But what they didn't expect was that Kazuma later followed Mei Mei to destroy a curse user's lair. While they were enjoying a seafood feast, Kazuma was out working hard. Kazuma had almost become an idol in their hearts. The most shocked were the second-year students Maki and others. Panda looked at Kazuma with his big round eyes. My goodness, is this guy still human? First, he beat up the principal, and then he killed a special grade cursed spirit? Isn't he too fierce? He was making second graders like him embarrassed. Maki was staring at Kazuma's back at this moment. Hunting down special grade cursed spirits and destroying the lair of hundreds of curse users, is he, really that powerful? Both his cursed technique and taijutsu are impeccable. She was born without any cursed energy. She never slacked off since the moment she entered school. But physical training is not something that can be done overnight. Perhaps, she should put aside her pride and ask Kazuma for advice. She clenched her fists tightly and made up her mind. Nobara asked, Maki, what's wrong with you? You look so distracted. Last night, Nobara had chatted for a long time with Maki, who seemed cold on the outside but was warm on the inside. Perhaps because they had similar personalities and ideas, the two quickly got close. But why was Maki so off today? Nobara followed Maki's gaze and noticed Kazuma. So, it was because of Kazuma? Come to think of it, she is now his employee, a member of the Akatsuki. Maki said cheekily, can you help me make an appointment with Kazuma? I need his advice. Nobara confidently said, of course. After the group was dismissed, Kazuma, who had used the automatic training card, planned to go back to the dormitory and sleep with the mask on. After all, his eyes were still a little uncomfortable now, and the mask could help him recover faster. Kazuma, wait. A female voice full of energy sounded. Looking back, Kazuma saw someone jogging towards him. The figure's short orange-red hair fluttered in the wind. A youthful and energetic atmosphere filled the air. He choked, Kazuma? I'm your boss, so just call me boss. Nobara said, you wish. Looking at Kazuma's harmless smile, her tone weakened as she said, Maki-senpai wants to see you for something, can you go? Maki is looking for him? Kazuma's brain worked rapidly, and he tried to guess Maki's purpose. Unexpectedly, things had become much simpler. He hasn't even gone to find Maki to invite her to the Akatsuki yet. Instead, Maki took the initiative to find him. He must seize this opportunity. But Kazuma still joked, call me boss and I'll go. Comment. 1 comment. Vote. Chapter 21. You. Nobara frowned slightly. She clenched her fists, and stepped forward, wanting to hit Kazuma. But after thinking about it, she decided to give up. She couldn't beat Kazuma. Instead, she would be the one making a fool of herself. Boss, boss. Nobara said in a very low voice. After she finished speaking, she immediately looked away. Kazuma thought, this is the right way. Members of the Akatsuki must be trained as early as possible. At this moment. Ding. Trigger Missium choice. Mission option 1, Maki is very confused now. In the match later, crush her self-esteem until she cries. Reward, 1 grade 1 cursed tool. Mission option 2, train the future tyrant and take off her stockings, and put them in the Kamui dimension. Reward, 50% discount coupon in the system store. Mission option 3, be a ruthless man and reject Maki's request for a match. Reward, sword drawing speed increased by 20%. System, your missions are really getting more and more wrong. Although Kazuma, a gentleman, was very reluctant to choose the second option, the system had offered him too much. Isn't a 50% discount coupon exactly what he needs right now? With that, he can buy Madara's treasured ninjutsu scroll. It's just taking off Maki's black stockings. With such a good reward, he didn't want to refuse this mission. But given Maki's arrogant and proud personality, it would probably take some effort. Nobara blushed and said, hey. Why are you smiling so obscenely? He asked her to call him boss in person, and he was even smiling so obscenely in front of her. He must be thinking about something weird, right? Did he finally succumb to her charm? Kazuma shook his head and said, ahem, lead the way. In a deserted grove of trees. After Nobara brought Kazuma to the destination, she left with a depressed look on her face. At the same time, she was a little confused. What was it that required Maki and Kazuma to be in the deserted woods? But she didn't care too much. After all, if she were Maki, she would definitely not do anything out of line. In front of Kazuma, a tall figure was leaning against a tree with her arms folded. This person was the future second tyrant, Zenin Maki. Like the tyrant Fushiguro Toji, she was born with a heavenly restriction. Her physique is very special. In exchange for being born with no cursed energy, her overall physique was vastly stronger than a regular person's. However, because she had a twin sister, she couldn't reach her full potential. Due to years of physical training, her legs that were wrapped in black stockings were slender yet resilient. Feminine beauty and the toughness of a warrior were perfectly reflected in her pretty face. Kazuma pretended not to know her and asked, Senpai, is there something you need from me? Tisk tisk. She's wearing marten boots, and her stockings are hard to take off. It's really troublesome. But fortunately, it was not a one-piece stocking. Otherwise, the consequences of taking it off would be unimaginable. Maki walked over slowly and threw a cursed tool at Kazuma. She said, although you are my junior, you are stronger than me. Let's spar, Kazuma. Kazuma nodded and said, it's my pleasure, senpai. Maki seriously said, come on, Kazuma. Wait a minute. Kazuma threw the cursed tool back and said, if it's a physical battle, then there's no need for the cursed tool. Just attack, senpai. He wanted to irritate Maki little by little. This time, his goal was not just the 50% discount coupon. More importantly, he wanted to pull her into the Akatsuki. The best way to deal with people like Maki is to defeat them and then gently lend a helping hand to break their proud heart. I'm sorry, Maki. I have no other choice. I have to do this for the sake of the eternal Mangekyo. Maki was very angry at this moment. No need for a cursed tool? Was he looking down on her? Could it be that he, like those Zenins, looked down on her? Maki said, humph. Then I also won't use a cursed tool. Let's just fight with bare hands. Maki thrust her spear into the ground and attacked Kazuma with a cold snort. Whoosh. Her long legs that were wrapped in black silk brought about a strong wind. The two figures moved quickly. Maki's attacks were fierce. Strong winds blew up, and dust and fallen leaves were scattered. Kazuma dodged while observing her moves. Maki's offensive methods were very skillful. Her fists were like swords, her legs were like knives and axes. Even her elbow strikes were like sledgehammers. Every part of her body was like a deadly weapon. Kazuma did not fight back for the time being because he could learn a lot from Maki's moves through his Sharingan. At this moment, Maki was both ashamed and angry. This damn guy, why was he staring at her feet? What was so good about her feet? The most annoying thing was that he easily dodged all of her attacks from beginning to end. Is that all you can do? Come on, attack. Maki's anger level skyrocketed, and her attacks became more and more fierce. Kazuma's mouth curled up. The time is ripe. Gate of rest, open. Kazuma's robe fluttered without wind. His body became red, and a faint heat escaped from the top of his head. Kazuma said in a deep voice, then don't blame me for bullying a woman. Is this his full strength? It's really amazing. A strong aura hit Maki's face, and she involuntarily took a step back. But soon, she stubbornly took 2 steps forward. She gritted her teeth and took a fighting stance. She shouted, don't underestimate me. I'm not a weak woman. As soon as she finished speaking, Kazuma disappeared from her sight. Suddenly, a whisper came from behind her, how can you be distracted during a fight? Maki's pupil shrank, and she spun around and kicked behind her in response. Bang! Kazuma tightly held her long legs with his hands. Maki couldn't get rid of his grip no matter how hard she struggled. Maki blushed slightly and said, let go, let go. Let go? Kazuma grabbed Maki's legs and shook them hard, causing Maki to lose her balance and fall to the ground. Ah! Boom! The ground beside Maki's head cracked. Comment. 1 comment. Vote. Chapter 22. Kazuma said, if you were an enemy, your head would have exploded. Maki blankly stared at Kazuma's eyes that were full of teasing intent. Just when she tried to break free, she was pushed down again. Then, in her extremely shocked eyes, Kazuma hooked the edge of her black stockings. Her black stocking was ruthlessly peeled off inch by inch from her thighs. Her long, slender, white legs were completely exposed. Finally got it. Kazuma moved away and threw the stockings into the Kamui dimension. He is a gentleman, how could he possibly smell it? But when there is no one around, it's hard to say what he will do. Maki shouted, pervert. Give it back to me now. Maki, who just realized what had happened, blushed. She felt a little uncomfortable after suddenly losing her stockings, and her feet became tense. She didn't expect Kazuma to be such a person. No wonder he kept staring at her legs from the beginning, was it just for this moment? But, what's the point of taking her stockings? Maki was filled with shame and indignation. Her expression constantly changed, as if she was trying to make some kind of decision. She quickly took off her other pair of black stockings and threw them at Kazuma with disgust. Maki said while blushing, since you like it, I'll give this to you as well. In exchange, you have to spar with me. Holding the warm stockings in his hands, Kazuma looked at Maki in disbelief. Oh shit. Things seem to be going in the wrong direction. He has already completed the mission, so why would he need another? Before Kazuma could think any more, Maki rushed towards him again. She swung her long white legs, as fighting spirit burned in her eyes. Well, since he has already taken advantage of her, he might as well have a good in-depth discussion with her. 10 minutes later. Kazuma panted and took deep breaths of fresh air. Under a big tree not far away from him. Maki was sitting in a weird posture, slumping on the ground, and breathing heavily. Her hair was disheveled, her pretty face was full of stubbornness, and her eyes were full of resentment. Kazuma wiped the sweat from his forehead and helplessly looked at Maki. He knew Maki was a proud and stubborn woman, but he had never expected her to be this stubborn. Does a spar have to go to this extent? Maki fell down again, and got up again and again. She knew it was impossible to defeat him, but she still refused to admit defeat. Even he had become exhausted. In the end, Kazuma deliberately did not dodge and took 2 punches to his face from her before Maki gave up. It seems that the pressure in her mind is much greater than she thought. Also, can she change her posture? If someone doesn't know, they might think he had done something to her. Kazuma squatted down and said, Maki-senpai, you want to become stronger, right? Brute force alone won't make you stronger. Then, Kazuma activated his Sharingan and said, do you want to be looked down upon by the Zenin clan for the rest of your life? Do you want your sister and yourself to return to the Zenin clan in humiliation and become the lowest servants after your failure? Do you want to serve those stupid old men? Kazuma's words hit Maki like a thunderbolt. Maki, who had no strength left, suddenly yelled, I don't want that. Kazuma gently held her cheek. His scarlet Sharingan turned and looked deeply into his eyes. He said, so, Maki, do you want to become stronger? These words kept echoing in Maki's mind. At this moment, Maki no longer cared about the difference between men and women. She stared at Kazuma's eyes with extremely longing eyes. Seeing this, Kazuma became ashamed. Why did he feel like he was becoming more and more like a villain? The kind that does whatever it takes to achieve their goal? After a while, Maki reacted immediately and pushed Kazuma away. She asked, how do you know about me? She has always kept these things in her heart and has never told anyone. But it looked like Kazuma knew her very well. He even knew her sister. Isn't Kazuma just a freshman who has only been here for a few days? Kazuma pointed at his eyes and said, I can see your past. Then, Kazuma talked about Maki's experience while growing up and how she was disliked by her family. He even talked about her physical problems. He even roughly described the changes in her relationship with her sister. Maki blankly stared at Kazuma. Although she had thought Kazuma was very powerful before, she only really realized his mystery at this moment. He knew her past clearly. In addition, Kazuma's pair of mysterious scarlet eyes seemed to be able to see through her. Maki lowered her head and didn't say anything, obviously believing what Kazuma had said. Maki said, I want to become stronger, but how can you help me? What do you want? Maki was not a fool. She naturally didn't believe that Kazuma would help her for free. Maybe this was Kazuma's real purpose? Was his previous frivolous behavior of taking off her stockings a deliberate act? Kazuma slowly stepped forward and said with a smile, my request is very simple. Join the Akatsuki, and I will teach you the 8 inner gates that I had used just now. After saying this, he stepped aside, used the 8 inner gates again and showed it to her. He didn't rush Maki, but rather gave her time to make a choice. However, after all this trouble, Kazuma was almost certain that Maki would agree. Meanwhile, Maki's mind was in a whirlpool. 8 inner gates? Was that the technique Kazuma had just used? Maki could clearly feel that before Kazuma had activated the 8 inner gates, she could still keep up with him. But when that heat emanated from his body, she was no longer able to fight back. But, what is this Akatsuki he was talking about? She looked at Kazuma and asked, what is Akatsuki? Kazuma internally thought, here it comes. I have been waiting to say this for a long time. He passionately said, ahem. Akatsuki also means dawn. It is a great and righteous organization that fights against cursed spirits, protects the people, and maintains world peace with selfless dedication. Kazuma put his hands behind his back, and looked up at the sky. Comment. For comment. Vote. Chapter 23. Maki blinked, confused by this sudden scene. That speech was delivered in one go. It was obvious that Kazuma had prepared in advance. Are you sure this is not a pyramid scheme? Besides, Kazuma doesn't seem to be a high-ranking person. Then, Kazuma continued to introduce the benefits of joining the Akatsuki and how easy it was to become a member. Kazuma said, so, what do you think? 8 inner gates is a martial arts that has been passed down within my family for generations. It has never been passed on to others. Besides, as long as you join, I can be your sparring partner at any time. I'm sure Panda and Inumaki are very reluctant to spar with a fighting maniac like you, right? Having read the Jujutsu Kaisen manga, Kazuma naturally knew that among the second years, no one was willing to spar with Maki, a taijutsu madman. In this battle just now, Maki had not exerted her full strength. After all, her real strength is her mastery of cursed tools. Finally, Kazuma used his trump card, I can make you surpass the past tyrant, Fushiguro Toji. Toji's experience was similar to Maki's, except that he used his extremely powerful strength to sweep away all of his past humiliation. With the power of one person, he easily suppressed the Zenin clan. Nobody even dared to raise their heads in his presence. Anyone who dared to say anything more than necessary would be killed. Presumably, Maki has always regarded Toji as her goal, right? Kazuma has already mentioned all the points that can be used to persuade Maki. Now, it's all up to Maki. Hearing this, Maki's body slightly trembled and her breathing became rapid. Should she really join the Akatsuki? She closed her eyes, and her past in the Zenin clan echoed in her mind like a nightmare. Since the moment she was born, she has been ridiculed and mocked because of having no curse's energy. She couldn't even see cursed spirits. She remembered the cold eyes of her biological parents. From childhood to adulthood, her sister and she grew up under scolding and ridicule. All of this was why she wants to become stronger and prove herself so much. Moreover, Kazuma even knew about Toji. This made her last glimmer of doubt disappear. I am willing to join the Akatsuki and be at your disposal. Having said that, Maki even knelt down on one knee. Kazuma quickly helped her up. The Akatsuki didn't need these rules and regulations. Of course, the premise is that the members have to obey his orders. He smiled and held out his hand. He said, welcome to the Akatsuki. Your future will be bright. Although, he had invited Maki to obtain the mission reward, he still felt a great sense of accomplishment at this moment. After all, another fallen girl had been saved. After shaking hands with Maki, Kazuma took out a book from the Kamui dimension. The title of the book was 8 Inner Gates. After obtaining the 8 inner gates through the system, Kazuma had instantly understood all the key points about the 8 inner gates. So, it was naturally easy for him to write it down. Moreover, he also used his own words, knowledge, and experience to make the content more understandable. He believed that smart Maki could understand it. Maki took the book, flipped through a few pages, and then her beautiful eyes widened. The operation of meridians, the mobilization of energy, and the way to open the subsequent 8 gates were all clearly written. Except for the ugly handwriting, this book was undoubtedly perfect. It seemed that Kazuma really hadn't lied to her. Maki nodded heavily and said, thank you. Kazuma said, practice well. If you don't understand anything, you can ask me. After saying that, Kazuma took out 2 Akatsuki robes that he had bought last time and handed them to her. Kazuma said, this is the organization uniform. You don't have to wear it, but you can't be without it. Please give the other one to Nobara for me. Maki looked at Kazuma in surprise and asked, is Nobara also a member of the Akatsuki? Yes. Kazuma continued seriously, you should only open up to the second gate at present. Unless it is absolutely necessary, do not forcefully open the subsequent gates. Without a strong enough body, the side effects will be severe, and there is even a risk of death. Maki said, well, I'll pay attention. At this moment, Maki no longer displayed her previous aloofness. She had become more gentle, like the big sister next door. Looking at Maki's departing back, Kazuma couldn't help but say, "Maki. You look better without glasses." Maki paused her steps. Her ears turned red, and she glared at him. She said, "Kazuma, you are so vulgar." After saying that, she ran away. Why did he suddenly have a feeling that he has been scolded twice in a short while? T/N, this is referring to Nobara internally scolding MC for being obscene in previous chapters. Kazuma and the obscene. But Kazuma was serious. Whether in the manga or now, Maki's beauty was hidden by that pair of glasses. After Maki left, a system prompt sounded in Kazuma's mind. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the mission. Reward, 50% discount coupon for the system store. Kazuma opened the system store. Kazuma could instantly buy Madara's treasured ninjutsu scroll with the 50% discount coupon. He decisively bought it. Suddenly, everything went dark. He was confused for a while and his consciousness became vague. It was as if he was falling into the clouds. A huge amount of information flooded into his mind. It seemed like his head was going to explode in the next second. Fortunately, with the help of the system, a cool feeling appeared in his mind, like streams of clear springs, followed by countless flashes of inspiration. The originally obscure ninjutsu had now become clear at a glance. In just 10 minutes, Kazuma had learned everything. Kazuma opened his eyes. An indescribable sense of excitement could be seen in his eyes. It is indeed a ninjutsu scroll that is treasured by Madara. There are fire release, water release, wood release, and even legendary forbidden techniques. Even Edo Tensei and Rinnegan techniques were included. But it seems that he can't use it for now. After all, Rinnegan is needed to activate the Rinnegan techniques. He only has a Mangekyo Sharingan at the moment. But what surprised Kazuma was that even a seduction technique was included. It seems that Madara is also a man of culture. Comment. 1 comment. Vote. Chapter 24. This seduction technique was a conceptual ninjutsu. Even Kagaya would be affected by it. But what can he do with it? Seduce Sukuna? Anyway, now he has many more means of attack. Next, Kazuma checked the progress of the long-term mission. Long-term mission, the higher-ups of the Jujutsu Society are corrupt. Refuse to work for them. Create the Akatsuki and invite sorcerers to join it. Progress, 2/3 people. Reward, Eternal Mangekyo Sharingan. The Eternal Mangekyo is just around the corner. As long as he recruits one more person, he can get the Eternal Mangekyo. Just as Kazuma was immersed in joy, a pitch-black crow with red eyes landed on his shoulder. It goes without saying that this crow was under Mei Mei's control. It should have just flown in. Before taking off Maki's black stockings, Kazuma had deliberately activated his Sharingan to observe his surroundings. At that time, he hadn't noticed this crow. So, it was safe to say that it had just arrived. He can't let Mei Mei see himself poaching people. A piece of white paper fell into his palm from the crow. The content was roughly: Yaga plans to promote him to a teacher in his personal capacity, and it just so happens that cursed spirits are suspected to be in Tokyo, so Kazuma just needs to follow them and go through the motions. Kazuma knew that every teacher at Jujutsu High needed to pass an assessment before taking on their position. After all, in addition to being strong, a teacher also needs to protect the safety of their students at all times. Kazuma had just learned a lot of ninjutsu. So, he hoped to test them out on some cursed spirits. He can also get some points. He can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. What? Are you guys role-playing? Kazuma's face was full of confusion as he looked at the 3 people opposite him. Shoko said, "That's right. This time, I, Mei Mei, and Nanami will act as your students. How about it? Are you excited?" Shoko was wearing a white medical gown with a burgundy shirt underneath. She looked like an intellectual Oni-san. Maybe because of being too busy at work, dark circles were seen at the corners of her eyes. Shoko held her chin and looked at Kazuma with interest. She hadn't noticed it before, but when she got closer, she noticed that Kazuma was quite handsome. She was very excited at this moment, as she had suffered a lot in order to investigate Kazuma's identity. This time, it's this guy's turn to serve her. Moreover, she has been staying in the infirmary to treat the wounded all year round. Today, she has to take on the dangerous task of exorcising cursed spirits. But for her, it was like a relaxing vacation. Mei Mei joked, "Arshiko is the treasure of Jujutsu High. You must protect her well. As for the life and death of Nanami and I, it depends on whether you have a conscience." As if she had thought of something, Mei Mei chuckled and moved closer. She stretched out her white and tender fingers to draw circles on Kazuma's chest, and said charmingly, "If the students do something wrong later, Kazuma-sensei doesn't need to show any sympathy. You can just punish them as much as you want." After saying this, even Mei Mei blushed a little. But after what had happened last night, when facing Kazuma, she couldn't help but have the idea of teasing him. Hiss. Kazuma took a deep breath to calm himself. Why had Mei Mei become so different? In his impression, she was a mature and heroic lady. Why did it seem like she had a hidden masochistic side now? Kazuma shook his head, and put aside his wild thoughts. Then, he looked at Shiko. If he remembered correctly, Shiko knew reverse curse technique and hadn't been shown using normal curse techniques. However, her reverse curse technique was a little different as she could heal others very efficiently. A general reverse curse technique user can usually only provide effective treatment to themselves, and they can't effectively heal others. Therefore, it is no exaggeration to say that she is the treasure of the entire Tokyo Jujutsu High or more. It seems that he has to focus on her. Nanami was wearing a smart suit and had his blonde hair was combed back. He glanced at the time and said, let's get going quickly. Try to finish before 6 o'clock. I don't want to work overtime. Kazuma agreed, partly because he wanted to test out the ninjutsu he had just learned. Secondly, the gears of the plot have already started turning. During this period, Gojo Satoru is on a mission and is not in Tokyo Jujutsu High. Yuji, Megami, and Nobara should have received a mission by now. They need to go to Esha Juvenile Detention Center to carry out a rescue mission. But how could he give up the opportunity to spar with Sukuna? As time has passed, his personality has been affected because of the Mangekyo Sharingan to some extent, and the warmongering genes have taken root in his body. A desire to fight has gradually emerged in him. He hoped that Sukuna would not let him down. Hopefully, he can catch up in time after this assessment is completed. Several people arrived at the crime scene in Ijishi's luxury car. This was an abandoned construction site, which was now shrouded in black air. The surrounding area was already filled with yellow lines prohibiting entry. Ijishi straightened his glasses and said, according to preliminary investigations, a special-grade cursed spirit was born in this abandoned factory. The workers inside are in unknown condition, but I'm afraid they are in grave danger. As for the specific reason for the cursed spirit's birth, it is unknown. According to local residents, because of the endless exploitation by the boss, the workers' resentment gradually accumulated. After jumping off the building and dying, he turned into a special-grade cursed spirit. However, the strength of this special-grade cursed spirit is not that strong. It is suitable for Kazuma's assessment. After the introduction, Ijishi prepared to set up a curtain. Wait. Mei Mei interrupted Ijishi and looked at Kazuma. She said to Kazuma, since this is your test, set up a curtain in person. Kazuma stood there in a daze, his eyes blank. This is a bit embarrassing. It seems that he hasn't learned how to set up a curtain yet. It seems that Gojo Satoru has never taught him anything, and he let him do whatever he wanted almost the entire time. Kazuma, hurry and set it up. Wait, you don't even know how to set up a curtain. Nanami looked at Kazuma in disbelief. The others also looked at him in surprise. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 25. Kazuma helplessly shrugged. The others were shocked. Kazuma can kill a special grade cursed spirit alone, but he can't even set up a veil? If he becomes a teacher, what kind of commotion will he cause when he exorcises cursed spirits? They all knew Kazuma's power. He was probably among the upper echelon's first-grade sorcerers. But Mei Mei didn't think the same. After all, she had experienced Kazuma's unpredictable genjutsu. For her, calling Kazuma a special-grade sorcerer wouldn't be an exaggeration. Shiko stepped forward and made a gesture. She said, repeat after me. Emerge from the darkness, blacker than darkness. Purify that which is impure. Soon, under her guidance, Kazuma successfully set up a veil. The entire sky gradually darkened, and a black veil covered the abandoned factory, separating it from the outside world. In this way, now the outside world cannot see the situation inside. This is a necessary skill for a beginner sorcerer. It is used in order to avoid attracting attention when removing cursed spirits, which would cause panic among the people. Shiko smiled with satisfaction and said, not bad, you learned it in no time, much faster than I did back then. After setting up the veil, Ijishi left, and Kazuma and others entered the construction site. In an abandoned construction site, there were scattered steel bars and red bricks everywhere, with sharp claw marks on them. There was a pungent smell of blood coming from the front. When they got closer, they saw corpses everywhere, and not a single one was intact. On the high steel frames, numerous headless corpses were hanging, and blood was dripping down the rusty steel pipes. How could this be called a construction site? It was basically hell on earth. Even an experienced sorcerer like Mei Mei had never seen such a tragic scene. Shiko sighed and said, I'm afraid everyone on this construction site is dead. As a doctor, she had seen many injured sorcerers, but even so, she still couldn't help but shudder. She frowned and thought, can being exploited by the boss cause such a big resentment? But after thinking about it, she decided not to say it out loud. After all, her experience with cursed spirits was definitely not as much as Mei Mei and Nanami's. Kazuma sensed that something was wrong through his Sharingan. Perhaps it was the Sharingan's meticulous observation ability, but he could clearly observe the remaining cursed energy in the air. Although the amount was not much, the density of the cursed energy here was far greater than the time he had faced the human-faced worm last time. He guessed that this time, the special-grade cursed spirit might be much stronger than the one he had encountered before. To be on the safe side, he took out the gunbei from the Kamui dimension. Seeing this, Mei Mei smiled and said, why aren't you wearing the mask as well? You will look more mysterious if you match them together. Kazuma's mouth twitched and he said, I would feel stuffy. Mei Mei gave him a rather flirtatious look. What are you two talking about? I don't understand. Shiko and Nanami looked at the two with scrutinizing eyes. Mask? Mystery? Tisk tisk, there's something wrong with these two people. Seeing their puzzled reactions, Kazuma did not explain anything. Mei Mei and Nanami's reaction proved that Mei Mei had not told anyone else about what had happened that day. Mei Mei said, this is a secret between Kazuma and me. Don't worry about it. She put away her smile and said seriously, Kazuma, you will play the role of our teacher this time. You will be in charge of the situation we encounter later, and you can also instruct us. In short, please put yourself in the role of a teacher as soon as possible and protect the cute students who are crying out for help. As soon as Mei Mei finished speaking. Bang! A group of winged, crawler-like monsters fell down. Disgusting mucus dripped from the corners of their mouths. They stretched out their long forked tongues and pounced on Kazuma and the others. They were very fast and arrived in front of them in the blink of an eye. Whoosh! 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 Mei Mei and others frowned slightly, feeling that something was wrong. Judging from the fluctuations of cursed energy emitted by these cursed spirits, they were close to first-grade cursed spirits. In the past, when they went on a mission to exorcise special-grade cursed spirits, the cursed spirits they encountered along the way were at most grade 2. However, these cursed spirits before them were infinitely close to the level of first-grade cursed spirits. Mei Mei and the others did not make a move. This was Kazuma's test. They wanted to see how Kazuma would deal with these cursed spirits. He will probably use his weird space distortion technique, right? However, contrary to their expectations, Kazuma jumped up. He slowly rose into the sky, and looked at the dozen or so cursed spirits below. Under the puzzled gazes of the three people, he clapped his hands and puffed up his cheeks. His chakra gushed like spring, gathering in his throat. Fire release, great fire annihilation. A ball of red flame spewed out of his mouth. The moment the flame touched the air, it instantly expanded to 20 times its size. The flames instantly turned into a 100-meter-long sea of fire, instantly engulfing the cursed spirits below. The terrifying heat wave stung the skin of the people behind Kazuma. They felt like they were being burned by fire. Their pupils contracted and they quickly retreated. Mei Mei even stood in front and formed a blue barrier, thus resisting the aftermath. This move was Madara's famous skill. When Madara had used this move, it tooled the combined effort of thousands of ninjas using water release at the same time to barely resist it. Of course, Kazuma's current cursed energy reserve, chakra, was obviously nowhere near Madara's. But even so, the power behind his attack was terrifying. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 26. The fire release lasted for more than 10 seconds. Mei Mei and the others looked around, but they didn't see any trace of cursed spirits. The ground covered by flames was charred black, and a faint black smoke was rising from it. There was still a faint smell of burnt meat in the air, which should be coming from the cursed spirit. But soon, they were burned into slag by the continuous high temperature, leaving no ashes. HAAA. Kazuma slowly landed and breathed a sigh of relief. The feeling of using ninjutsu for the first time was pretty good, but his cheeks felt a little sore. Well, another point to note was that the amount of chakra required was too much. After all, he is not like Edo Tensei Madara who possessed almost unlimited chakra. It seems that he needs to practice more. Otherwise he won't be able to withstand such consumption. Feeling the remaining chakra in his body, Kazuma thought of Kakashi. Kazuma lowered his head and muttered to himself, if only I could obtain infinite chakra. Forget it, he shouldn't aim too high. Just take it step by step. Maybe there will be something like that in the subsequent mission rewards or the system store. Kazuma said, What are you guys standing there for? Keep moving forward. We haven't found the special grade cursed spirit yet. Besides, why are you all standing so far away? He looked at the three people who had retreated several dozen meters behind him and were blankly staring at him. As he finished speaking, they came back to their senses. Thinking back to the horrific scene that had happened just now, they still felt scared and took a deep breath. Mei Mei. Is he really just a first-grade sorcerer? Shiko held Mei Mei's arm and muttered. There were still a few tears in the corners of her eyes. She looked at Kazuma as if he was a monster. This was the first time she had seen Kazuma in action. At first, she had thought Kazuma was very capable. But at most, he was probably about the same as Nanami, and he might even be weaker than Mei Mei. But after this experience, she had a new understanding of Kazuma. He didn't even know how to set up a curtain just now, but in the blink of an eye, he unleashed such a terrifying flame? No. That was no longer a flame, but a sea of fire. Mei Mei didn't know how to answer at this moment. She slightly opened her red lips and stared at Kazuma with extremely complicated eyes. How many secrets does this kid still have? Or, what exactly is his cursed technique? Weird space technique, manipulating people's minds, genjutsus that are impossible to guard against, and now he even spewed a sea of fire from his mouth. And his physical skills are not inferior to her. Is he an all-rounder? Is there anything he can't do? Even Gojo Satoru wasn't this terrifying at this age, right? Looking back on that night, she felt really lucky. If Kazuma had wanted to kill her to silence her, could she have escaped from him? Tisk. That damn Yaga actually let her track and monitor such a terrifying person. Nanami, who was always calm, said, Mei Mei-san, is it just my illusion? I feel like I might not be able to defeat Kazuma. In his opinion, if such a large range of fire was used on himself, he would definitely not be able to avoid it completely. The consequences of being burned. T/N, bro is seeing his future, sad face. Mei Mei said, that's not a feeling, that's reality. Kazuma came in front of the three people and urged them, hey, stop being dazed, follow teacher. Let's kill the special grade cursed spirit. He has to hurry up. After all, he still has to fight Sukuna. At the same time, on a beautiful beach, a man wearing a blue plaid shirt, sunglasses and with stitches all over his face was lying leisurely on a bench, enjoying the sun. This person was Mahito. I really can't do anything about you. Didn't we agree to wait for Yago to arrive before acting together? The gentle voice of Geto Suguru, Kenjaku, sounded beside his ears. His tone showed that he was just teasing, and not blaming him. Mahito smiled and waved his hands. He casually said, "It's just a little fight before the main course begins. I just want to test how much power the most twisted and unlimited curse in the rumors can exert." Kenjaku said, "You want to know? You have a big appetite. Love is the most twisted curse." Kenjaku was very clear about this. After all, this body had lost to the power of pure love. Kenjaku lifted his chin and glanced at Mahito with expectation in his eyes. He said, "Forget it. I've been a bit bored lately. Let me see what kind of power love can exert. It would be even better if a few first-grade sorcerers could die. Then, Gojo Satoru would be forced to take action. Then, he would get a good opportunity to let Mahito and the others see how terrifying the man, who had changed the entire world of Jujutsu by himself was." Kenjaku looked at Mahito and said, "By the way, how did you create such a special grade cursed spirit?" Mahito said, "Haha, it actually has nothing to do with me. The worker was exploited by his boss, and the boss envied his beloved wife because of her beauty. So, she was assigned to a high-risk position that did not belong to her and unfortunately fell to her death. Ha ha ha. What do you think? The humans in this world are much scarier than cursed spirits, right?" Having said this, Mahito stood up, and faced the sea. He spread his arms, and let the sea breeze blow on his cheeks. His long blue hair fluttered in the wind. Filth, selfishness, jealousy, greed, too many things to list. They are not worthy of being the masters of this world. Geto, I feel that everything we do is just, and our existence is simply for justice. Kenjaku smiled knowingly and said, "So, what did you do?" Mahito said in a sinister tone, "I just wove a beautiful lie for that worker. For example, if he kills 100,000 people and collects their blood, he can revive his lover. Ha 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 ha. I'm such a kind-hearted genius." 40 advanced chapters on patreon.com/alex_1000. Comment. 3 comment. Vote. Chapter 27. Before they knew it, Kazuma and the others had reached the deepest part of the abandoned construction site. Along the way, Kazuma turned into a ruthless bulldozer, pushing forward all the way. Even a first-grade cursed spirit was killed in seconds. In front of them, a long blood-red line appeared on the ground. It was obvious that the red line was made up of the blood of a corpse. It seemed to be telling them that once they cross this line, they will enter hell. Seeing this, the three looked solemn. They could clearly feel that the fluctuations of cursed energy in the area within the red line was extremely violent and huge. Presumably, that special grade cursed spirit was just ahead. "Shoko, remember to follow closely, the fun is about to begin." After Mei Mei reminded Shoko, she looked at Kazuma and said, "We are about to fight the big boss. Teacher, you can direct the students. For example, positioning, coordination, etc. Does Kazuma-sensei have any ideas?" After Mei Mei's reminder, Kazuma remembered that the assessment also included teacher-student interaction. After some thought, Kazuma looked at the three people with a sly smile and said, "Then please stand at the back and watch the teacher." Without any hesitation, they crossed the red line drawn by blood. The moment they crossed the line, boom! Countless piercing screams sounded, and the sky changed from dark to blood red. Countless corpses were suspended in the sky, blood dripping down their arms. There were so many of them that it was as if a bloody rain was falling from the sky. In front of them, a worker's flesh and blood were torn apart, with only a skeleton left on his body. He was sitting high on the pile of corpses, with his head down in deep thought. How could they tell at a glance that he was a worker? Because he was wearing the yellow safety helmet that was unique to construction workers. Feeling the pressure emanating from him, Kazuma became thoughtful. Presumably, this is the special grade cursed spirit that Ijishi had described. He had transformed out of hatred due to the increasing exploitation by his boss. Is the area within the red line his living area? Judging from his aura alone, he seems to be much stronger than the special grade cursed spirit from last time. Mei Mei and the others became more solemn, and at the same time, they started guessing. This cursed spirit is very strong. The eyes of the special grade cursed spirit lit up and he said, "Sorcerers? Great. That gentleman once said that a sorcerer's flesh and blood is equivalent to 10,000 people." As he said this, he jumped down and stretched out his hands to count. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ha 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 ha. God is really helping me. 4 sorcerers. I am one step closer to reviving Momo. Come on, I beg you to offer your precious flesh and blood, please. Although there was almost no flesh on his face, everyone could still feel that his empty eyes were filled with extreme desire. Kazuma was speechless. Is this special grade curse spirit crazy? And why does Momo sound familiar? He seemed to have heard it somewhere before. When Mei Mei and the others heard what the cursed spirit said, their hearts sank. Shiko said solemnly, "Oh no. I've read Ijishi's analysis report, and Momo is the worker's wife." In other words, the reason why this special grade cursed spirit was born was not because of the boss's exploitation, but because of love. As she finished her words, Mei Mei tried to withdraw from the red line without any hesitation. But what greeted her was a bloody barrier. Love. Is it necessary to have such a big reaction just because the reason for the cursed spirit's birth has changed? Kazuma looked at the sudden changes in the reactions of the three people, especially Mei Mei. She is usually frivolous and casual, but she looked serious right now. Kazuma realized that the situation was not simple. Love? Kazuma seemed to remember something that Gojo Satoru had said. What's it called? Nanami seemed to see Kazuma's doubts and said, love is the most twisted and the most obsessive. The highest level of cursed spirits is special grade, but there are differences between special grades. Let's stop the assessment here. The two of us will work together to eliminate this special grade cursed spirit. Mei Mei will ensure Shiko's safety. Obviously, the three were very clear about this. Even if Gojo Satoru encountered a special grade cursed spirit born out of love, he would rather avoid it. Because, even if he were to eliminate it, it would take a lot of effort. Nanami and the others fully agreed with this. After all, Rika, who lives in Yuta's body, had also been born out of love. They had seen how powerful Rika was. Thankfully, the cursed spirit in front of them was not yet at that level. However, it was still definitely not something that could be dealt with one person alone. It can only be eliminated by joining forces. Besides, Shiko was not good at fighting. Her safety must not be threatened. After hearing what Nanami said, Kazuma remembered. No wonder he felt something was wrong from the moment he had come in. However, isn't this better for him? What's the point of killing a cursed spirit in 2 moves? There are actually 2 difficult guys. The special grade cursed spirit tapped the helmet on his head with his bony index finger, thinking. The difficult guys it was referring to were Mei Mei and Nanami. He felt like they could pose quite a threat to him. As for Kazuma, who had not yet revealed his Mangekyo Sharingan, he did not take him seriously. Not to mention the female doctor in the white coat. Moreover, judging from their performance, the doctor seemed to be very important to them. Hey. He let out an evil laugh and already had a plan in mind. Comment. 3 comment. Vote. Chapter 28. In the solemn gazes of Mei Mei and others, the special grade cursed spirit put both hands in front of his chest, forming a special gesture. Deep and hoarse voices came from all directions and penetrated deep into their mind. Domain expansion, graveyard of eternity. Mei Mei and the other felt as if they were trapped in absolute darkness. Tick-tock. With the sound of water drops falling, ripples appeared in the dark area. Then, the bloody sky reappeared. Countless skeletons emerged from under the feet of the special grade cursed spirit and instantly filled the area. These skeletons regarded the special grade cursed spirit as their king. They built stairs from their body, sending the special grade cursed spirit to the bone throne at the highest point of the domain. Mei Mei, Nanami, and Shiko's pupils contracted violently. Domain, expansion? This special grade cursed spirit actually has a domain? Although this domain is still in its infancy and many areas are not yet perfect, it is still difficult to deal with. This time, the information was extremely inaccurate. They never expected that this time they would actually encounter a cursed spirit with its own domain. Mei Mei frowned. This is bad. This cursed spirit is already difficult to deal with, and now they are even trapped in its domain. She raised her giant axe and stopped Shiko behind her. She said, Shiko, be sure to hide behind me. At this moment, a crisp sound of a lighter was heard. Shiko lit a cigarette, exhaled a long breath, and said calmly, why is it so troublesome? You 3 should ignore me for now. It should be easy to surround and kill this cursed spirit, right? Don't really think of me as a weak woman. Both her expression and tone were relaxed, but anyone who knew her would know that she was just pretending. When Shiko is extremely nervous or sad, she subconsciously lights a cigarette. Kazuma looked at the scene in the domain with excitement. Is this a domain? This was the first time he was witnessing a domain. It's really oppressive. Killing it should earn him a lot of points, right? The special grade curse spirit sat on the throne in the sky and laughed crazily. He said, you are right. If you all join forces to besiege me, even in the domain, I will have a hard time. But don't forget, this is my territory. Bone hand. With a roar, the countless bones in the area combined into a large hand, and slapped Mei Mei and Nanami. The domain user has a 100% hit rate within their domain. Bang. This attack knocked the 2 people out of the range. The special grade cursed spirit opened his jaw to an odd degree. He looked at Kazuma and Shiko as if he was looking at prey. Ha ha ha. Those 2 troublesome people are gone. Now, it's hunting time. Outside the domain. Bang. A fierce attack slammed heavily onto the blood-colored barrier. Mei Mei and Nanami, one holding a giant axe and the other holding a long knife, frantically attacked the domain of the special grade cursed spirit. They looked extremely solemn. Damn it. This is bad. This cursed spirit is so unethical. Originally, if the 3 of them had joined forces, they would definitely be able to kill this special grade cursed spirit. But who could have thought that this special grade cursed spirit would actually repel them from his domain? And he deliberately left behind the seemingly weak Kazuma and the weak-looking Shiko? Nanami's face looked extremely heavy. The domain of a special grade cursed spirit cannot be broken in a short period of time. As a rookie, Kazuma is definitely unfamiliar with domains, and it is unknown whether he can hold on until they can provide support. As for Shiko. Thinking of this, he clenched his fists. That special grade cursed spirit has a 100% hit rate within his domain and he will definitely aim at Shiko. Therefore, he could hardly think of the possibility of Shiko's survival. No, this is not the solution. I'll call the college and ask them to send a special grade cursed tool over. Only in this way can the domain be broken quickly. Mei Mei nodded seriously and increased the intensity of her attack. Of course, her main concern was Shiko's safety. As for Kazuma, She has seen his full power and knew that nothing should happen to him. But if the cursed spirit uses Shiko to restrict Kazuma, it will be troublesome. Tokyo Jujutsu High. Inside the principal's office. Ring. Ring. Yaga picked up the phone irritatingly. But when he saw that the caller was Nanami, he became a little confused. Why is he calling at this hour? After all these years of being together, he knew a thing or two about Nanami. 9 out of 10 times, Nanami would call to complain about why he had to work overtime again. Yaga looked at the time. Isn't it just past 4 o'clock? Is he already thinking about leaving and getting off work? There is Mei Mei who only asks for money, Nanami who refuses to work overtime, and Kazuma who has just come recently for free food and accommodation. Such a hassle. But he answered the phone immediately and said calmly, "Hello, it's not time to get off work yet, Nanami. An accident happened. Listen to me carefully." A magnetic male voice came from the other end of the phone. A few minutes later, Yaga hung up the phone with a dull expression. Bang. He broke his desk. Ijishi. Come here. Following his roar, Ijishi, who was guarding the door, immediately walked in with his body bent. Although he didn't know why the principal was suddenly so angry, he just bowed his head. The information is wrong. That special grade cursed spirit was born out of love. Ijishi's pupils shrank sharply. With just one sentence, he immediately understood. It's over. This intelligence error might implicate the entire auxiliary supervisory department. Yaga threw a key and said, "Send a special grade cursed tool to them right now. Speed up." Yes. Principal. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 29. After Ijishi left, Yaga collapsed and scratched his head. This is just nonsense. It would be fine if these people just assessed Kazuma, but they even brought Shiko into the fun. Why do they have to roleplay as teacher and students? It would be alright if everything went fine, but things have taken a wrong turn now. The more he thought about it, the more panicked he became. It would be fine if this cursed spirit was just born out of love, but the outrageous thing was that it actually even had a domain. Now, Kazuma and Shiko are imprisoned inside. One is in danger, the other. Why? Yaga let out a long sigh, and at this moment, he seemed to have aged a little. Shiko is as important as Gojo Satoru. A strategic treasure of the entire Jujutsu world. If something unexpected happens, he can say goodbye to his job as the principal. Even if the higher UPS skin him alive, that would be the least of his worries. This was the second time he had become so flustered. The first time was when Geto Suguru betrayed him. Oh, if only Gojo Satoru were here. Within the domain. The special grade cursed spirit smiled evilly. Originally, his intention was to kill all 4 of them, but after feeling the power of Mei Mei and Nanami, he felt that the cake was too big to be eaten in one go. If his appetite is too big, he might even die of overeating. So, he decisively gave up and only kept these 2 weaklings here. He was going to reunite with the Momo, so how could he put himself at risk? Shiko looked in the direction where Mei Mei and Nanami were sent flying just now with a panicked look on her face. Damn it. She didn't expect this cursed spirit to be so cunning. Did he deliberately leave her and Kazuma to use her to restrict Kazuma? She glanced at Kazuma, who was expressionless and gritted her teeth. She said, "Kazuma, the priority is to exorcise this cursed spirit. With Kazuma's strength, if he concentrates on fighting this cursed spirit, he may have a chance of winning." She didn't want to be a burden. As for her own safety, well, let's just leave it to fate. Looking back on her life over the years, she has basically spent all of it in the infirmary, busy from morning to night. What is the purpose of this? Is it her duty as a sorcerer? She seems to have never lived for herself. Kazuma certainly knew what Shiko meant. However, this cursed spirit seemed to have made some mistakes. It seemed like he was being looked down upon. Kazuma took a step forward, and his lips curled up slightly. He said, "Hey, figure out the roles of hunter and prey. I'm the hunter." Suddenly, his originally black pupils glowed with scarlet blood, and the Mangekyo pattern slowly turned in his eyes. This faint light was so dazzling that it made the originally red sky look dim and colorless. Boom. The heart of the special grade cursed spirit seemed to have been hit by a sledgehammer. Just looking into those eyes was like having an icy sharp blade placed at one's neck, ready to take one's life at any moment. The special grade cursed spirit involuntarily took a step back. Is this an illusion? No. He will not fall under this kind of death threat. Unexpectedly, this weak-looking guy is the strongest. I'll devour her first, and then I'll fight you. After saying this, his skeleton-like body collapsed, and the bones not far from Shiko's feet began to stir. In the blink of an eye, it condensed into the body of the special grade cursed spirit. In this area full of bones, he can reorganize himself at any time, any place, changing into any form. A sharp sword condensed from bones stabbed towards Shiko. "Kazuma, now is the time to attack the cursed spirit." After saying that, Shiko closed her eyes. Her pretty face became tense, and she almost forgot how to breathe. At the same time, she silently activated the reverse curse technique. Hopefully, she could tank a few hits and give Kazuma a chance to attack. Hey! After the expected pain did not come, she carefully opened one eye. Shoko saw that the cursed spirit's bone sword had stopped 10 centimeters away from her heart. Moreover, the cursed spirit's entire body was fixed in place, and he was not moving at all. One could even see that his face was filled with fear. As if he was enduring great pain. She looked at Kazuma with a shocked look and asked, is this a technique that freezes the body? How does Kazuma know so many techniques? Kazuma walked up slowly and took out a lollipop from the Kamui dimension. Then he smiled and took out the cigarette from Shiko's mouth and replaced it with a lollipop. During this process, Shoko did not resist at all and allowed Kazuma to replace her cigarette. Kazuma said, "That's right, girls look better when they don't smoke." Looking at Shiko, who was motionless and still in a daze, Kazuma was speechless. "I didn't use genjutsu on you. Why do you look like you've been frozen?" After saying this, Shiko's tense body finally relaxed. She licked the sweet lollipop, and asked, "You just said that it was controlled by a genjutsu." She looked at Kazuma in disbelief. "Yet." Kazuma nodded slightly, and his Sharingan turned again. The knife that the special grade cursed spirit had originally tried to stab Shiko with slowly retracted. Then, under Shiko's shocked gaze, he suddenly stabbed back into his body. Snap! His hard white ribs broke, and then he stabbed himself several more times. The cursed spirit's body made of skeletons began to gradually crumble. This. Shiko was extremely shocked to see the actions of the cursed spirit in front of her. The cursed spirit that wanted to kill her 1 second ago, swung the sword at himself the next second? And all this is because of the genjutsu that Kazuma mentioned? What kind of genjutsu is so powerful? Can Kazuma actually forcefully control a special grade cursed spirit to commit suicide? Isn't this too overbearing? She looked at Kazuma with her beautiful brown eyes and asked, "Why did the cursed spirit seem so happy just now? It's like he had succeeded?" Kazuma explained with a smile, "Naturally, he is immersed in a world of genjutsu. The scene he saw was roughly successfully devouring you, then finally killing me, and resurrecting his wife. Tell me, how could he not be happy?" Shiko's beautiful eyes flickered and she exclaimed, "So outrageous." Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 30. Kazuma shook his head. This was just an ordinary genjutsu. If he could obtain Tsukuyomi, or even infinite Tsukuyomi, that would be outrageous. The biggest reason why this special grade cursed spirit could be controlled by him for so long was because of itself. Simply put, it is immersed in the beautiful world of genjutsu and cannot extricate itself. Love is twisted, so the cursed spirits that are born due to love are usually very powerful. But their obsessions are very strong, so they are most affected by genjutsu. Kazuma waved the gunbei in his hand and said, "Okay, the beautiful dream is over, and the nightmare is about to begin." Bang! The skeleton cursed spirit was instantly shattered, and its bones flew everywhere. However, the domain was still not lifted. This showed that this special grade cursed spirit was not dead. In the distance, the bones on the ground regrouped and took on their original shape. It looked at its hands in disbelief and murmured, "Fake? Where's my Momo?" Then he reacted immediately. "You lied to me. Asshole, you dare to use Momo to deceive me. Unforgivable." Suddenly, countless bones in the area converged towards it like a rushing river. They pieced together to form various parts of the cursed spirit's body. Soon, a huge skeleton appeared before their eyes. Looking at the huge skeleton in front of him, Kazuma's eyes were burning, and the blood in his body was boiling. It just so happens that Madara's treasured ninjutsu scroll also includes his taijutsu inheritance. Moreover, through the last automatic physical training card, Kazuma can now open the 4th gate. He put away his gunbei and formed a seal with his hands. Gate of Pain, open. Boom. A violent air current emerged, and green energy attached to his body like a burning flame. A terrifying airflow lifted his black hair and robe high up. At this moment, his physical attributes had increased by over 10 times. Shiko raised her hand to cover her face. Kazuma's back was reflected in her clear pupils. Kazuma's body was much smaller than the huge skeleton. However, in her mind, his figure was extremely tall and gave her a sense of security. The special grade cursed spirit only felt a flash before its eyes, as if a black afterimage had flashed by. Kazuma had disappeared out of thin air? Just when it was wondering. Bang! A loud muffled sound appeared behind its head, and its body, which was made up of countless bones, was hit by this huge force and staggered forward a few steps. Then, before it could react, a red, ferocious face came into its view. This is youth. A more powerful whip kick swept across. Bang! Countless broken bones flew everywhere. The special grade cursed spirit was kicked into the air, its dark green pupils filled with doubts. What? How could his big body be kicked straight up into the sky by that tiny sorcerer? However, things were far from over. Kazuma moved so fast that he turned into a shooting star. He used his fists and feet to madly attack the body of the special grade cursed spirit. Boom! Each blow sounded like the roar of an ancient bell. Shiko couldn't find words to describe the shock she was feeling. This was the first time she had seen someone beat up a cursed spirit so ruthlessly in its own domain. Looking at the entire world of Jujutsu, Kazuma is probably the only one who can do this, besides Gojo Satoru, right? But does this really still fall within the realm of martial arts? Which martial art is so powerful? Perhaps even the previous tyrant, Toji, wasn't at this level, right? The huge body of the special grade cursed spirit fell on various parts of the barrier like a cannonball. At this moment, it was stunned and had no power to fight back. The parts of his body kept falling off, and it had already been torn to pieces. At the same time, outside the domain, the blood-red barrier of the domain continued to emit violent ripples, as if a huge hammer was hitting the barrier. Mei Mei and Nanami felt the huge ripples in the field. How intense is the battle for there to be such a big commotion? Even they, who were outside the domain could feel it. Just now, they seemed to have vaguely heard Kazuma's roar. This made the two even more worried. It seems that Kazuma is in a tough fight and has been forced into a desperate situation where he has to use all his strength. Kazuma always gave them the impression of being calm and composed. Judging from the current situation, things are not looking optimistic. As for Shiko's safety, the two no longer dared to think about it. Now, all they can do is wait for the school to deliver the special grade cursed tool as soon as possible. Within the domain, Kazuma's kick hit the special grade cursed spirit in the abdomen. Boom. The cursed spirit's huge body fell heavily to the ground, motionless. Kazuma fell to Shiko's side, his chest heaving up and down heavily. Shiko's beautiful eyes flickered as she covered her red lips. She asked, is it over? No, but soon it will be. Kazuma looked at the cursed spirit lying on the ground. Its broken jaw made it difficult for it to make any sound. But Kazuma knew that it was calling for his former wife, Momo. If it were any other cursed spirit, it would have died long ago after being beaten so severely by him. But it seemed as if there was some kind of obsession that kept this cursed spirit from falling. The outer skeleton of the cursed spirit was almost completely broken, but the inner parts weren't destroyed. The power of love is indeed strong. Momo, Momo. Don't worry, I will definitely revive you. No one can stop us from reuniting. In the distance, the dying cursed spirit was muttering to itself. Kazuma smiled bitterly and shook his head. He said, why do I feel like I'm the villain? This is such a touching love story. Shiko sighed slightly and said, go ahead and finish it. Mei Mei and the others must be worried about us. Just when she had finished speaking, the cursed spirit actually supported its broken body and stood up. Its broken jaws opened and closed as it said, let me show you what pure love is. Title Bone Surge. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 31. Title Bone Surge. Boom. Following its angry roar, all the bones in the area rose into the air and gathered behind it. The densely packed bones formed a rushing sea of bones. It seemed like they could wash away everything. Then, the special grade cursed spirit roared again. Fight for your life. Kneel and kill. After saying that, the special grade cursed spirit in the distance actually knelt down on both knees in front of Kazuma and Shoko. Under the two people's puzzled gazes, he slowly lowered his head. Boom. The skull head kowtowed heavily to the ground, and the entire area shook, as if it was wailing for its master's impending death. Kazuma and Shiko felt an invisible force locking their feet. They couldn't move. What the hell is this ability? It can actually restrict the enemy's movements and force them to face the sea of bones? Feeling his feet unable to break free, Kazuma looked a little surprised. Through the Sharingan, he could clearly see that each bone was attached with a lot of cursed energy, and it was quite powerful. If he takes it head-on, he'll probably suffer a lot. Kazuma sighed. Even though DHI cursed spirit was on the verge of death, it was still able to launch such a terrifying attack. Shiko looked at the sea of bones behind the special grade cursed spirit in shock. The terrifying pressure made it difficult for her to breathe. In addition, since his movements were restricted, even Kazuma had no chance of escaping. Are they going to die? Thinking of this, Shoko looked determined. She put her hands on Kazuma's back, and prepared to use all her strength to activate the reverse curse technique. Since she had no chance of survival, she must do her best to save Kazuma's life. However, she didn't know whether Kazuma could withstand the final attack of the cursed spirit even with her reverse curse technique. What are you doing, Shiko-san? Feeling a slight push on his back, Kazuma turned around in confusion. Shiko looked at him with determination and said, don't leave the range of my hands. I will do my best to heal you and help you survive this wave of attack. Her sudden set of operations left Kazuma confused. After a while, he reacted. Does Shoko want to sacrifice herself to save his life? Kazuma felt a warm feeling arise in his heart. Shoko doesn't seem to know about his Kamui. So, this was understandable. This powerful move of the curse spirit couldn't do anything to him at all. But this time he did not intend to use Kamui. He wanted to try out the ninjutsu he had just learned. Kazuma put his hand on Shiko's shoulder and said with a faint smile, just in case, you can hide in my Kamui dimension first. Kamui. Wait. What dimension? Shiko looked at Kazuma with some confusion. However, before Kazuma could reply, a vortex appeared from his shoulder. Then, the vortex twisted and actually sucked her in. Ah! Shiko only had time to scream before completely disappearing from the spot. At the same time, all the bones in the area gathered behind the cursed spirit. The cursed spirit kneeling on the ground suddenly moved. It raised its broken head to the highest point with difficulty and then kowtowed with all its strength. Boom! The huge sea of bones behind it swallowed Kazuma like a raging wave. If an ordinary first-grade sorcerer was in Kazuma's place, they would probably die. However, Kazuma grinned and clapped his hands. Water release, great waterfall technique. In an instant, an extremely turbulent waterfall emerged from under Kazuma's feet, layer after layer, and the range continued to expand. Finally, a huge and overwhelming wave was formed. Kazuma stood above the water. He seemed to feel that this was not enough, so he continued to make hand seals. Water release, water dragon bullet technique. Roar. Thick water pillars suddenly rose up and then condensed into an extremely huge water dragon. Its body was made entirely of water, but it seemed to have life as it roared. A sound akin to that of glass shattering resounded in the area. Various gaps appeared in the domain. Through the gap, a little light refracted inside from the outside world. Kazuma slowly raised his arms, like a god in charge of heaven and earth. Boom! The overwhelming waves and the huge water dragon rushed towards the surging sea of bones. Outside the domain, Ijishi hurriedly arrived with a group of assistant supervisors. Behind him, a man and a woman were holding two ancient wooden boxes respectively. Quick! Take Playful Cloud and Dragon Bone to Mei Mei and Nanami. Playful Cloud is a 3-section staff, and completely red in color. It doesn't have any cursed energy and is purely used for physical attacks. Dragon Bone is a black knife that absorbs kinetic energy and cursed energy to release a super strong thrust through the 3 holes on the back of the knife. Special grade cursed tools are extremely precious, and it is usually impossible to take them out. However, this time the situation was special. After saying this, Ijishi half knelt on the ground, breathing heavily. It was not because he was too tired. After all, as an auxiliary supervisor, his physical fitness was far superior to that of ordinary people. It was mainly due to the extreme tension in his heart. Although he was not personally involved in the intelligence investigation, as the captain, he could not escape blame. If something unexpected happens to Kazuma and Shiko, the consequences will be unimaginable. Mei Mei took Playful Cloud with a serious expression, while Nanami held the dragon bone in his hand. The two looked at each other and nodded. Then, they bent their knees, preparing to launch an attack on the red domain barrier. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 32. Seeing this scene, the assistant supervisor at the back tactfully stepped back. The power of a full-strength attack from 2 first-grade sorcerers holding special-grade cursed tools at the same time must be enormous. Come on, you two. My life depends on you. Ijishi was so nervous that he had difficulty breathing. So much time has already passed. The situation inside is probably dire. But Ijishi didn't dare to think about it. Just when Mei Mei and Nanami's full-strength attack was about to touch the domain barrier. Click. Cracks began to appear in the barrier. The cracks spread rapidly, and the originally intact domain shattered into fragments. Bang! The red domain barrier exploded instantly. A huge wave of water poured out, instantly submerging the entire abandoned construction site. Mei Mei and Nanami's pupils contracted and they quickly retreated. But the auxiliary supervisors behind them were not so lucky. Fortunately, some clever ones managed to climb up the tall steel frame. The other, who failed to react, were washed away to different corners of the construction site. Fortunately, this water wave only had residual power and did not cause any danger. However, most people were soaked. When the flood stopped, everyone was stunned, and looked at each other. What the hell is going on? Why would a domain explosion produce such a turbulent flood? I heard that this special grade cursed spirit has a domain. Do you think this water was caused by it? I think it's possible. Several assistant supervisors discussed the matter. Only Mei Mei and Nanami stared at the place where the domain was broken with serious eyes. The domain of that special grade cursed spirit was related to bones, so this flood should have nothing to do with it. So that means... Roar. A terrifying dragon roar resounded through the sky, and its terrifying power made many weaker people go limp. Everyone looked up at the sky in horror. They saw a huge water dragon hovering in the sky. Its body was entirely made of water. It looked around with disdain as if it had life. Everyone was frozen in place. They stared at the water dragon hovering in the sky with some fear. What the hell is going on here? A legendary dragon has appeared. At this moment, outside the abandoned construction site, the dry streets had turned into a river, and all the trees had been uprooted. Fortunately, this area had long been isolated and no ordinary people were here. However, the residents of nearby buildings in the distance were no longer calm. Some were extremely excited, some were extremely shocked, and some even worshipped. Even from a distance, they could see a huge dragon appear in the sky. Holy crap! I actually saw a dragon circling in the sky. I told you. This world is not as simple as we think. What is going on? Is the dragon god going to punish us? No. It could be a mirage. Either way, take a picture first. Countless people raised their mobile phones to take pictures. At this moment, in the abandoned construction site, bang! A finger snap sounded. The sound was not loud, but it reached everyone's ears. The huge water dragon in the sky suddenly exploded with the snap, and water poured down from the sky like a rainstorm. Seeing this scene, everyone stood there like petrified statues. The water dragon, just disappeared like that? With just a snap of fingers. This means that this water dragon was created. When these words were spoken, everyone became shocked. This assistant supervisor was right. A terrifying water dragon was shattered with a snap of fingers. There was only one possibility, this dragon was created. Is it that special grade cursed spirit? Or the new talent, Kazuma? If all this was really done by Kazuma, then that's too outrageous, right? Shiko's curse technique was no secret, so everyone excluded her immediately. When the water completely dissipated, a beautiful figure appeared in front. A broken skull face was next to her feet. At this moment, it still opened its jaw tirelessly, murmuring, but it could not make any sound. Its excitement could not be concealed in those dim green pupils. Shiko knew that Kazuma had used a genjutsu. Now, in its eyes, the cursed spirit was seeing his wife waving at him with a smile, and they were walking hand in hand towards the light. Thanks. After the cursed spirit finished speaking, the light in his pupils completely dimmed. His head turned into a wisp of black smoke and dissipated from the world. Shoko knew that this thank you was addressed to Kazuma. Shoko? It's Shoko. I'm so glad she's okay. There wasn't even a trace of injury in Shoko's body. Ijishi almost jumped with joy, and the other assistant supervisors also breathed a sigh of relief. But soon, they discovered that something was wrong. Why is she alone? Where's Kazuma? A bad premonition spread in their hearts. Could it be that Kazuma fought a desperate battle with the special grade cursed spirit to protect Shiko, and they both died in the end? That makes sense. Shiko, who is not good at fighting, was trapped in the domain of the special grade cursed spirit, but she didn't suffer any injuries at all. Apart from Kazuma risking his life to save her, they could not think of any other possibility. Mei Mei and Nanami both looked solemn and walked ahead with uneasy hearts. Everyone stared at the place where the special grade cursed spirit had just dissipated and fell into deep thought. In their minds, they had already imagined a brutal battle. Mei Mei squatted down, and looked at the abandoned construction site filled with running water. She said in a low voice, in order to protect Shiko, he was willing to sacrifice his own life. He has such a strong power, but... Mei Mei recalled her previous conversation with Kazuma in the underground laboratory. Kazuma had said that he had his own aspirations, but he could guarantee that he would never cause any harm to the sorcerers of Jujutsu High. But now, it's more than just not causing any harm. He even sacrificed his life to save Shiko. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 33. Mei Mei forced a smile and said, what a fascinating little guy. Nanami sighed and said, don't worry. Jujutsu High will always remember Kazuma. Hearing this, everyone lowered their heads, as if they were mourning for Kazuma. Just then. What are you talking about? Kazuma is fine. Shiko looked at the strange behavior of the crowd and asked, did you guys misunderstand something? After she said that, everyone looked at Shiko in shock. Mei Mei's eyes lit up and she said, Shoko, are you saying Kazuma is fine? What happened? Facing everyone's expectant gazes, Shiko helplessly held her forehead. What an irresponsible guy. He released her from that strange place and ran away. Shiko patiently told the details of what had happened. A few minutes later. What? You mean Kazuma was suppressing the special grade cursed spirit almost the entire time? He was very relaxed. And the flood and the dragon just now were also Kazuma's doing. Everyone gasped and looked at Shiko with shocked eyes. Kazuma, has he become this strong? Shiko nodded with a lingering feeling. Thinking back on it again, she still found it a little unbelievable. She had never expected Kazuma to be so strong. Although she was in the Kamui dimension, and did not see Kazuma's final move, there was no doubt that this was another one of Kazuma's techniques. How many new techniques does this guy know? Mei Mei then asked, where is he now? At this time, everyone turned their eyes to Shiko. Since it was an easy victory, where is Kazuma now? Shiko scratched her head. After a while of thinking, her eyes lit up, and she suddenly remembered something. She said, Kazuma said that Yuji was in trouble and he wanted to fight with Sukuna again. Kazuma had left in a hurry. After releasing her from the Kamui dimension, he had left after leaving a brief sentence. As soon Shoko finished speaking, the whole audience fell silent. Fight Sukuna? Is he crazy? He just killed a special grade cursed spirit and he is still not satisfied. Now, he wants to fight Sukuna? That's the king of curses from thousands of years ago. But soon, they realized something. Isn't Sukuna in Yuji's body? How did Kazuma know Yuji would be in trouble? Idiot. Now is not the time to worry about how Kazuma knew this. If what he said about Sukuna taking over Yuji is true, the consequences will be disastrous. Megami, Yuji, and Nobara are all in danger. Nanami looked at Ijishi and said seriously, in that case, it is necessary to go there. Mei Mei calmly said, Ijishi, you should know where Yuji and the others are carrying out their mission. Lead the way. Ijishi said, yes. Mei Mei-san. When performing tasks, assistant supervisors should follow the sorcerer's arrangements. What's more, this is a very important matter. Not good. Nanami suddenly realized something. His face slightly changed, and he said in a deep voice, before that, let's leave behind a group of people for clearing memories. The curtain has been breached. Kazuma's water dragon was so huge that the residents nearby might have discovered it. Immediately mobilize your connections, contact other department, find some reliable and authoritative experts, and write an article to refute the rumors. After all, such supernatural phenomena can cause quite a bit of panic. Esha Juvenile Detention Center. The situation was extremely critical. Bang. With a loud bang, the thick stone wall instantly collapsed. Yuji's body flew backwards, almost smashing through the wall behind him. His eyes rolled back, his face was covered in blood, and his right palm had been cut off. Blood splattered all over the ground. The smoke cleared, and a terrifying creature slowly walked over. Its skin was dark blue, its muscles were well developed and it contained terrifying power. Its body only wrapped in a loincloth. Hearing the sound of its footsteps, Yuji suddenly opened his eyes and forced himself to regain consciousness. He tore off a piece of cloth and tied it around his broken right hand to prevent excessive blood loss. Ha! Even my breathing is starting to tremble. Yuji endured the severe pain and stared at the special grade cursed spirit in front of him. Stay calm, stay calm. This cursed spirit looked much smaller than the human-faced worm he had seen in Roppongi last time. However, just from the sense of oppression, it was obvious that it was much more powerful. What should he do? What would Kazuma do if he were here? No. With his strength, he wouldn't need to think so much. Even if he couldn't win, his life wouldn't be in danger. Strength. He is still too weak. However, the special grade cursed spirit in front of him would not give Yuji any chance to continue thinking. It wanted to kill the ant in front of it in the most horrific and painful way, so as to satisfy its heart. Its hands spread out, and a terrifying golden airflow rushed towards Yuji. Boom. The black floor tiles were violently overturned by the strong airflow. For a while, broken stones and bricks flew everywhere, and the terrifying wind blew so hard that Yuji couldn't even breathe. It was like a degraded version of Shinra Tensei. Yuji stretched out his right hand and broken left arm. He made a barrier, and resisted with all his might. But the cursed energy he could currently mobilize was too far behind that of the special grade cursed spirit. The skin and flesh on his face were flying, tears were dripping from the corners of his eyes, and the saliva flying from the corners of his mouth evaporated under this terrifying airflow. It hurts. It hurts. It hurts. So uncomfortable. At this moment, he was enduring pain that was difficult for ordinary people to understand. If it weren't for his special physique, he would have died long ago. Even though death was right in front of him, his mind couldn't help but recall Sukuna's finger. He felt regretful. If he hadn't picked up that damn finger. If he hadn't eaten that. Maybe the series of events would not have happened. Maybe, it would be better if he didn't exist. Comment. 3 comment. Vote. Chapter 34. Don't even think about it, Yuji. Yuji roared ferociously to cheer himself up. He glanced at the dark passage behind him. Megami has gone to rescue Nobara. His mission is almost complete. After Megami and Nobara get to safety, he can be free. Yuji's consciousness gradually blurred. He collapsed to the ground, and black lines gradually appeared on his face. Then, Yuji's body disappeared. The cursed spirit who wanted to kill Yuji suddenly froze in place. Where is that ant? The ant that was lying on the ground, waiting to be slaughtered suddenly disappeared? Suddenly. An indifferent voice sounded near it. Is that brat treating me as a tool? The humanoid cursed spirit suddenly turned sideways. This was still the same ant, but why was it so scared? Every cell in its body was trembling. The poor cursed spirit had not yet realized that the role of ant had quietly changed. No. Facing the king of curses from 1,000 years ago, this cursed spirit might not even qualify as an ant. Sukuna ignored the shocked cursed spirit and just stroked his chin and said, "Humph, they brat wants me to clean up his mess." Suddenly, Sukuna grinned evilly and said, "In that case, I will kill that brat's other 2 companions. Especially that energetic wild woman, she should be able to bring him a lot of fun, right? What kind of expression will this little brat show at that time?" Sukuna patted the cursed spirit on the shoulder, and the cursed spirit's entire body shuddered. Its body immediately straightened, and cold sweat dripped from all over his body. "Follow me, let's kill those 2 sorcerers." Sukuna waved, put his hands in his pockets, and walked forward. The humanoid cursed spirit was very frightened at this moment, but its anger overshadowed its fear. How dare this ant order it around like this? It put its hands together, and condensed a terrifying energy ball in front of its chest, and smashed it towards Sukuna. "Hey?" Sukuna's eyes slightly slanted and he said, "Idiot." Then he took out his broken left hand from his pocket and instantly restored it with the help of reverse cursed energy. Then, he easily blocked the incoming energy ball. With a slight force from his 5 fingers, he annihilated the energy ball. Tisk, I actually helped him heal his broken hand subconsciously, so annoying. The humanoid cursed spirit involuntarily took a step back, and a look of fear appeared in its eyes again. How is this possible? He actually caught my attack with his hands. And he wasn't even hurt? Sukuna glanced at it and said, "Since you don't like walking, stay here forever." After saying that, his figure suddenly disappeared. Then, he grabbed the cursed spirit's head with his hand and exerted slight force. Boom. The special grade humanoid cursed spirit was knocked away by an irresistible force. Its whole body was deeply embedded in a wall. In a dim corridor, a beautiful figure kept moving around, swinging a hammer with a pink heart engraved on it. "Get out of my way, bastard." Nobara used all her strength to launch a resonance attack that pierced through the body of a cursed spirit. Ha, ha. She put one hand on her waist and tried to support her exhausted body. Looking at the cursed spirits that were surrounding her from all sides, she spat out a mouthful of saliva mixed with blood. Ever since she had been engulfed in this strange black space, she had been surrounded by these cursed spirits. "I only have 1 nail left, and my cursed energy is almost exhausted." The number of cursed spirits. Looking at the countless cursed spirits around her, a feeling of powerlessness arose in her heart. Why is this happening again? She is being surrounded by cursed spirits again. How abominable. She can't die here. She hasn't met Sayori yet. There are still so many streets in Tokyo that she hasn't visited yet. She hasn't bought the new bag that is about to be released, and she hasn't watched that trending movie yet. Most importantly, she hasn't taken revenge on that nasty Kazuma yet. He actually told her to call him boss, and even dared to bully Maki-senpai. Last time, after Maki finished sparring with Kazuma, Maki brought back 2 sets of Akatsuki uniform. After the 2 women talked to each other, Nobara learned the general process of how Maki was recruited into the Akatsuki. "What are you doing over there? Do you think I'm afraid of this thing? I'll chop you up and feed you to the dogs." Nobara somehow gained strength and prepared to charge into the group of cursed spirits. Just then, Space twisted and distorted, and a pair of slender hands stretched out from the vortex and landed on her shoulders. Ah! Ghost! The sudden appearance of the hand scared Nobara so much that she almost jumped up. The iron hammer that was originally being swung at the cursed spirit suddenly smashed backwards. Kazuma held Nobara's wrist and slowly walked out of the whirlpool with a smile on his face. He said, Nobara, it feels like a long time has passed since I have last seen you. Nobara rolled her eyes at him and asked, why did you appear there? And you appeared out of nowhere and scared me. Seeing Kazuma, Nobara knew that her crisis was over. She sat down on the ground with a sigh of relief. It looks she has been saved by this guy again. Now, she owes him 2 favors. How is she going to repay him in the future? Kazuma didn't take the cursed spirits around him seriously at all. As Kazuma appeared, these cursed spirits stopped attacking. They were sizing up Kazuma, who had frightened them. Kazuma said, you've suffered a lot, right? I told you to wear Akatsuki's uniform but you didn't. Otherwise I would have arrived here a long time ago. Kazuma had deliberately left a mark on the Akatsuki's uniform. He teleported to Nobara's Akatsuki uniform. As a result, he teleported to the closet in her room. Finally, relying on his memory and numerous attempts, he found this place. Nobara complained, that dress is too loose, it doesn't show my figure at all. Figure. Kazuma speechlessly looked at Nobara's slightly bulging chest muscles. 40 advanced chapters on patreon.com/alex_1000. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 35. Hey. What do you mean by that expression? Feeling unconvinced, Nobara stood up with her hands on her hips. She straightened her body, trying to prove her worth. Kazuma coughed and said, okay, let's deal with these cursed spirits first. After saying this, he clapped his hands together and formed a hand seal. Fire release, great fireball technique. Blazing flames spewed out of his mouth, filling the dark space with flames. The surroundings instantly became as bright as day. The terrifying high temperature burned all the cursed spirits into ashes. After a few seconds, the surroundings fell into dead silence. The aroma of burnt meat spread throughout the corridor. Kazuma said, all fear comes from insufficient firepower. Nobara's beautiful eyes widened as she looked at him with a complicated expression. Then she looked at the cursed spirits that didn't even have a body left. Is this all over? She fought to the death, exhausted herself but still couldn't finish the cursed spirits. But when Kazuma arrived, he instantly killed all of them. Also, what is fire release? Nobara shook her head, feeling physically and mentally devastated. She had originally thought about working hard to surpass Kazuma and have him bow down before her and call her queen. But Kazuma has actually learned a new technique in the short time they have not met. Are these techniques really that easy to learn? Why does this guy know so many? Also, fire and space don't seem to have anything to do with each other. Kazuma said, okay, stop being obsessed with me. I'm just an irregular. Go save Yuji and the others. Nobara said, Tisk, what are you showing off for? Just then, a man with a spiky black hair ran over. Kazuma and Nobara looked over. Kazuma waved and said, long time no see, Megami. Megami propped himself up on his knees, breathing deeply. Huff. I'm glad you're okay. The moment Megami saw Kazuma, his heart became at peace. Time was running out. So, Megami roughly told them what had happened and also called the teachers. Kazuma said, it seems that Yuji is in danger. You guys go wait outside. I will go save Yuji. Megami became shocked. He felt that all his previous words were in vain. He said, hey. Did you not understand what I just said? Yuji is probably not himself right now. Sukuna is probably controlling his body right now. Also, he is probably in two-finger form. Kazuma certainly knew that Sukuna had already taken over Yuji's body and was probably beating up the humanoid special grade cursed spirit. However, Sukuna should be able to kill that special grade cursed spirit soon and devour the third finger. His purpose at this moment was to fight Sukuna in a one-on-one duel. He had become much more proficient in the use of the Mangekyo Sharingan. He had already mastered the first form of Susanoo. Skeleton form. As for the second form, he felt like something was still missing. Kazuma had a hunch that perhaps this battle with Sukuna would not only help him increase his proficiency with various ninjutsu, but it might even help him unlock the second form of Susanoo. The capabilities of his Mangekyo Sharingan are far more than what he currently has. There is still a lot of room for development. An underground ruin. The humanoid special grade cursed spirit was nailed to the wall. Its limbs had been cut off, and purple-black blood flowed onto the ground along the corners of the wall. Sukuna stood on a piece of gravel with his hands in his pockets, admiring his masterpiece. Hehe, you know what? We both are classified as special grade. Don't you think that's a joke? If that's the way it is, then there doesn't seem to be much difference between special grade and small fish. These words seemed to anger the cursed spirit nailed to the wall. It let out a roar and began to struggle violently, trying to escape from the wall. Sukuna raised his eyebrows and continued to encourage, very good, try harder, be a little more angry. Then please me as much as you can. Ah! The cursed spirit's eyes were filled with rage, and it finally pulled its body out of the wall. Dense bubbles appeared on its broken limbs, and then the severed hands and feet grew back again. Bang! The humanoid special grade cursed spirit jumped down from the wall. The corners of his mouth spread to its ear. It looked like it was very excited. Sukuna sneered, you seem very proud. Do you want me to praise you? Special grade. Unfortunately, this is not worthy of praise. You are different from humans. Healing is not a difficult task for cursed spirits. Sukuna pointed at his own body and said, you are just like this brat. You are extremely stupid and know nothing about cursed energy. So, let me teach you, you bastard. After saying this, Sukuna slowly pulled out his hands and formed a hand sign. Domain expansion, malevolent shrine. Drib. In the absolute darkness, water drops fell, causing slight ripples. A shrill wailing sound like that of a demon from hell echoed. An endless eerie aura instantly spread out from Sukuna. Countless dry and white skulls emerged. The ground beneath his feet was like a transparent mirror. Under the reflection, a large scarlet shrine rose from the ground. It was like a gate to hell. Sukuna stood above, like a god holding the power of life and death. Dismantle. An extremely calm voice uttered. Swish. A slash that could not be seen by the naked eye swept through, and blood spurted out. The humanoid special grade cursed spirit's pupils became as thin as needles and it became motionless. A breeze blew and its body instantly split apart. The cut was neat and smooth, and it was divided into countless parts. The cursed spirit had no chance of revival. Oh. I accidentally cut it too much. Sorry. As he spoke, Sukuna slowly walked up to the cursed spirit. He stretched out 2 fingers in front of its chest, and pulled out a dry finger. Fortunately, the finger is intact. The property has been returned to its original owner. Sukuna raised his head, and swallowed his finger. He closed his eyes, and enjoyed the feeling of his strength being restored. Even the cursed energy he had consumed to use the domain just now regenerated. Bang! Sukuna snapped his fingers. The humanoid cursed spirit that was cut into pieces was instantly burned by purple flames and eventually returned to nothingness. Comment. To comment. Vote. Chapter 36. Sukuna put his hands in his pockets, and walked to the empty gravel area. He slowly closed his eyes and impatiently said, it's over. No one responded. Tisk. Don't mess with me, come out quickly. Sukuna's tone became even more impatient. As the king of curses, he was actually being restricted by a little brat. 3 seconds later. There was still no response. Sukuna opened his 4 eyes, and something occurred to him. Could it be that the blow this kid received was so great that his consciousness fell into a deep sleep? Thinking of this, he revealed a strange and ferocious smile. Looks like I can kill to my heart's content. At this moment. Unfortunately, it looks like I'm a step too late. My points are gone. A sigh resounded throughout the dim underground ruins. Sukuna turned around and asked, who? Whoosh. A whirlpool appeared, and a man with a round fan on his back appeared in front of him. So it's you, the boy with strange abilities. An amused expression suddenly appeared on Sukuna's face. This person was the sorcerer who had defeated him right after his rebirth. But at that time, he only had the strength of 1 finger. Now, he has swallowed 3 fingers. He decided not to look for those little brats' other friends for the time being, because the person in front of him interested him more. You actually came to me on your own initiative. Are you ready to live a life worse than death? Boom. He suddenly exuded an extremely terrifying aura and said, boy, I have decided to slowly torture you. Kazuma looked at Sukuna with interest. 3-finger Sukuna. He is indeed much stronger than the first time he had met him. Perhaps by fighting him, he might be able to unlock second form Susanoo. Sukuna said, come on, let me see if you have made any progress during this period of time. Don't be like that cursed spirit just now. Before he could finish speaking, Kazuma used a body flicker technique and came behind Sukuna at an extremely fast speed. Lightning chakra gathered and formed a high-intensity electric current in his hands. Rakery. Sizzle. The sound of lightning came to Sukuna's ears. Sukuna subconsciously widened his eyes and looked out of the corner of his eye. What? Such a fast speed. At the same time. Outside Esha Juvenile Detention Center. Mei Mei was pacing back and forth anxiously, and the black divine dog behind him was foolishly following him in circle. Damn it. Why didn't Kazuma listen to his advice? Does he think that Sukuna is still the same? Sukuna has eaten another finger, and his strength has increased several times. Why couldn't he wait for the teachers to come and then attack together? Nobara complained impatiently, hey, Mei Mei, could you please stop swaying around? Mei Mei has just been walking around, almost non-stop. Seeing him, Nobara almost felt dizzy. She was not too worried about Kazuma's safety. Although that guy always embarrasses her, she has to admit that in terms of strength, he is an absolute monster. Maki had brought back a book recording 8 Inner Gates last time, and she had also read it herself. Although she didn't fully understand it, she knew that it was indeed very powerful. Kazuma was actually able to write such a powerful physical technique. If word of this were to get out, the entire Jujutsu world would probably go crazy. Especially his eyes, which can actually see the future. So to a certain extent, it should be possible for him to avoid fatal dangers, right? At this moment, a black car rushed at high speed, then drifted and suddenly braked. Screech. Deep tire marks appeared on the ground. 3 people got off the car. They were Mei Mei, Nanami, and Shiko. As for Ijishi, he did not stop. Instead, he rushed back to school to report the situation to Yaga. Seeing the 3 people, Mei Mei immediately ran forward and said, you guys are finally here. Go help Kazuma, he's challenging Sukuna. Then, Megami briefly told them what had happened. Let's go, Mei Mei-san. Although Kazuma is stronger than us, Sukuna should not be underestimated. And his safety must be guaranteed. Otherwise the others will go crazy. Nanami analyzed while adjusting his tie. Mei Mei agreed with Nanami, but she planned to ask for extra money afterwards. Shiko, who was standing behind them, held a lollipop in her mouth and smiled. She said, be careful. I will just stay here. I don't want to cause any trouble for you guys. Nobara and Megami were both stunned. Nanami just said that Kazuma was stronger than them. And Mei Mei didn't object. Kazuma has grown so strong so quickly. He has even surpassed 2 teachers in such a short time? Doesn't that mean he's close to special grade? This. Then they both shook their heads. Kazuma can no longer be looked at with ordinary eyes. Comparing themselves with him will only ruin their confidence. Even if one day he suddenly becomes as powerful as a special grade sorcerer, well, that's probably unlikely. At least, it should not be realistic in the short term. Just as Mei Mei and Nanami were preparing to go inside the building to provide support. Boom. A loud noise reached everyone's eardrums. They saw a black dot flying backward at a very high speed, and there seemed to be a blue snake-like electric current wrapped around it. As the object got closer, a familiar figure came into everyone's sight. Yuji. No, it's Sukuna. The black lines on his face made it easy for everyone to recognize him at a glance. Sukuna was actually knocked into the air? It can only be the doing of that person. Whoosh. Lightning roared in the direction of the building. A blue arc flashed by, breaking through the clouds and leaving a dazzling and eye-catching trail. Kazuma transformed into lightning and appeared in the sky above Sukuna at an extremely fast speed. The corners of his mouth rose and he said, let me remind you of the feeling of defeat that I gave you back then. As soon as he finished speaking, a high-speed rotating ball condensed in his hand. The ball emitted a bright blue light. As it appeared, the surrounding space gradually twisted, forming a vortex. Raise Nan. Comment. 7 comment. Vote. Chapter 37. Boom. The raised Nan hit Sukuna's back, and an irresistible push appeared on his back. Sukuna even felt a burning pain. But all of this just made him even more excited. The stronger the opponent, the better. Bang. Sukuna's body arched and heavily fell to the ground. A huge dent was created on the concrete floor, stirring up a cloud of dust. A violent shockwave swept through like a strong wind, blowing the spectators backwards uncontrollably. Mei Mei and Nanami's faces changed slightly, and they immediately grabbed Nobara and Megami and retreated. Shiko blinked. Her brown hair had become messy, and the lollipop in her mouth was now gone. With no other options, she had to take out a green apple-flavored lollipop and stuff it into her mouth. What a scary and rude guy. But that move just now was pretty cool. Megami and the others stood there in a daze, their eyes filled with shock. The lightning just now was terrifying, and what was that huge ball? Kazuma said that it was called something like Raise Nan? Now, Nobara and Megami understood why Mei Mei and Nanami had said that Kazuma was stronger than them. But how did he come across these 2 moves? Is this guy an inventor? How could he always come up with these weird and unknown techniques? And all of these techniques are so powerful. When the smoke and dust cleared, Sukuna was no longer in the pit. Suddenly, a slashing attack appeared behind Kazuma. Careful! Megami yelled. Kazuma was well prepared. He activated Kamui and the invisible slash passed through the body, making a deep gully in the ground. Sukuna frowned and said, so troublesome. Even the slash went straight through. Sukuna already had a rough guess in his mind. Whether it was the first time he had fought this kid or now, every time he was in this strange virtual state, he would not attack him. Even if he revealed some flaws, this kid remained indifferent. Therefore, it is very likely that he cannot attack in this state. No. He doesn't dare to attack. Could it be that once his body actively touches his, he will be freed from that strange state of emptiness? Thinking of this, Sukuna showed a strange smile. Sure enough, no matter how powerful a cursed technique is, it cannot be absolutely invincible. In this case, all he needs to do is give up his defense and deliver a fatal blow the moment this kid actively attacks him. In simple terms, he just has tank his hits and then hit him. Over the past 1,000 years, there have been few people who could make him use strategy to fight them. Kazuma hooked his finger at Sukuna, signaling come over here. When the 2 exchanged glances, they attacked at the same time. Whoosh! The earth cracked, the surrounding trees were uprooted by the strong wind, and the air was filled with the sound of sonic booms. Sukuna and Kazuma flew in the air and shuttled through the open space. Their battle had just begun. Their attacks became more and more fierce, their after images were blurred, and their collisions were fierce. Kazuma's blood was boiling, and the pattern of the Mangekyo Sharingan in his eyes was spinning at the fastest speed ever. His ocular power was exerted to the extreme. The shackles that kept him from using the second form Susanoo were gradually breaking. On the other hand, Sukuna's eyes were fierce. Blood was flowing from the corners of his mouth, but his smile was becoming more and more crazy. He was waiting. Waiting for a perfect chance to kill Kazuma. In just a few seconds, they had nearly exchanged 100 moves. Mei Mei and the others had already retreated far away. They were watching this decisive battle with extremely solemn expressions. This level of battle was difficult for her to intervene in, even as a first-grade sorcerer. Although Kazuma had the upper hand, and he beat Sukuna so hard that blood spurted everywhere, everyone did not relax at all. Instead, they became more nervous. Because the smile on Sukuna's face was becoming more and more weird, as if he was planning something big. Moreover, Kazuma's attacks did not cause any fatal damage to Sukuna. If this continues, his cursed energy will surely hit rock bottom sooner than Sukuna. They were very confused. Why was just two-finger Sukuna so strong? Bang! Kazuma's fist hit Sukuna's abdomen. Blood spurted from the corner of Sukuna's mouth. But his face showed an evil smile as if he had succeeded. Cleave. There are two types of slashing attacks in Sukuna's arsenal. One is cleave and the other is dismantle. Dismantle is a series of normal ranged slashing attacks. And cleave is generally used for a fatal blow. Cleave is not only more powerful than dismantle, it can also cut through anything. It is also faster, and almost imperceptible. By the time the opponent reacts, most of them will have already been split in half. Thousands of years ago, during the golden era of Jujutsu, countless so-called geniuses had died under this move. A ray of light flashed by, and the clouds in the sky were instantly split into two. Sukuna crossed his arms and calmly said, "You are very capable, but that's all." In the distance, everyone's breathing stagnated. In their sight, Kazuma's body was fixed in the air, and he was motionless. Kazuma didn't dodge. That made sense. How could it be possible to dodge such an extremely fast attack? Nobara clenched her fists, and tightly grasped the corner of her clothes. She gritted her teeth and stared at Kazuma. "Idiot! Don't scare me. Why are you standing there like an idiot? Move. Can't your eyes predict the future? You should be able to dodge it, right?" Shiko's heart twisted, and the lollipop in her mouth fell down. She watched in disbelief as Kazuma's body gradually split into two. Her savior was dead? However, Mei Mei's reaction was different from the others. She showed a faint smile and said, "Look carefully, there is no blood." As soon as she said that, everyone who was in grief suddenly looked up at Kazuma, whose upper body had fallen to the ground. "Hey? Why is there no blood? Could it be that?" Sukuna was about to laugh out loud and declare his victory in this battle, but suddenly he had a bad feeling. When he looked down, he immediately discovered something off. What? No blood? Then, Kazuma's body, which was split in two, suddenly emitted white smoke and turned into a wooden stake. 40 advanced chapters on patreon.com/alex_1000. Comment. 6 comment. Vote. Chapter 38. This scene stunned not only the people who were watching from a distance, but even Sukuna. What the hell is this? He has existed for thousands of years, but he has never encountered such a strange scene. Sukuna immediately put away his victorious attitude. He solemnly assumed a fighting stance, while the scene just now kept replaying in his mind. His cleave had definitely hit Kazuma, and there was no possibility of dodging. But why didn't Kazuma's body bleed? Instead, it turned into wood. At this moment, a whisper sounded in Sukuna's ear. "It's substitution technique. It seems you haven't seen it before, you little jerk." Sukuna's pupils contracted. He wanted to respond to the attack, but it was too late. Kazuma quickly grabbed Sukuna and immediately locked him in the Kamui dimension. Then, in front of everyone's shocked gazes, Kazuma began to make a raise nan on the spot. After a few seconds, a huge raise nan appeared in front of his chest. Kazuma smiled with evil intentions, and then released Sukuna. Sukuna, who hadn't figured out what was going on, focused on the rapidly rotating blue and white ball in Kazuma's hand. Big ball raise nan. Boom. The moment Sukuna was hit, he flew out at a very high speed, breaking countless trees along the way. A huge destructive force tore the earth apart and uprooted the trees. The giant raise nan was launched right at his face, and Sukuna's head was buzzing. After the dust and smoke dissipated, it could be seen that Sukuna was embedded in the ground. He was coughing up blood, and the clothes on his chest had already been torn to pieces by the explosion. Thinking back to the attack just now, Sukuna couldn't help but sigh. At the moment he was hit, if he hadn't subconsciously used his cursed energy to block, he would have probably fainted. That would be really embarrassing. Sukuna praised, "Ahem. Not bad. Really amazing, every move is eye-opening." As he spoke, he climbed out of the deep pit. The dirt and blood on his face did not make him look more miserable. Instead, it made him look even more domineering and crazy. I had never expected two fascinating geniuses to appear at the same time 1,000 years later. There is Gojo Satoru, who is hailed as the strongest in the modern time, and there is the mysterious Kazuma. The present world is far more interesting than the world 1,000 years ago, ha 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 ha. Sukuna spread his arms, looked up at the sky, and laughed wildly. His body shook with excitement. This was the unique personality charm of the King of Curses, Sukuna. If someone else had done this, they would probably just be called a chunabiya. But if it's Sukuna instead, there's no sense of incongruity. This kid's techniques are too weird. His physical skills are also very powerful, and with the strength of 3 fingers, I'm afraid I really can't do anything to him. Then I can only... Sukuna put his hands together and made a seal, his eyes never leaving Kazuma. Kazuma slightly raised his eyebrows and looked at the people behind him. He said, "Stand back." He knew that Sukuna was going to use a domain expansion, and he was looking forward to it. Domain expansion, Malevolent Shrine. With Sukuna as the center, a barrier instantly spread out, covering the area within 100 meters. A scream like that of a demon from hell echoed. The entire area appeared in everyone's sight like a canvas of hell. Kazuma did not dare to be careless. Is this Sukuna's domain? It's indeed comparable to Gojo Satoru's infinite void. It is one of the strongest and even arguably the strongest domain in the entire Jujutsu world. Kazuma, who had read the manga, naturally had some understanding of it. Enemies in the Malevolent Shrine will be constantly subjected to two different types of attacks. They are Dismnatal for slashing inanimate objects, and Cleave for slashing targets with cursed energy. The most important thing is that Sukuna's domain is different from other domains. His domain doesn't have an enclosed barrier. So, his domain doesn't restrict people from entering and leaving the domain freely. This creates a binding vow. As a result, his domain increases to a terrifying radius of 200 meters. If one is unfortunately pulled into his domain, they may be chopped into pieces by countless attacks in an instant. Kazuma thought that the only one who could probably withstand the numerous slashes might be Hakari. Outside the domain, Mei Mei and others withdrew from the area in time due to Kazuma's reminder. Looking at Kazuma, who was alone in Sukuna's domain in the distance, they couldn't help but worry about him. Domain. This is the realm that all sorcerers pursue. Once a sorcerer comprehends a domain, they instantly enter the topmost echelon of sorcerers. Even Mei Mei and Nanami didn't have a domain. Immediately, in their extremely shocked gazes, Sukuna slowly stretched out his hand. Swish. 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 An overwhelming number of slashes instantly engulfed Kazuma at a speed that was difficult to capture with the naked eye. The surrounding buildings instantly collapsed. The earth, trees, and tall buildings were instantly transformed into countless smooth and neat blocks. Mei Mei and the others could no longer see Kazuma. But they knew that no one could escape this almost indiscriminate attack. Even if Kazuma could use that substitution technique infinitely, it would be useless. After all, it takes time to use it, and that time is enough for him to be sliced countless times. Sukuna watched all of his slashes pass through Kazuma's body without exception. Even though he was mentally prepared, he still cursed, cheater. Comment. 8 comment. Vote. Chapter 39. Even though he was the king of curses from 1,000 years ago, Sukuna actually felt envious at this moment. It would be a great thing if he could learn that cursed technique. But he was not in a hurry. He guessed that it was very hard for that kid to maintain this weird state. He had noticed this in the previous battle. Under the coverage of his indiscriminate slashing, the strange pattern in Kazuma's eyes were spinning faster and faster. Everything has its limits, even him. Sure enough, Sukuna noticed that Kazuma's eyes had begun to bleed. Sukuna looked at Kazuma and said, "How long can you sustain such a high-load operation? Just defending will only delay your death. Why not take a gamble and show me your true strength to please me?" Feeling the stinging pain in his eyes, Kazuma couldn't help but admire Sukuna. As expected of Sukuna, besides possessing powerful strength, he also possesses a great battle IQ and extraordinary comprehension. Now, he actually saw through the source of Kamui's power and analyzed its only weakness. The time limit of Kamui is 5 minutes. Kazuma was not in a hurry. He wanted to take this opportunity to further strengthen his Mangekyo Sharingan's capabilities. Under such high pressure, Kazuma could clearly feel that the upper limit of his Mangekyo Sharingan's power was being broken. It was very simple to break Sukuna's domain. He just has to glare at Sukuna and use Genjutsu with all his strength. After all, Sukuna has many eyes. With so many eyes, if he doesn't fall for a Genjutsu, who will? Thinking of this, Kazuma couldn't help but smile playfully. Under Sukuna's countless slashes, the surrounding area had been almost razed to the ground, leaving only countless slash marks. A minute later, Sukuna gradually became impatient. Even though he was the king of curses, it was very tiring for him to release slashes like this non-stop. What's more, he has only just recovered 3 fingers as of now, and is far from being as strong and durable as he was at his peak. Looking at Kazuma's eyes that were bleeding, he felt frustrated. Compared to Gojo Satoru, he now thought that Kazuma was a bigger threat. All kinds of strange abilities kept appearing, and even he found it very difficult to deal with. Moreover, from Yuji's memory, he found that Kazuma had only been in school for a few days. If this kid gets some time, he might cause himself a lot of trouble. Therefore, he should take advantage of this great opportunity when Gojo Satoru is not here to completely eliminate this threat. Sukuna and Kazuma stood opposite each other, and a protracted battle between real men began. 1.5 minutes later, Sukuna was already profusely sweating from exhaustion, and his cursed energy was almost depleted. This damn ability. Sukuna was feeling extremely impatient and depressed. The blood flowing from this kid's eyes was enough to wash his face. How could he still maintain his virtual state? When fighting against enemies, he almost always ended the battle quickly in a crushing manner. Why did this battle become so protracted today? This was simply torture for him. Outside the domain, Mei Mei and the others were not as nervous as before because the scene before their eyes was too weird. Sukuna was releasing slashes, while Kazuma was still overwhelmed by the astronomical number of slashes. They could not see the specific situation at all. Kazuma and Sukuna remained standing like this, motionless. If the atmosphere wasn't serious, Nobara would have wanted to shout hey. Did someone say English or Spanish? Mei Mei knew about Kazuma's ability is to allow any object to pass through his body. So, he is basically invincible in that state. But how long can he use this abnormal ability? Just now, Mei Mei, who couldn't bear to see everyone be so worried, had mentioned Kazuma's ability. Mei Mei rubbed her brows and said, "I don't know exactly how long he can use that ability. But I believe that Kazuma is a persistent man and has good stamina." Hearing this, everyone became speechless. As expected of Mei Mei, she actually still has the mind to make jokes in this situation. Nobara secretly looked at Mei Mei with a scrutinizing gaze. Mei Mei sensei seems to have a special relationship with Kazuma. Although Mei Mei always acts flirtatious and charming, it seems that she only does this to Kazuma. When facing other people, she just gives off a feeling of mystery and laziness. Moreover, there was something wrong with the way she looked at Kazuma. Her gaze was like that of an older sister looking at her younger brother, but with some strange emotions mixed in. T/N, those who know. Suddenly, Nobara's eyes lit up. Could it be that? Last time, when Nanami had invited everyone to dinner, Kazuma and Mei Mei were the only ones who didn't go. What happened between the two of them that time? Anyway, there's something wrong with these two. 1.5 minutes later. Kazuma felt that the time was ripe and it seemed like he could use the second form of Susanoo. He looked at Sukuna and said with a joking smile, sure enough, only by maintaining a high intensity of combat can the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan be further stimulated. You have worked hard, Sukuna. Although the slashes made it difficult for him to cancel Kamui, Kazuma could still unleash the power of his left eye to distort space and use genjutsu. But his purpose had been achieved. Damn kid. Sukuna was slightly angry. The continuous high-intensity slashes had made him gradually worn out. If he had more fingers, there would be no chance for this kid to trash talk like this. But on second thought, he will still be the one who has the last laugh. Even though both of them have little cursed energy left in their bodies, a skinny camel is still bigger than a horse. Even if he only has 3 fingers, his cursed energy reserve is still greater than that of this kid. But the next second, Sukuna was stunned. Kazuma suddenly opened his eyes. The Mangekyo pattern mixed with blood became even more bizarre. A dazzling scarlet blood light emerged. Susanoo. Comment. 5 comment. Vote. Chapter 40. Boom. A purple energy instantly covered Kazuma's entire body, turning into a ribcage and wrapping him up in it. The first form of Susanoo was used without any difficulty. But there was still room for growth. Kazuma showed a crazy smile and looked at Sukuna. He said, it's not over yet. Boom. The ribcage began to be covered with meridians and flesh. A chakra coat wrapped around the body surface, further strengthening the defense. At the same time, the huge Susanoo held 2 40-meter-long swords in its hands. 5 minutes had just passed. So, Kazuma's body appeared in the real world. Swish. Countless slashes hit the Susanoo, but they could only cut its outer clothes into pieces and leave marks on its bones. As for Kazuma who was inside, he was unharmed. When the Susanoo appeared, everyone present, including Sukuna, was completely dumbfounded. Sukuna looked up at the tall purple giant and exclaimed, this kid still has more tricks up his sleeve. Boom. Kazuma's goal had been achieved. Now, he didn't want to be entangled with Sukuna anymore. Goodbye. The Susanoo waved the 40-meter-long swords in its hands. In a flash, Sukuna retreated 39 meters away. However, Kazuma's sword was 40 meters long. So, Sukuna was still hit. Boom. Sukuna's body flew backwards, his teeth shattered, and blood spurted out. At the same time, his domain also collapsed. Even if he used all his strength to activate reverse curse technique, he was unable to withstand this terrifying attack. 100 meters away. Yuji was lying unconscious in a deep pit, covered in wounds. The black lines on his face had disappeared. Inside Yuji's body, on top of a mountain of skulls, Sukuna slowly opened his eyes and grinned wickedly. Interesting. The earth cracked, trees broke, buildings collapsed, and the ground was devastated. If they didn't know what had happened, they might have thought there was a big earthquake. Everyone opened their mouths as wide as they could. They stayed motionless like petrified statues. They had witnessed everything just now. The purple skeleton giant and the 40-meter-long sword that had instantly blown Sukuna away and broken his domain was terrifying. Nobara asked tremblingly, Mei. What was that just now, Mei Mei sensei? How did Kazuma summon such a terrifying giant? Mei Mei opened her red lips but could not utter a word for a long time. Finally, she smiled, shook her head, and sighed. She said, maybe it's similar to a shikigami. After saying this, she stared at Kazuma's back with flickering eyes and sighed in her heart. How many tricks does this kid have? Hearing Mei Mei's words, everyone nodded in approval. They had not seen Kazuma use that purple giant before this. It was probably his last trump card, a shikigami. Kazuma is truly a hidden talent. With such strength, he can easily rank at the top. Nobara felt a little lost. Kazuma was a rookie and was from the same class as her, but he has suddenly become such a superb sorcerer. Can he stop being so stressful? At this time, Kazuma came over with some difficulty, carrying the unconscious Yuji. He had held back on the attack just now. After all, he couldn't really kill Yuji, right? After all, even if Yuji died, Sukuna wouldn't die. Due to his intervention, Yuji's situation was better than his canon counterpart. In the original story, he had his heart ripped out by Sukuna. But this time, his condition was better, albeit not by much. All the bones and tendons in his body were broken. But fortunately, with Shiko, there shouldn't be any major problems. Your eyes. A look of heartache appeared on Nobara's face. She wanted to reach out and wipe the blood off of Kazuma, but she was afraid of hurting him, so she pulled herself back. After she said this, the others also noticed Kazuma's bleeding eyes. Kazuma said, what's a little bloodshed for a man? After saying that, Kazuma didn't forget to take advantage of the opportunity that was presented before him. Kazuma took Nobara's hand and put it against his face. Well, it's very smooth and moist, and feels good. People say that Nobara is a rose with thorns, but her hand feels pretty good. Nobara's face turned slightly red, but considering that Kazuma was the main contributor this time, she just turned her head away and did not try to break free. The main reason why Kazuma's eyes were bleeding so much was because he had used Kamui for 5 minutes straight. Also, he had used the second form Susanoo. After all, this was his first time to using the Susanoo. He hadn't controlled the release of his ocular power well, and he had used too much force all of a sudden. He believed that next time he uses the Susanoo, there will be no bloodshed. After processing Kazuma's words, everyone became speechless. Comment. A comment. Vote.